हेलो फ्रेंड्स, वेलकम बैक टू माय चैनल। तो आज मैं इसका थर्ड पार्ट लेके आ चुका हूँ। तो बिना किसी देरी के स्टार्ट करते हैं।
Chapter 77, Encountering Huo Wu, The Resentment of the Simp Feng Xiaodian. After the opening match ended, Lu Zan was preparing to leave, but was called out by Emperor Shui Yi. Lord Lu Zan, I would like to invite you to a banquet. I wonder if you have the time. Emperor Shui Yi wore a gentle smile on his face, his tone carrying a hint of solicitation. Many thanks for your kindness, your majesty, but I have other matters to attend to, so I shall not intrude. Lu Zan spoke neither humbly nor arrogantly. He had never been interested in such social engagements, let alone a royal banquet, which would surely involve quite a few interests. A trace of disappointment flashed in Emperor Shui Yi's eyes, but he did not force the issue and smiled. In that case, I shall not insist. If you are free in the future, I will certainly host a grand feast for you. Farewell. Lu Zan nodded in acknowledgement and turned to leave the VIP seating area. Just as he walked into the lobby, he saw three familiar figures. Sister Huo Wu, I also have a Bulbasaur like the one in the opening match earlier. Would you like to take a look? Feng Xiaodian leaned in beside Huo Wu, holding a Pokeball in his hand, his face full of fawning smiles. However, Huo Wu remained indifferent, not even glancing at Feng Xiaodian once. Even so, Feng Xiaodian was not discouraged in the slightest, and even became more proactive, continuing. Sister Huo Wu, if you don't like that, I have also mastered a self-created spirit ability that I can show you. That's just something you bought with money, isn't it? Huo Wu glanced at Feng Xiaodian, her tone cold. Upon hearing this, Feng Xiaodian was immediately rendered speechless. He had indeed wanted to show off the self-created spirit ability he learned from a skill book, which was even more powerful than the Storm Devil Wolf 36 consecutive slashes he had developed. But then he thought, Blazing Academy must have also purchased skill books, making his action somewhat redundant. Huo Wushuang, standing to the side, shook his head. Could this guy not settle down for a moment? Just then, Lu Zan happened to walk over from the front and ran into the three of them. Lu Zan. Huo Wu walked up excitedly, her beautiful eyes filled with a strange luster. Although they had only met a few times, Lu Zan had left a deep impression on her. Clearly of similar age, yet he was already a spirit saint powerhouse, and even possessed a 100,000-year spirit ring. Even the supreme pontiff and the emperor had to give him face. Compared to such a peerless genius, Feng Xiaodian was far too inferior. What are you all doing here? Lu Xuan's gaze swept over the three, finally landing on Feng Xiaodian, a flash of pity appearing in his eyes. Although he possessed innate full spirit power, he was a simp who wasted his talent in vain. However, under his influence, Feng Xiaodian was much stronger than in the original work, his spirit power having reached level 49, just a step away from being a spirit king. Before the finals, it was possible for Feng Xiaodian to break through to become a spirit king. Not just him, Huo Wushuang and Huo Wu were also much stronger, at level 48 and level 47, respectively. This spirit master competition was becoming interesting. A moment later, Huo Wushuang stepped forward quickly, bowed to Lu Zan with cupped hands, and said respectfully, Mr. Lu, I have long admired your reputation. Lu Zan nodded in acknowledgement. Seeing Huo Wu take the initiative to welcome Lu Zan, the smile on Feng Xiaodian's face could no longer be maintained. He immediately blocked in front of Huo Wu, forced a reluctant smile, and cupped his hands to Lu Zan. Greetings, Mr. Lu. Dean Feng has put all his effort into training you, yet you still haven't broken through to the Spirit King level. Lu Zan said with a calm expression. In his estimation, as long as Feng Xiaodian devoted himself entirely to cultivation, he would certainly be able to reach level 50 or above. Now it seemed, he had likely wasted a lot of time being a simp. Mr. Lu, if you have time, you can come watch our Blazing Academy matches. Huo Wu did not retreat because of Lu Xuan's cold attitude, instead, she became even more proactive, wearing a bright smile on her face. We'll see. Lu Zan did not refuse. He looked toward the exit and said indifferently, I have other matters to attend to, so I shall take my leave. Then I shall not disturb you further. Although Huo Wu was somewhat reluctant, she sensibly stepped aside. She knew very well that a peerless genius like Lu Zan was not someone she could get close to with just a few words. Watching Lu Xuan's departing back, Feng Xiaodian's face was so gloomy it looked like it could drip water. He clenched his fists tightly, his nails digging deep into his palms, as an uncontrollable surge of jealousy and powerlessness welled up in his heart. He had pursued Huo Wu for so many years, yet Huo Wu had never looked at him with that kind of gaze. Yet Lu Zan hadn't done anything, and Huo Wu had actively thrown herself at him. Is this the gap? Huo Wushuang patted Feng Xiaodian on the shoulder and sighed. He certainly knew Feng Xiaodian's thoughts, but such things could not be forced. Feng Xiaodian remained silent for a moment before finally following, though his back looked somewhat lonely. On the other side, the members of Shrek Academy were in the lounge. Dai Mubai leaned against the wall with an unhappy look on his face, angrily saying, the opponents summoned outside help, and it wasn't considered a violation. That's too cheap. The more he spoke, the angrier he became, and he punched the wall. This match should have been a stomp, but because of that Bulbasaur, the situation was almost reversed. Tang San frowned deeply and said in a deep voice, that Bulbasaur's vines were tougher than my blue-silver grass. If it hadn't been for Ma Hongjian's advantage, we might have lost the first match. If it was this difficult to win the first match, how would they fight the subsequent ones? And this was only the preliminaries. The others also looked troubled. This match had not been as easy as they had imagined, but rather, they had won with great difficulty. At this moment, Yu Xiaogang suddenly thought of something, his gaze falling on Ning Rongrong, and he asked. Ning Rongrong, your 7 treasure glazed tile school must have bought quite a few Pokeballs, right? Could you lend us a few? His tone was taken for granted, as if it were only natural for Ning Rongrong to lend out the Pokeballs. Upon hearing this, Ning Rongrong rolled her eyes and retorted unhappily, these belong to our sect. Why should I lend them to you for use? She did indeed have a few Pokeballs. Besides Psyduck, there were also a few Pokemon gifted by Lu Zan. It wasn't just her, Zhu Zuqing also had 2 Pokeballs. But these were their belongings, so naturally, it was impossible to lend them to others. Seeing Ning Rongrong refuse so bluntly, Yu Xiaogong's face darkened, and he stood on the moral high ground, accusing her. Ning Rongrong, you are a member of Shrek Academy after all. What's wrong with you contributing a little? Isn't this all for the sake of winning the championship? In his perception, as a member of the team, it was expected for Ning Rongrong to contribute to the team. Besides, it was just borrowing a few Pokeballs, not that they wouldn't return them. Ning Rongrong sneered and retorted, if you can only win the championship by relying on the Pokeballs I lend, then does this championship have anything to do with you? You. Yu Xiaogong was choked to the point of silence, his face flushed, and his chest heaving violently. He hadn't expected Ning Rongrong to be so unyielding. Dai Mubai stood to the side, his eyes rolling, and his gaze fell on Zhu Zuqing, tentatively asking, you live with Lu Zan, did he give you anything? Chapter 78, Moral Coercion, Yu Xiaogong draws a caterpie. What business is it of yours? Zhu Zuqing's expression was cold, she didn't even spare Dai Mubai a single glance. You. Dai Mubai was furious, his fists clenched tightly, veins bulging. He wanted to fly into a rage, but the moment he thought of Lu Zan standing behind Zhu Zuqing, he could only forcefully suppress the anger in his heart. After a moment, Dai Mubai took a deep breath and tried his best to feign calmness, saying, Zhu Zuqing, you are my fiancé after all. As long as you give me 1 Pokeball, I can guarantee that I won't pester you anymore. In his view, since there was no longer any possibility with Zhu Zuqing, it would be better to take the opportunity to get some benefits. As long as he could save his own skin, he would even be willing to be cuckolded. Faced with his demand, Zhu Zuqing was silent for a moment, then swept a cold gaze toward Dai Mubai and replied unyieldingly, you are dreaming. In these past few months, Lu Zan had indeed given her quite a few things. But if she were to turn around and give them to Dai Mubai, not to mention that Lu Zan would look down on her, even she herself would look down on it. Seeing Zhu Zuqing be so heartless, Dai Mubai's expression instantly darkened. Seeing that the atmosphere was a bit off, Flender quickly coughed and stepped out to smooth things over. How about this? The Academy's finances still have some money, I will find time to go find Lu Zan and buy a few. He didn't want to do this either, but there was truly no better way at the moment. If things continued like this, it was uncertain whether the team could survive the qualifiers, let alone win the championship. Yu Xiaogong was very dissatisfied with this result. In his view, the Pokeballs Ning Rongrong brought out were definitely of better quality, and they didn't cost money. It just so happened that Ning Rongrong didn't have a shred of team consciousness, in the end, she was just selfish. Dean, you must save a powerful one for me, preferably fire attribute, so it can coordinate with me. Ma Hongjun said with a chuckle. Although he couldn't afford a martial soul enhancement scroll, having a powerful assistant wasn't bad either. I don't have any requirements, as long as it's strong enough. Dai Mubai looked toward Ning Rongrong. In his heart, he most wanted that Psyduck, not only because it was powerful, but also because it was impossible to guard against. Afterward, everyone left the lounge. After coming out of the Great Spirit Arena, Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing did not go to Shrek Academy, but stood at the entrance waiting for Lu Zan. Oscar suddenly stopped, turned his head to look at Ning Rongrong, who was like a fairy descending to earth, his eyes becoming increasingly dim. The gap between them was growing larger and larger. The next morning. Lu Zan did not go to the Great Spirit Arena to watch the matches again, but stayed in the manor to cultivate. Several Pokemon were lying nearby, not daring to make a sound, fearing they would disturb their master's cultivation. Just then, 2 figures appeared outside the manor's main gate. They were Flender and Yu Xiaogong. Xiaogong, how long has it been since you bathed? Flender asked while pinching his nose. Regarding this question, Yu Xiaogong did not want to answer, it was truly too embarrassing. Just as they were preparing to shout out loud, their vision suddenly blurred, and immediately after, a figure appeared before them out of thin air. The speed was too fast, even Flender hadn't reacted in time. Flender's pupils shrank, and he subconsciously took a step back, his face full of shock. Back in Soto City, Lu Xuan's speed had already been very fast, but now it was several times faster than before, he was afraid that even a titled Douluo could not compare. Yu Xiaogong was startled and sat directly on the ground. At this moment, Lu Xuan's gaze fell on Yu Xiaogong, and he said with a look of disgust, this is my private manor, anyone with a foul odor on them should retreat 20 meters away on their own. Once these words were spoken, Yu Xiaogong's cheeks flushed red like pig liver. Immediately, he looked up at Lu Zan and roared almost entirely, Lu Zan, isn't this all your fault? If it weren't for you selling me those things, how would I have ended up like this? Did I force you to buy them? Lu Zan retorted. Yu Xiaogong was immediately speechless, he opened his mouth wanting to retort, but found that he couldn't find any reason at all. Although he purchased them voluntarily, he did not think it was his own fault. After a moment, he gritted his teeth and argued sophistically, you must have deliberately framed me. That demonization pill is the evidence. Ridiculous, I said it was for spirit beasts to consume, who told you to make your spirit consume it? Lu Zan was not angry, instead, he said calmly, even taking a step back, even if I framed you, with your world-shaking wisdom, why didn't you notice it? Or are you saying that your so-called wisdom is all a lie? These words were like a sharp sword, accurately striking Yu Xiaogong's heart. His face instantly turned pale, his body swayed violently, and he stumbled back a few steps. Flender stood to the side and never interjected. On one hand, he dared not contradict Lu Zan. On the other hand, he also believed that Yu Xiaogong was suffering from his own actions. So much money went down the drain for nothing, he had no damn world-shaking wisdom, it was all to deceive women. If it weren't for Erlong, he would have lost his patience long ago. Fortunately, after Yu Xiaogong returned, he did not stay at the academy but lived alone outside the city, otherwise, he would have truly broken down. Gangzi, if you still don't get lost, I don't mind giving you a ride. Lu Zan lifted his eyes to look at Yu Xiaogong and said somewhat impatiently. Yu Xiaogang was startled and hurriedly retreated, but he refused to yield verbally, bluffing, Luzon, don't think I'm afraid of you, I just don't want to lower myself to your level. After saying this, he retreated until he was 20 meters away before stopping. Seeing this scene, Flender couldn't help but roll his eyes, this skin was thicker than a city wall. After Yu Xiaogang retreated a distance, the air was clearly a bit fresher. Flender stepped forward a few steps and cupped his hands, boss, I would like to buy a few Pokeballs. 100,000 gold coins each. Here is 400,000, give me 4 Pokeballs. Flender took out a black card with a pained expression and handed it to Luzon. After confirming the amount was correct, Luzon conjured 4 Pokeballs out of thin air and tossed them casually to Flender. Farewell. After getting the items, Flender did not stay long and turned to walk in the direction of Yu Xiaogang. Just as he approached, Yu Xiaogang impatiently snatched a Pokeball. Let me try first. Yu Xiaogang's eyes were full of excitement, although he had been badly scammed by Luzon, he still held a glimmer of hope in his heart. What if he drew a powerful creature? He could make a comeback. Flender sighed and did not stop Yu Xiaogang's actions, this wasn't the first time. Because Pokeballs were already quite common, even though Yu Xiaogang had never purchased one, he had learned about how to operate them from others. Very quickly, Yu Xiaogang pressed the button in the middle with force. Following a flash of white light, a green caterpillar appeared on the ground. It was entirely emerald green, its body was segmented, and it had a pair of small yellow horns on its head, it looked soft and mushy, with absolutely no combat power. What is this thing? Yu Xiaogang was completely dumbfounded, this thing was probably not even as good as Luo Sanpao. At least Luo Sanpao could fart, what could this bug do? Flender leaned over to take a look, and his old face instantly turned black, this guy's luck was even more useless than his spirit. Chapter 79, Yu Xiaogang's favoritism, each unluckier than the last. Great Spirit Arena, Shrek Academy Lounge. Creak. As the door was pushed open, Flender and Yu Xiaogang walked in. Dean, Grandmaster. Dai Mubai was the first to greet them, his eyes flashing with excitement. Ma Hongjun followed closely behind, his chubby body squeezing past Dai Mubai as he leaned in front of Flender and asked eagerly, Dean, did you buy the Pokeballs? Tang San and Oscar both looked over, they also wanted a Pokeball. I bought them. As he spoke, Flender took 3 Pokeballs out of his spirit tool. Why are there only 3? Dai Mubai frowned, even excluding Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing, they should have bought 4 Pokeballs. A hint of embarrassment appeared on Flender's face. He glanced at Yu Xiaogang beside him, hesitating to speak. Originally, he had bought 4 Pokeballs, intending to give one each to Dai Mubai, Ma Hongjun, Tang San, and Oscar, since Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing didn't need them. But Yu Xiaogang had snatched one away halfway. What could he do? Before Flender could think further, Dai Mubai and Ma Hongjun had already snatched a Pokeball each. With this, only one Pokeball was left in Flender's hand. Tang San and Oscar glanced at each other, neither making a move to grab it. Tang San had his own plans. Over the past few months, he had indeed made a lot of money by selling hidden weapons in batches through the Strength Clan's channels. Although he gave most of it to his father, he kept some for himself. However, he didn't dare to go to Luzon in person to buy things. Right now, his father's fate was unknown, and he might very well have died at Lu Xuan's hands. If he delivered himself to his doorstep, wouldn't he be walking right into a trap? To him, the most precious item was the Martial Soul Enhancement Scroll, but unfortunately, he couldn't get someone else to buy it for him. As for the relatively cheaper Pokeballs, he hadn't been interested in them before. It was only after almost losing yesterday's match that he developed some interest. A Pokeball cost 100,000 gold coins, and he could have Titan buy it on his behalf, so he wasn't particularly obsessed with this one. Just then, Yu Xiaogang snatched the remaining Pokeball from Flender's hand. Right after, he stuffed the Pokeball into Tang San's hand and said righteously, Little San, you take it. One was just an ordinary student, while the other was his personal disciple, naturally, he favored Tang San. Tang San was stunned for a moment, and then a flash of emotion crossed his eyes. However, seeing this, Flender's eyes flashed with a hint of dissatisfaction. Oscar was a food system spirit master and needed a pet the most for self-defense, yet Yu Xiaogang only thought of Tang San. But soon, Flender sighed again. Forget it, for younger sister or long sake, he would endure it. Over the years, he had grown used to it. Oscar looked at the Pokeball in Tang San's hand, a trace of disappointment flashing in his eyes. At this moment, Yu Xiaogang seemed to realize that this wasn't very appropriate. He hesitated for a moment, took a Pokeball out of his pocket, handed it to Oscar, and said with a generous look. Little Ao, I'll give you this one. It was only a useless bug anyway, and he didn't care for it. It was better to give it to Oscar as a favor. Seeing Yu Xiaogang's expression, Oscar thought it was a more precious Pokeball and said with a look of surprise, Grandmaster, is this really for me? Take it. Yu Xiaogang waved his hand, putting on a grand display of generosity. Thank you, Grandmaster. Oscar accepted the Pokeball with great joy, holding it in his hands as if it were a priceless treasure. As a food system spirit master, his self-defense capability was even worse than that of a support system spirit master. Now, he finally had a bit of self-defense ability. Grandmaster, how do I use this? Oscar looked up, his eyes filled with a desire for knowledge. Standing with his hands behind his back, Yu Xiaogang said proudly, just press the button in the middle. Thank you for the guidance, Grandmaster. Oscar thanked him and quickly pressed the button in the middle of the Pokeball. As a flash of white light went off, a Caterpie appeared on the ground. Quote. In an instant, the lounge fell into a dead silence. Looking at the little bug wriggling on the ground, the smile on Oscar's face instantly froze. He had thought Yu Xiaogang was giving him something good, but it turned out to be this. Thinking about it carefully, how could a selfish guy like Yu Xiaogang ever give him anything good? Although it didn't meet his expectations, he didn't vent his anger on the Caterpie. Instead, he bent down and cradled it in his palm. Although this bug didn't have much combat power, it was at least a living thing. He would just raise it as a little pet. Seeing this, Dai Mubai gloated, Little Ao, your luck is way too terrible. What kind of attack power could this little bug possibly have? Not only him, but Ma Hongjun was laughing so hard he couldn't stand up straight. Faced with their mockery, Oscar's face flushed red, but he couldn't refute them. He looked down at the caterpie curled up in his palm and sighed softly. After laughing his fill, Daimubai looked down at the pokeball in his hand, a determined glint flashing in his eyes. His luck couldn't possibly be worse than Oscar's, right? Watch me. A confident smile appeared on Daimubai's face as he suddenly pressed the button on the pokeball. Bang! A flash of white light went off. A tiny silver-gray fish appeared on the ground. It was extremely small, only about the size of a palm, entirely silver-gray, with scales that shimmered with a faint glow under the light. A pair of dull eyes stared blankly around, its mouth opening and closing. It was none other than a wishy-washy. Seeing this little thing, the smile on Daimubai's face froze. He squatted down and poked the little fish with his finger. Wishy-washy was poked onto its back, belly facing up, its tail wagging weakly. Then, it just lay there with its belly up, motionless. What on earth is this? Daimubai's face turned ash pale. This little fish looked even weaker than Oscar's little bug. Boss Dai, your luck isn't great either. Ma Hongjun held back his laughter, speaking with a touch of mockery. Strictly speaking, Oscar's pokeball was given by Yu Xiaogong, so it should be Yu Xiaogong's bad luck. But he didn't expect Daimubai's luck to be even worse, drawing such a tiny thing. Daimubai looked up at Flender and said in a deep voice, Dean, I suspect Luzon deliberately sold us useless things. He's scamming us. Flender's brow furrowed, and he didn't answer immediately. He also suspected they had been scammed by Luzon. But on second thought, Luzon had sold so many pokeballs, surely he wouldn't target them specifically. This is all about luck to begin with. Stop blaming others. Flender said testily. He had spent 400,000 gold coins. Even if they were indeed scammed, he could only swallow his anger and bear it. Hearing this, Daimubai snorted coldly, turned to Ma Hongjun, and said coldly, Fatty, it's your turn. Hee hee. Ma Hongjun gently pressed the button on the pokeball, and a mass of an unknown creature suddenly appeared on the ground. It was entirely purple with an uneven surface, looking like half-melted clay, and it kept bubbling. Immediately after, a sickening stench emanated from its body. Chapter 80, Tang San's Jinx. Holy crap, what the hell is this thing? Ma Hongjun covered his nose, his expression changing drastically. Although this stench couldn't compare to Luo Sanpao's smelly farts, it was still enough to make people feel uncomfortable, and could even cause one's sense of smell to fail. Fatty, you've basically pulled another Luo Sanpao. Daimubai quickly took a few steps back, a look of disgust on his face. Hearing this, Yu Xiaogong's face darkened, and he looked at Daimubai with a somewhat unfriendly gaze. Although Luo Sanpao's farts were indeed smelly, he could not tolerate anyone saying it to his face. This was an insult to him. However, no one had the mind to care about his feelings, they all pinched their noses, as the smell was indeed incredibly foul. It's too smelly, I can't take it. Ning Rongrong glanced at Muk with utter disgust and immediately turned to run out of the lounge. Seeing this, Zhu Zuqing also left the lounge. They didn't lack Pokeballs and had no interest in fighting over them, especially since these Pokemon were also subpar. If they guessed correctly, these Pokeballs weren't drawn by luck, but rather Luzon had deliberately sold the bad ones to Flender. However, they had no intention of exposing him. In the lounge, Ma Hongjun's face was extremely unsightly, but he still refused to believe his bad luck and reached out a finger to touch Muk. Don't touch it. Flender tried to warn him, but it was already too late. The moment Ma Hongjun touched Muk, a black toxin rapidly spread up his finger. Ah! Ma Hongjun let out a miserable shriek and collapsed to the ground, feeling dizzy and completely weak. Fatty. Flender's expression changed drastically, and he quickly rushed forward. After a quick examination, he found that Ma Hongjun had been poisoned. He immediately looked at Oscar and said urgently, Oscar, small detoxifying sausage. Oscar was stunned for a moment, then quickly chanted his spirit incantation. I, your father, have a small sausage. Soon, a tiny sausage appeared in Oscar's hand. He hurriedly ran over and stuffed the sausage into Ma Hongjun's mouth. Ma Hongjun swallowed the sausage with difficulty, and the toxin on his hand gradually receded, allowing him to barely regain consciousness. Damn it, this thing is such a scam. Ma Hongjun looked at Muk with lingering fear and couldn't help but curse. Who could have thought it would actually be highly toxic? Dean, let's throw it away. This thing is completely useless and can easily hurt our teammates by mistake. Ma Hongjun frowned, speaking with a face full of disgust. However, Yu Xiaogong shook his head, a glimmer of wisdom shining in his eyes. I wouldn't say that. Since this thing could poison Ma Hongjun, it means its toxicity is very strong. If controlled well, it can definitely be used to deal with enemies. In terms of attack, it is even stronger than a spirit ancestor. Hearing Yu Xiaogong's explanation, Ma Hongjun's mood instantly improved. Although this thing was a bit ugly and smelled terrible, at least it could be put to use. Xiaogong is right, this thing can be considered a decent combat asset. Flender nodded in agreement. Hearing this, Daimubai's face became even uglier. He had originally thought Fatty's luck was worse, drawing a pet with side effects. As it turned out, it actually had decent attack power, far stronger than his little fish. Little San, it's your turn. Yu Xiaogong turned to look at Tang San, his eyes full of expectation. In his eyes, Tang San was exceptionally talented, so his luck should be somewhat better than Daimubai's and Ma Hongjun's. Alright, teacher. Tang San nodded and immediately picked up the Pokeball, gently pressing the button in the middle. In the next moment, a humanoid figure appeared before everyone. It had a feminine figure, long golden hair, dark skin, and exceptionally thick, protruding lips, looking somewhat terrifying. So ugly. After a few seconds of silence, Ma Hongjun was the first to offer a comment. Daimubai nodded in agreement. This was indeed an eyesore, second only to the furry like Luo Sanpao. At this moment, looking at the jinx in front of him, Tang San's heart sank. Although he didn't know her strength, this appearance was indeed ugly. Could his luck really be this bad? Yu Xiaogong took a step forward, patted Tang San's shoulder, and comforted him, Little San, don't look down on it. Perhaps it has some powerful aspect that you need to discover. Just like Luo Sanpao, although he looks useless, farting is also a unique skill. Hearing this, the corner of Tang San's mouth twitched. Although the power of Luo Sanpao's farts was indeed very strong, and even a spirit saint would be affected, he really didn't want to have such a pet. However, his teacher's words did make some sense. Ugly as it was, what if it turned out to be highly useful? Tang San squatted down and carefully observed Jinx. Just then, Jinx suddenly opened her eyes. Immediately after, she opened her thick lips and let out a sharp cry. Ah! An invisible sound wave rippled out from her mouth, making everyone's eardrums ache. Is this a sound wave attack? Yu Xiaogang hastily covered his ears, but a look of pleasant surprise appeared on his face. This kind of attack method was indeed rare. Tang San immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Although she was a bit ugly, at least she was somewhat useful. After everyone finished inspecting the Pokeballs, Flender cleared his throat and said with a serious expression. Our opponent today is the Elephant Armor Academy. Their captain is Captain Haiyan Li, a level 45 spirit ancestor, and his spirit is the Diamond Mammoth. This spirit is best at defense and strength, especially in terms of defense, which is absolutely top tier. Their team has a total of 3 spirit ancestors, and the other Fa's spirit power levels are not low either. Without a doubt, they are a formidable opponent. After hearing the introduction, everyone's expressions turned solemn. Just the Heaven Do Imperial Academy's second team was already hard to deal with, and the Elephant Armor Academy was one of the top-ranking teams. Aside from their strength, they should also have other trump cards in their hands. Yu Xiaogang took 2 steps forward, his gaze sweeping across everyone as he continued, behind the Elephant Armor Academy is the Elephant Armored Academy. They definitely have Pokeballs in their hands, and might have even used a martial soul enhancement scroll. How are we supposed to fight this? Ma Hongjun glanced at Yu Xiaogang from the corner of his eye and said despondently. At the mention of the martial soul enhancement scroll, a surge of anger rose in his heart, making him wish he could torture Yu Xiaogang all over again. If it weren't for Yu Xiaogang messing things up, he would have already become a true Fire Phoenix Spirit Master. If we want to win this match, I suggest adjusting our active lineup. Yu Xiaogang said with a serious face. Hearing this, Flender turned to look at him and asked with some doubt, how should we adjust? Replace Jingling with Zhu Zuqing, and keep the other members unchanged. Zhu Zuqing. Flender frowned slightly. Both of them were agility attack system spirit masters, but Zhu Zuqing's spirit and spirit power were both superior to Jingling's. This substitution was indeed reasonable. But, substituting in only Zhu Zuqing, a single spirit ancestor, could they really defeat the Elephant Armor Academy? Xiaogang, how about we let Ning Rongrong play instead? That way, we can guarantee a secure victory in this match. Flender suggested. However, Yu Xiaogang shook his head and said firmly, no need. Zhu Zuqing's strength is not weak, and besides, she definitely has a Pokeball gifted by Luzon. Chapter 81, Clash of Pokemon, Onyx and Butterfree. After some time, it was finally Shrek Academy's turn to face Elephant Armor Academy. Soon, the 2 teams entered the arena one after another. With the referee's signal, the match officially began. The 7 members of Elephant Armor Academy marched forward in unison like a moving city wall, pressing down on the Shrek team. Captain Haiyan Li walked at the very front, his spirit power fluctuations is a level 45 spirit ancestor fully unleashed, each of his steps making a dull, heavy thud on the ground. Fatty, it's your turn, Tang San said in a deep voice. Hee, leave it to me. Ma Hongjun smiled smugly, immediately taking out a Pokeball and pressing the button. A flash of white light went by, and Muk appeared limply on the arena stage, emitting a pungent, foul stench from its entire body. What is that thing? It stinks so bad. Are they trying to stink us to death with this thing? The 7 members of Elephant Armor Academy stopped in their tracks and pinched their noses, their faces filled with disgust. Captain Haiyan Li frowned and said coldly, playing tricks. Brothers, charge straight ahead and crush them. Muk, attack them quickly. Ma Hongjun shouted at Muk. However, Muk ignored him completely, instead crawling slowly toward the spectator stands where there was plenty of trash left behind by the audience. Get back here. Ma Hongjun stomped his feet in anxiety. What kind of trash is this? You dare block the way with this? One of the Elephant Armor Academy members wore a disdainful smile and took the opportunity to kick Muk hard. This kick completely enraged Muk. It whipped around, its body squirming violently as a glob of dark purple sludge shot out, accurately splattering across the member's face. The toxin rapidly penetrated his skin. With a miserable shriek, the member collapsed directly to the ground, foaming at the mouth. The entire arena erupted into an uproar. It's poisonous. Captain Haiyan Li's face turned ashen, and he immediately signaled his teammates to drag the poisoned member off the field. He stared intently at the foul-smelling glob of sludge, realizing this thing was far from as simple as it looked. Boss Dai, did you see that? A one-shot instant kill. Ma Hongjun winked at Dai Mubai, looking extremely smug. Dai Mubai's face was dark as he clenched his fists. Why did his wishy-washy only know how to float belly up? The situation took a sharp turn, and a look of determination flashed in Captain Haiyan Li's eyes. The next moment, he pulled a Pokeball from his chest pocket and threw it onto the field. I originally wanted to save this for other teams, but since you're begging for a beating, I'll test it out on you first. Come out, Onyx. White light burst forth, and a giant snake composed entirely of gray rocks crashed onto the ground. It was a full 10 meters long and as thick as a water vat, emitting a suffocating sense of pressure. Just at the moment of its appearance, the entire arena stage shook. Tang San's pupils contracted sharply. This Onyx's size and aura were not inferior to a 10,000-year spirit beast at all. Isn't this a bit too exaggerated? Ma Hongjun said with a look of disbelief. Muk did not back down. Instead, it proactively launched an attack at Onyx, shooting a sludge bomb at Onyx's body. However, the sludge bomb barely did any damage, only leaving a small dark spot on Onyx's rocky body. Onyx, use Iron Tail. Captain Haiyan Li shouted. Onyx's massive body was surprisingly agile. Its tail swept out, smashing into Muk with a whistling wind. Bang! With a loud crash, Muk was whipped flying, tracing an arc before crashing outside the field. It struggled to crawl back up, but surprisingly, it began to crawl leisurely toward the spectator stands again, its foul odor rapidly spreading. The spectators sitting nearby caught the stench and immediately began cursing. Hurry up and recall it. The referee hurriedly shouted at Ma Hongjun. Ma Hongjun looked embarrassed and quickly held up his Pokeball to recall Muck. Meanwhile, Captain Hyan Lee stood behind Onyx and ordered once more, Onyx, Stone Edge. Onyx threw its head back and let out a low hiss, and the ground began to vibrate violently. The next moment, dozens of sharp rocks erupted from the ground, shooting toward the Shrek team like sharp arrows. White Tiger Light Wave. Daimubai spat out a beam of light, barely shattering the stone spikes flying toward him. Tang San relied on the Ghost Shadow perplexing track technique, making his movements erratic and elusive as he narrowly dodged the attack. As for Zhu Zuqing, it went without saying that an attack of this speed could impossibly hit her. However, Ma Hongjun and the others weren't as lucky. Aside from Ma Hongjun and Tai Long barely holding their ground, the other two were directly severely injured. We're going to lose if this continues. Tang San immediately looked at Zhu Zuqing, his tone carrying a hint of urgency. Zhu Zuqing, stop holding back. Zhu Zuqing glanced at Tang San from the corner of her eye, her face remaining entirely expressionless. She naturally knew about the grudge between Lu Zan and Tang Hao, which meant she had no good feelings toward Tang San either. However, she wouldn't intentionally lose the match. A Pokeball appeared out of thin air in her hand. She gently pressed the button and called out softly. Come out, Butterfree. As a white light flashed, a butterfly with purple wings appeared in the air. Although it wasn't as imposing as Onyx, it possessed an elegant grace. It fluttered down, gently landing on Zhu Zuqing's shoulder and affectionately nuzzling her cheek. A butterfly. Captain Hyan Lee was taken aback at first, then said with utter disdain, you're using that to face my Onyx. Facing the mockery, Zhu Zuqing didn't take it to heart. She slowly raised her arm and said softly, Butterfree, use sleep powder on Onyx. Butterfree flapped its wings and flew above Onyx. The next moment, fine golden scales dispersed like a thin mist, silently enveloping the area where Onyx was located. Although Onyx was composed of rock, that didn't prevent it from being put to sleep. Its massive body swayed for a moment before crashing to the ground with a deafening thud. How is this possible? Captain Hyan Lee's eyes widened. Just as he wanted to step forward and check, Butterfree flapped its wings again, sending another wave of scales at him. Right after, the other 5 members of Elephant Armor Academy also inhaled the sleep powder, collapsing limply to the ground one by one. On the massive arena stage, only Zhu Zuqing was left standing. Butterfree flapped its wings and leisurely landed on her fingertip, looking as elegant as ever. At this moment, the entire arena fell into a dead silence. Holy crap, a single butterfly wiped out the entire Elephant Armor Academy. This is too ridiculous. That Onyx looked so fierce, yet it lost just like that. It seems we really have to buy Pokeballs. If you manage to draw a powerful Pokemon, you'll instantly soar to greatness. Landslide-like gasps and cheers erupted from the spectator stands. This match exceeded everyone's expectations. A contest between Spirit Masters had actually evolved into a clash between Pokemon. This made them desire Pokeballs even more. This was a treasure that could enhance a Spirit Master's strength, no worse than a Spirit Bone and much cheaper at that. Daimubai's eyes were filled with jealousy, along with a hint of resentment. In his eyes, Zhu Zuqing must have sold her body to obtain such a powerful Pokemon. Chapter 82, heading to the far north, preparing to capture the Snow Empress. After the match ended, the members of Shrek Academy dispersed, and Tang San walked down the street alone. He had cultivated so painstakingly, yet he was left in the dust by the even younger Zhu Zuqing. If that were all, it would be fine, but a Pokemon Zhu Zuqing had casually brought out could actually decide the outcome of a match. This made all of his hard work look like a joke. Little San, what are you thinking about? Yu Xiaogang walked up to Tang San, patted him on the shoulder, and asked with concern. Teacher, I'm fine. Tang San looked up, forced a faint smile, and asked, Teacher, what do you think of that Butterfree? It looks very weak, but it possesses extremely powerful offensive methods. It can actually put enemies to sleep. I'm afraid even a Spirit King would find it difficult to resist. Yu Xiaogang stroked his chin and changed the subject. However, this kind of thing is not without a solution. As long as one takes precautions beforehand or maintains a sufficient distance, they can avoid being put to sleep. Teacher, you make a lot of sense. Tang San nodded and said with a hint of helplessness, it's a pity my Pokemon is of no use. Little San, don't underestimate your Pokemon. My intuition tells me that it must have some special trick up its sleeve. Yu Xiaogang patted Tang San on the shoulder and said meaningfully. Hearing this, Tang San was stunned for a moment. He hadn't truly tested Jinx's power yet. However, since his teacher said so, there must be a reason for it. Little San, find an opportunity to test it out and see if Jinx has any special abilities. Alright, teacher. Tang San nodded, a hint of anticipation flashing in his eyes. With Shrek Academy's victory, the various teams also realized the importance of the Pokeball, which could even decide the outcome of a match. Inside the lounge of the Blazing Academy. According to the known information, Elephant Armor Academy's Captain Hyan Lee has an Onyx, which can at least contend with an opponent of the Spirit King level. Huo Wushwang looked at his teammates and said with a serious expression, however, even though this Onyx is powerful, Elephant Armor Academy still fell to Shrek Academy. This was all thanks to Zhu Zuqing's Butterfree. As more and more Pokeballs were sold, quite a bit of public information about Pokemon had become widely recognized. Only rare Pokemon like Muck remained virtually unknown to anyone. What's so strange about that? Huo Wu sat on a chair with her arms crossed, sneering, I heard that Zhu Zuqing lives in Mr. Lu's manor, so their relationship is definitely not simple. Before, we always thought Pokeballs were just auxiliary tools. Who would have thought they could actually decide the outcome of a match? Another teammate couldn't help but say. Huo Wushwang shook his head, looking confident. No matter how powerful Pokeballs are, a Spirit Master's own strength is the ultimate foundation. Our Spirit power levels completely crush Shrek Academies. Plus, Huo Wu and I each have a Pokeball, so the odds of victory are still on our side. Previously, Blazing Academy had bought quite a few things, and they were gifted 2 Pokeballs. The Pokemon Huo Wushwang drew was Infernape, and the one Huo Wu drew was Vulpix, both of them had very good luck. Brother, we absolutely cannot let our guard down. Shrek Academy might still be hiding other tricks. Huo Wu raised an eyebrow and said with extra seriousness, Butterfree's sleep powder has indiscriminate coverage over a very large area. We must strike before it can release it. True, when we face Shrek Academy later, that Butterfree will be left to you to deal with. Huo Wushwang's expression turned a bit more solemn. This tournament was completely different from previous ones, with many more uncertain factors. A few days later, in the manor outside the city. This morning, Luzon sat cross-legged on the grass. A warm current slowly circulated through his meridians, merging into his limbs and bones. His circulation of the nine-yang divine art had grown increasingly proficient. After a long time, Luzon suddenly opened his eyes. A sharp light burst from his eyes, vanishing in an instant. Level 79. He gently exhaled a breath of turbid air, his face showing little emotion. For any other spirit master, this speed would be absolutely mind-blowing, but for Luzon, he was even slightly dissatisfied. A moment later, Luzon flipped his palm, and a golden glowing pill appeared in his hand. It was indeed a high-level soul power pill. In his previous 100-plus draws, he had obtained a total of 3 high-level soul power pills. Counting the 2 unused ones from before, he had 5 high-level soul power pills in total. Since he had so many high-level soul power pills on hand, and he was just one step away from level 80, there was no need to save them anymore. I'll break through to level 80 first. Luzon hesitated for a moment, then popped the pill directly into his mouth. The pill dissolved the moment it entered his throat. A massive surge of energy instantly exploded, flooding into all his meridians like a bursting dam. Luzon was well prepared. He circulated the nine-yang divine art at full capacity, beginning to guide this energy. His spirit power climbed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Level 80. Luzon slowly stood up. Feeling the surging power within his body, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. To step across the threshold of a spirit Douluo in his early 20s, he was absolutely the first person to do so. However, he did not let the joy go to his head. Reaching level 80 did not make him a true spirit Douluo yet, he had to absorb his 8th spirit ring before his strength could make a leap forward. For him, the 8th spirit ring definitely had to be at least a 100,000-year-old one. Having undergone ice and fire body tempering, and with his martial god body spirit strengthened several times, his physical body had already reached the level of a super Douluo or above. Therefore, he planned to absorb a spirit ring from a great beast. Right now, there were only 2 choices, the Stardo Great Forest in the far north. The former was more dangerous. After all, the Stardo Great Forest was home to several great beasts, who were currently either in a deep slumber or absorbing the energy of the Sky Dream Iceworm. Once he chose one of them to make a move on, there was a high probability he would have to face several great beasts at the same time, including DTN. Although Luzon was confident in dealing with DTN, he couldn't be sure how much strength Silver Dragon King could still display, so there was a certain chance of things going sideways. Compared to the Stardo Great Forest, the far north was safer, with only 2 great beasts, the Snow Empress and the Ice Empress. To play it safe, Luzon planned to go to the far north first to absorb his 8th spirit ring, and then head to the Stardo Great Forest to hunt for his 9th spirit ring. His spirit was the martial god body, which could barely be considered a body spirit, so he had no specific requirements for the attribute of his spirit ring. Therefore, he could absorb an ice attribute spirit ring. Most importantly, Luzon had 2 master balls in his possession, so he could completely try to capture the Snow Empress. Soon, Luzon made up his mind. He waved to Dragonite, who was circling in the sky, gesturing for it to land. Dragonite's ears twitched, and it immediately dived down, landing steadily in front of Luzon. Fly toward the north. Luzon leapt up, sat on Dragonite's back, and gave the command. Immediately after, Luzon activated the power of the Rabbit Talisman, and an invisible amplifying force enveloped Dragonite's entire body. Under the amplification of the Rabbit Talisman, Dragonite's speed was countless times faster than before, soaring into the sky like a golden meteor. Because the speed was too fast, a white trail was violently torn through the clouds, leaving the sound of sonic booms far behind, only faintly catching up moments later. Chapter 83. Entei appears, the Ice Empress's maiden form. Under the enhancement of the Rabbit Talisman, Dragonite's speed was astonishingly fast, and in no time, Luzon arrived at the far north. Just as he entered this world of ice and snow, a bone-chilling cold rushed over him. Even though Lu Xuan's physical constitution far surpassed those of the same rank, he still felt a trace of chilliness. Without hesitation, he immediately took out 2 Pokeballs. Moltres, Entei, come on out. Along with 2 flashes of white light, Moltres and Entei were both released. Moltres spread its wings and soared into the air, scorching flames swirling around its body, warming the surrounding air until it was cozy and comfortable. Entei was even more domineering, with golden red flames binding its entire body. The moment it landed, it completely melted the snow within dozens of meters around, revealing a patch of scorched earth. Compared to before, the surrounding temperature had risen significantly. Although Lu Xuan's physical constitution was powerful and he did not fear this low temperature, he wasn't going to make himself suffer needlessly. With that, Luzon leapt up, sitting directly on Entei's back, and headed toward the core region of the far north. As for Moltres, it scouted the situation from high up in the sky. Along the way, Luzon encountered many ice attribute spirit beasts. Among these ice attribute spirit beasts, there were 100-year, 1,000-year, and even powerful ones over 10,000-year. But the instant they encountered Entei, they immediately scattered and fled, without exception. Fire and ice countered each other, and Entei's counter against ice attribute spirit beasts was simply too overwhelming. He didn't know how long they had been traveling, but the surrounding temperature grew lower and lower, and the wind and snow grew heavier and heavier. This was already the core region of the far north. Just then, he encountered the first spirit beast that dared to block his path. It was an ice jade scorpion, its entire body an icy blue, its shell as translucent as crystal, and its entire body exuded an extremely dangerous aura. Its body size was not considered large, being less than 2 meters long. But judging from the spirit power fluctuations on its body, this ice jade scorpion was definitely over 10,000 years old. As the overlord species of the far north, the ice jade scorpion possessed the ultimate ice attribute. The higher their cultivation age, the smaller their body size became instead. This 10,000-year ice jade scorpion was already an extremely powerful spirit beast, sufficient to rival a spirit Douluo powerhouse. It did not flee like the other spirit beasts. Instead, it stared at Entei with hostility, raising its front claws high, its stinger flashing with a deep blue light. Even though it knew full well that the opponent was powerful, as a member of the strongest ice attribute species, it would not flee before a battle. Roar. Entei roared angrily at the 10,000-year ice jade scorpion. Its powerful aura pressed down like something tangible, causing the ice jade scorpion's body to tremble violently as it went limp on the ground. Luzon waved his hand, gesturing for Entei not to make a move. He sat quietly on Entei's back, looking into the distance, intending to use this to draw out the ice empress. Before long, a terrifying pressure of a savage beast swept over from the distance. The temperature between heaven and earth plummeted rapidly, as if even the air was about to freeze into ice. Immediately after, a petite figure appeared in the wind and snow. Compared to the 10,000-year ice jade scorpion from just now, its body size was even smaller, only 1.5 meters long. But its body was even more crystal clear, exuding a heart-palpitating coldness, as if a single glance could freeze one's soul. It was precisely one of the 3 great heavenly kings of the far north, the Ice Empress. The Ice Empress did not launch an attack, but her voice was filled with rage. Human, how dare you lay a hand on my clansman? I didn't do anything to it, I merely used it to force you to show yourself. Luzon sat calmly on Entei's back. Facing the Ice Empress, who possessed over 300,000 years of cultivation, he didn't show the slightest panic. With Entei backing him up, a single savage beast posed absolutely no threat. Furthermore, Luzon himself possessed combat power at the titled Douluo level, so he was even less worried about a sudden sneak attack from the Ice Empress. The Ice Empress's gaze lingered on Entei for a moment, a trace of solemnity flashing in her eyes. The strength of this fire attribute spirit beast was unfathomable. Just the aura it released made her feel suppressed, and it was definitely even stronger than the Snow Empress. But what she couldn't understand was why such a powerful spirit beast would obey a human's orders. Human, you have quite the nerve. The Ice Empress sneered, her voice carrying a hint of mockery. Just with you, you also want to absorb this Empress's spirit ring. She possessed over 300,000 years of cultivation. As long as she was unwilling, no one could absorb her spirit ring. If forced to absorb it, the cultivation of over 300,000 years would be enough to blow a spirit master apart. Unless one had twin spirits, an ordinary 100,000-year spirit ring was already the limit of what a spirit master could withstand. Ice Empress, don't you find it tiring to talk like this? Can you transform into human form? Luzon said with a casual look. In his view, a savage beast with a high cultivation like the Ice Empress should naturally possess the ability to transform into human form. Hearing this request, a hint of strangeness flashed in the Ice Empress's eyes. This guy was clearly here to hunt her down, yet he wanted her to transform into human form just to make talking easier. However, she indeed did not like the feeling of looking up to have a conversation. Humph. The Ice Empress snorted coldly, a cluster of emerald green light blooming around her body. After the light dispersed, she transformed into a young girl who looked to be about 14 or 15 years old, her skin as fair as snow, and her facial features so exquisite they didn't seem real. On both sides of her pretty cheeks, there were 4 emerald green magical patterns, and a head of dark green long hair draped behind her back. Stepping barefoot on the snow, she slightly raised her fair chin and said with an arrogant look. Speak, what on earth do you want? It's very simple, I want you to become my 8th spirit ring. As soon as these words were spoken, the Ice Empress's face instantly darkened. This guy was indeed coming for her spirit ring and spirit bone. The spirit power inside her body began to surge, and the surrounding temperature plummeted abruptly, as if she would go berserk at any moment. Don't worry, becoming my 8th spirit ring won't be a loss for you. Luzon changed the subject and said with a serious expression, I have a way to preserve your soul. Once I become a god, you will also be able to gain eternal life. Become a god. The Ice Empress's pupils shrank sharply, and the anger on her face faltered slightly. She had some understanding of divinities. Legends of the ice god circulated in the far north, which was the ultimate belief of all ice attribute spirit beasts. A human actually claimed he could become a god. The Ice Empress carefully sized up Luzon. This person had cultivated to the spirit Douluo realm at such a young age, his talent was indeed outstanding. He could even tame a spirit beast stronger than the Snow Empress, so perhaps he really had a chance to become a god. Why should I believe you? Do you have any other choice? Luzon smiled faintly and spoke frankly, you spirit beasts have to face a heavenly tribulation every 100,000 years. Even if you have the confidence to pass the next heavenly tribulation, what about the one after that? The Ice Empress pursed her lips tightly, the light in her eyes dimming a bit. She had already experienced 3 heavenly tribulations, each one a narrow escape from death, and it would only become more difficult in the future. On what basis do you say you can become a god? You can only take a gamble. Luzon shrugged and said casually, if you win the gamble, you will enter the god realm with me and gain eternal life. If you lose, I will die with you. The Ice Empress fell silent for a long time. In truth, she knew very well that she did not have the right to refuse. If she refused, this person would definitely forcibly plunder her spirit ring and spirit bone, and she was no match for that fire attribute spirit beast. Chapter 84, The First Soul Spirit, Capturing the Snow Girl of the Icy Sky. I can sacrifice myself to you. The Ice Empress finally spoke, her voice carrying a hint of resolve, but I have one condition. Feel free to speak. I haven't thought of it yet, so I'll save it for later. The Ice Empress did not reveal everything. She actually wanted to bring the Snow Empress along with her, but she did not fully trust this man yet. She wanted to see if he truly possessed the potential to become a god. If this guy turned out to be unreliable, she couldn't drag the Snow Empress down with her. Sure, as long as it is within my power, I will do my best. Luzon readily agreed. With this guarantee, the Ice Empress finally made up her mind. In the next instant, the Ice Empress reverted to her original form, and immediately after, an ice emerald light suddenly erupted from all over her body. A vast torrent of life energy surged into Lu Xuan's body like a flood. Sacrifice. At the cost of a spirit beast's life, condensing its lifelong cultivation into the purest energy, sacrificing it all to the spirit master. At the very instant of the sacrifice, the ice and snow of the entire far north began to tremble. The wind and snow in the sky suddenly ceased, replaced by beams of ice emerald light shooting straight up into the heavens. Rumble. The entire ice and snow world was trembling, and this energy storm swept across a radius of 100 miles. Meanwhile, at the summit of a snowy mountain, a beautiful silver-haired woman suddenly appeared out of thin air, looking toward the direction of the energy. The Ice Empress's aura. The Snow Empress murmured softly and immediately flew toward the direction where the energy was coming from. On an open clearing, Lu Xan sat cross-legged, continuously circulating the nine-yang divine art to absorb the Ice Empress's cultivation of over 300,000 years. Level 80, Level 81, Level 82, Level 83, Level 84. Finally, his spirit power stabilized at Level 84, and a blood-red spirit ring completely condensed into form. For an entire day and night, Lu Xan finally finished absorbing all of the Ice Empress's energy. Of course, during the process of absorbing the energy, Lu Xan used the power of the horse talisman to preserve the Ice Empress's soul, keeping her within his 8th spirit ring. This was equivalent to developing a soul spirit in a roundabout way. Next, Lu Xan prepared to absorb the torso spirit bone left behind by the Ice Empress. Once he finished absorbing this spirit bone, his spirit power should be able to increase by another 2 or 3 levels. Just then, a voice as cold as ice and snow echoed between heaven and earth. Human, how dare you kill the Ice Empress? The voice was ethereal and fleeting, like heavenly music, yet it carried a heart-palpitating chill. Lu Xan frowned, having no choice but to halt his plans to absorb the spirit bone and look toward the source of the sound. Amidst the swirling snow, a beautiful figure appeared out of thin air. She looked to be in her early 20s, with snow-white long hair cascading down to her feet like a waterfall. Her sky-blue eyes were ethereal and transparent, as if she could see through everything in the world. Her facial features were so exquisite that she didn't seem mortal. Her skin was as white as jade, and her slender, delicate body was flawless. Barefoot on the snow, she was surrounded by a faint icy mist. Her cold, ethereal temperament complemented this world of ice and snow perfectly. The absolute overlord of the far north, the snow girl of the icy sky. Snow Empress, you finally arrived. Lu Xan was not surprised, he had long expected that this sacrifice would draw the Snow Empress here. After all, with the Ice Empress's cultivation of over 300,000 years, the commotion caused by her sacrifice could not possibly be hidden from her. You know me. The Snow Empress knitted her delicate brows slightly, a trace of surprise flashing in her beautiful eyes. She rarely showed herself to humans, and the number of humans who knew of her existence could be counted on one hand. I've heard a little about you. Lu Xan slowly stood up, without the slightest hint of panic on his face. With the Flame Emperor guarding him, the Snow Empress stood no chance of making a move. Moreover, since the Ice Empress had sacrificed herself voluntarily, the Snow Empress certainly wouldn't attack him directly. After a moment, Lu Xan looked up at the Snow Empress and explained, you don't need to worry about the Ice Empress's safety. She isn't truly dead. What do you mean by that? The Snow Empress asked in a cold voice. Lu Xan did not explain much further. Instead, he directly awakened the Ice Empress within the spirit ring. In the next instant, a petite figure slowly condensed into form. It was indeed the Ice Empress in her soul spirit state. She looked even smaller than before, appearing like a large action figure floating in midair, her beautiful eyes filled with curiosity and excitement. It really succeeded. The Ice Empress checked her own condition, her voice carrying a hint of pleasant surprise. I've actually retained my consciousness, and I can even use my previous abilities. I told you, I wouldn't let you get the short end of the stick. Lu Xan smiled faintly. Seeing that the Ice Empress's soul was completely intact, the chill in the Snow Empress's beautiful eyes gradually dissipated. Snow Empress, why are you here? The Ice Empress floated excitedly in front of the Snow Empress, circling around her. It seems this human is actually of some use. Seeing her friend safe and sound, a faint curve appeared at the corner of the Snow Empress's lips. But soon, she regained her cold expression. Even if you preserved the Ice Empress's soul, it doesn't change the fact that you took her spirit ring. The Snow Empress said coldly. Snow Empress, this was my own choice. The Ice Empress landed on the Snow Empress's shoulder and said with a serious face, this guy has the potential to become a god. I plan to enter the god realm with him. Although there was an element of coercion involved, she naturally wouldn't say that in front of the Snow Empress. It would be too embarrassing. Becoming a god. The Snow Empress raised her delicate brows slightly, her gaze falling back onto Lu Xan. Indeed. Lu Xan nodded and said calmly, I am confident in becoming a god. When the time comes, the Ice Empress's soul will also be able to enter the god realm and achieve eternal life with me. The Snow Empress fell silent for a moment. As the strongest existence in the far north, her dread of the heavenly tribulations was even deeper than the Ice Empress's. She had already survived 6 heavenly tribulations, each one far more perilous than the last. She did not have much confidence in surviving the 7th. By now, the Ice Empress had firmed up her thoughts. Believing that Lu Xan could truly become a god, she immediately urged. Snow Empress, why don't you sacrifice yourself to him too? That way, we can be together forever. The Snow Empress knitted her delicate brows slightly, not refusing immediately. She was indeed considering this possibility. If this man could truly become a god, sacrificing herself would not mean death, but rather gaining eternal life. Furthermore, she and the Ice Empress had accompanied each other for hundreds of thousands of years. If they could continue their companionship in the god realm, it would indeed be the best possible outcome. After weighing her options, the Snow Empress stepped closer. Her beautiful eyes stared into Lu Xuan's, and she said softly, once you break through to level 90, I can sacrifice myself to you. However, Lu Xan simply waved his hand. There's no need for that. I have other plans for my 9th spirit ring. However, you can follow me for now, and I certainly won't mistreat you. Quote. Hearing Lu Xan say this, a rare ripple of emotion stirred in the Snow Empress's heart, leaving her completely speechless. She had taken the initiative to offer herself for sacrifice, yet she was actually rejected. The Ice Empress was stunned for a moment, then looked at the Snow Empress with a mischievous grin, her voice crisp like wind chimes. Snow Empress, I never expected there would be a day when even you get rejected. The Snow Empress glared at her in annoyance, a trace of embarrassment and anger rising in her heart. After a moment, the Snow Empress looked at Luzon with her beautiful eyes and said calmly, I will follow you for a while. I'll have to trouble you to stay in here for now. Luzon took out a master ball and threw it toward the Snow Empress. The Snow Empress did not dodge and was quickly sucked inside. The master ball shook gently twice, and then the capture was successful. Chapter 85, reaching level 90 in one go, the youngest titled Douluo. The Ice Empress floated on Lu Xuan's shoulder in her spirit form, curiously examining the strange object in his hand. What is this? This is called a master ball. It's a type of pokeball that contains a small space inside, allowing a spirit beast to stay and rest within it temporarily. The Ice Empress tilted her head to examine it for a moment, then nodded in satisfaction. Although it was a pity that Snow Empress couldn't become a spirit, this way they could still be together. I'm heading back now. With that, she transformed into a streak of green light and dived back into Lu Xuan's 8th spirit ring, leaving him standing alone in the snow. Luzon didn't delay any further. He sat cross-legged on the ground again, holding the torso spirit bone left behind by the Ice Empress. The spirit bone was a dreamlike ice emerald color throughout, its surface shimmering with a crystalline luster, and the cold it emitted caused the surrounding air to condense into fine frost. Luzon pressed the spirit bone against his chest, and an intensely cold energy instantly surged into his body. That chill was far more violent than he had imagined. The essence of the Ice Empress's 300,000 years of cultivation was concentrated within this spirit bone, something an ordinary spirit Douluo could never withstand. Fortunately, Lu Xuan's physique was astonishing, and having absorbed the Ice Empress's spirit ring, his resistance to the ice attribute had greatly increased. As Luzon continued to absorb this energy, half a day passed before he knew it. At this moment, Luzon suddenly opened his eyes. A flash of cold light flickered deep within his pupils, and a sharp, frigid aura spread out, instantly freezing everything within several dozen meters into solid ice. He looked down at his hands, feeling the spirit power inside him surging once more, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Level 87. In addition to increasing his spirit power by 3 levels, Luzon also gained 2 powerful spirit bone skills. Although Luzon was not an ice attribute spirit master, that did not prevent him from using the ice attribute spirit bone skills, especially with the Ice Empress's assistance. After absorbing the spirit bone, Luzon did not rush to stand up. He took out 3 more high-level soul power pills. He planned to reach level 90 in one go. Saying was doing, Luzon immediately swallowed a high-level soul power pill that emitted a golden halo. After absorbing the medicinal power, his spirit power broke through to level 88. Immediately after, he consumed the other 2 high-level soul power pills one after another, and his spirit power successfully broke through to level 90. Luzon slowly stood up, clenched his fists, and felt the surging spirit power within him that was almost overflowing from his body, a sense of unprecedented satisfaction welling up in his heart. As long as he obtained one more 9th spirit ring, he would be a true titled Douluo. A titled Douluo in his early 20s, it would be very difficult for anyone to break his record for the time being. Currently, Tang San and the others had not yet absorbed any immortal herb, so even if they participated in the god trials, it would be difficult for them to break his record. Next, it's time to consider the 9th spirit ring. Lu Xuan's eyes flickered. There were 2 suitable choices at the moment. One was the Bear Lord, who was very compatible with his martial god body spirit, and the other was DTN, the most powerful spirit beast, bar none. Although Luzon was confident he could deal with DTN, the risk of absorbing his spirit ring was too great. Even though Lu Xuan's physique far exceeded that of an ordinary titled Douluo, it was impossible to forcibly absorb an 800,000-year spirit ring, especially one from a pure-blooded dragon clan. Unless DTN was willing to sacrifice himself voluntarily, it was basically impossible to absorb his spirit ring. But the problem was that DTN shouldered the heavy responsibility of guarding the Stardew Great Forest and would absolutely not sacrifice himself voluntarily. There was only one way. That was to first capture the Silver Dragon King using a Master Ball, and then use that to force DTN to sacrifice himself. This plan carried some risks. However, DTN was crucial to the survival of the Stardew Great Forest. If he became his spirit ring, the Spirit Beast clan would easily be slaughtered in large numbers. In the original story, 2,000 years later, the situation for spirit beasts was already extremely disadvantageous, and from then on, they could only struggle to survive. In Lu Xuan's view, although spirit masters and spirit beasts were naturally opposed, they were inseparable from one another. Once spirit beasts went extinct, spirit masters would also decline as a result. Forget it, I'll take it one step at a time. Luzon shook his head. He didn't intend to hunt for his 9th spirit ring immediately, he would go to the Stardew Great Forest in a few days. Anyway, with the rabbit talisman and dragonite, it wouldn't take much time to travel back and forth to the Stardew Great Forest. Immediately, Luzon took out a Pokeball, released Dragonite, and leapt onto its broad back. Let's go, back to Heaven Do City. Dragonite let out a low roar, flapped its wings violently, and soared into the sky. With the boost from the rabbit talisman, Dragonite's speed instantly skyrocketed, streaking across the sky like a golden meteor. Not long after, Luzon returned to the manor outside Heaven Do City. At this time, Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing were in the manor. When they saw the figure of Dragonite, expressions of surprise and joy appeared on their faces simultaneously. They knew very well that only Luzon could ride on Dragonite's back. As soon as Dragonite landed, Ning Rongrong flew over, hugged Lu Xuan's waist, looked up at him, and said in a tone full of resentment. Where have you been for the past 2 days? You didn't even leave a note when you went out. Do you know how worried Zuqing and I were? Hearing this, Luzon reached out and ruffled Ning Rongrong's hair, saying in a relaxed tone, I went to obtain my 8th spirit ring. 8th spirit ring. Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing exclaimed at the same time, their beautiful eyes widening in shock. You broke through to become a spirit Douluo. The two looked at Luzon in disbelief and said in unison. Only a year had passed, and this guy had already advanced from a spirit emperor to a spirit Douluo. Luzon smiled without saying a word. He stamped his feet slightly, and 8 spirit rings rose and swirled around him one by one. The last 2 spirit rings were both a glaring crimson red, emitting a suffocating and terrifying pressure that was more oppressive than that of an ordinary titled Douluo. Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing stared blankly at the 2 100,000-year spirit rings, unable to speak for a long time. He wasn't even a titled Douluo yet, but he already possessed 2 100,000-year spirit rings. One had to know that many titled Douluo famous across the continent didn't even have a single 100,000-year spirit ring, such as Sword Douluo, Xiao titled Douluo, and so on. After a while, Ning Rongrong finally came back to her senses and asked, "What level are you now?" "Level 90. Luzon said nonchalantly. "Level 90. Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing were already dumbfounded. He had just obtained his 8th spirit ring and already broken through to level 90. This meant that Luzon was only 1 spirit ring away from becoming the youngest titled Douluo in the history of the continent. A titled Douluo in his 20s. If this news got out, it would definitely shake the entire spirit master's world. Zhu Zuqing took a deep breath, trying hard to calm the shock in her heart, and asked, "Then when do you plan to go hunt for your 9th spirit ring?" "In a while. I'll stabilize my cultivation realm first, then make preparations," Luzon said with a calm expression. Hearing this, Ning Rongrong patted her chest and smiled. "I can ask my father and Grandpa Sword to help you. Grandpa Sword is a level 96 super Douluo. With his help, it will definitely be foolproof." "No need. I am confident in myself, there's no need to trouble others." Luzon refused decisively. Although Sword Douluo's strength was good, he couldn't help him deal with the several great fierce beasts, and might even become a burden. Chapter 86, Blazing Academy crushes Shrek, Infernape Vulpix. Over the next few days, Luzon did not go out again, but instead stayed in the manor to stabilize his cultivation realm. During his cultivation, he would let the Ice Empress and Snow Empress out to let them move around. The two were full of curiosity about the Pokemon in the manor, and without needing Luzon to say anything, they had already flown over. On the other side, the preliminary rounds were still ongoing at the Great Spirit Arena. On this day, Shrek Academy encountered Blazing Academy. Blazing Academy was one of the recognized strong teams, with a total of 5 spirit ancestors on the team, and their average spirit power level was far higher than that of Shrek Academy. In the lounge, Yu Xiaogang stood before everyone, his hands behind his back, looking confident as he said, "For this match, replace Huang Yuan with Oscar, the others remain the same." "Teacher, wouldn't that be too risky? The strength of this Blazing Academy far exceeds the previous teams, perhaps we should put Ning Rongrong in instead." Tang San frowned and said. Hearing this, Yu Xiaogang glanced at him and said indifferently, "This is only the preliminary round, we need to hide our strength. Furthermore, with Zhu Zuqing's Butterfree here, winning this match won't be difficult." Once these words were spoken, everyone had different expressions. Tang San's expression was somewhat ugly. He had originally wanted to rely on the boost from Ning Rongrong's 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda, which would have increased their chances of winning. However, since his teacher had already said so, he couldn't easily argue against it. Ning Rongrong didn't really care. Anyway, she didn't have much sense of belonging to Shrek Academy to begin with, and she was happy to be idle if she didn't have to play. After the match started, both teams stepped onto the spirit fighting stage. On Blazing Academy's side, Huo Wushwang and Huo Wu walked to the very front. The two looked at each other and simultaneously took out their Pokeballs, pressing the button in the center. "Come out, Infernape. Come out, Vulpix." Accompanied by 2 flashes of white light, a monkey with a tuft of flame on its head appeared in front of Huo Wushwang. Its whole body was primarily reddish-brown, with white fur growing on its head, chest, lower legs, and feet, while its shoulders, chest, back of hands, and knees had golden spiral-shaped scales. In front of Huo Wu, there was an additional fox with 6 tails. It had reddish-brown fur, brown pupil-less eyes shaped like amber, large pointed ears, and the inner ears were dark brown. It's Pokemon again. In the stands, the audience saw this scene and let out excited exclamations. After these few days of matches, many teams had started using Pokeballs in combat, and there had even appeared a few Pokemon with strength comparable to a Spirit King. Pokeballs were no longer rare items, but important bargaining chips that determined victory or defeat. "Fatty, it's your turn." Seeing this, Tang San immediately looked at Ma Hongjun beside him and said in a deep voice. Hearing this, Ma Hongjun revealed a smug smile on his face and hurriedly took out his Pokeball to release Muck. As soon as that blob of purple sludge appeared, that familiar stench permeated the air, causing the members of Blazing Academy opposite them to frown. "It's this thing again, it really stinks." Huo Wu curled her lips, a flash of disgust in her eyes, and then raised her hand to issue an order to the Vulpix beside her. "Vulpix, fire blast." Vulpix's petite body tensed suddenly, condensing several balls of flames that transformed into a huge, big, shaped flame blast, sweeping toward Muck with scorching heat. Muck didn't even have time to react before it was hit directly in the face by the fire blast. Its purple sludge body instantly became cracked and charred, emitting a sizzling sound, and a burnt stench mixed with the original foul odor rose into the sky. With just one hit, Muck lost its ability to battle and collapsed limply on the stage. So strong. Ma Hongjun's face turned pale, and he hurriedly took out his Pokeball to recall Muck, his heart aching so much that he gasped. Seeing the situation was not good, Tang San turned to look at Zhu Zuqing, his tone carrying a bit of urgency. "Zhu Zuqing, use Butterfree quickly." Zhu Zuqing frowned slightly, hesitated for a moment, but still took out her Pokeball to release Butterfree. The purple butterfly flapped its wings and flew high into the air, its golden scales permeating the air like a thin mist. This move again. A cold smile curled the corners of Huo Wu's lips, as if she had expected this long ago. She saw the 3rd spirit ring at her feet suddenly light up, the spirit power in her body surged suddenly, and a crimson fire ring suddenly expanded with her as the center. Repelling fire ring. The scorching fire waves expanded outwards like ripples, repelling all the sleep powder that Butterfree had sprinkled, and the golden scales had no chance to get near the members of Blazing Academy at all. The sleep powder was completely countered. Seeing this scene, Tang San's expression instantly became extremely ugly. He didn't expect Blazing Academy to have made such thorough preparations, actually countering Butterfree's ultimate move. At this moment, Huo Wushwang didn't give them any time to react, directly issuing an order to Infernape, Flare Blitz. Roar. Infernape let out a sharp screech, the flames around its body suddenly surged several times over, turning into a huge flaming meteor, and charged toward Butterfree at an extremely fast speed. Butterfree tried to dodge this attack, but its speed couldn't compare to Infernape's, and it was hit hard by that flaming meteor. Screech. Butterfree let out a shrill cry, the scales on its wings were burned black, and its body tumbled several times in the air, teetering on the edge of falling. Moreover, a layer of red light indicating a burn status appeared on the surface of its body, evidently having been afflicted with continuous damage. Butterfree. A flash of heartache flickered in Zhu Zuqing's eyes, and she hurriedly took out her Pokeball to recall it. In the spectator stands, Yu Xiaogong's expression was very ugly. In his view, as long as Butterfree was still able to fight, it shouldn't have been recalled. All of this was for the team's victory. Zhu Zuqing, do you have any other Pokeballs? Use them quickly. Tang San, seeing that the situation was unfavorable, hurriedly shouted. Zhu Zuqing glanced at him, her expression cold and indifferent, and she didn't answer. Of course she had another Pokeball, but she didn't want to use it in this match. To her, whether they won this match or not didn't matter, but the cost of the Pokemon getting injured was real. She had already let Butterfree get injured, and she absolutely could not let a second Pokemon take the risk. Seeing Zhu Zuqing remain silent, Tang San's expression sank immediately. He didn't understand. This was clearly a team match, why was Zhu Zuqing willing to watch the team lose rather than give her all? But he didn't have time to think too much, because Blazing Academy had already launched their offensive. Infernape and Vulpix were seen paving the way in front, with Huo Wushwang leading the remaining team members following closely behind, each releasing their spirit abilities to begin a fierce attack. Under the full-scale crushing of Blazing Academy, the Shrek team only lasted less than 3 minutes before their entire line collapsed. Blazing Academy wins. As the match ended, the members of Shrek Academy left the competition venue looking dejected, with only Zhu Zuqing looking indifferent. If all the matches had to rely on her Pokemon, then this team was just too useless. After returning to the lounge, Tang San's expression was extremely gloomy. This was the worst match he had ever lost, and this was only the preliminary round, he hadn't even encountered the truly powerful teams yet. Chapter 87, Tang San absorbs an illusion-type spirit bone. Yu Xiaoging walked into the lounge, his gaze falling upon Tang San, and he walked over quickly. Seeing that he was in low spirits, Yu Xiaoging patted him on the shoulder and said earnestly. Little San, it's just one match. Furthermore, the opponent defeated you by relying on the advantage of external objects, so there is no need to be discouraged. Hearing this, Tang San looked up at his teacher, but a flash of cold light flitted through his eyes. He had previously suggested letting Ning Rongrong take the field. With the amplification of the 9-treasure glazed tile pagoda, the team's overall strength could have increased by at least 40%. Added to the coordination of the two spirit ancestors, Zuqing and Dai Mubai, they wouldn't have lost so miserably. Moreover, Ning Rongrong definitely had even more powerful spirits in her possession. If she were willing to bring them out, let alone defeating Blazing Academy, even achieving a perfect record in the preliminary rounds would not have been impossible. Yet Yu Xiaoging insisted on holding back their strength. And the result? It caused this match to be a complete crushing defeat. If they lost a few more matches, let alone winning the championship, they wouldn't even be able to pass the preliminary rounds, so what would be the use of this hidden trump card? Yu Xiaoging was unnerved by Tang San's gaze and gave a dry cough to hide his embarrassment. Immediately, he clasped his hands behind his back, straightened his posture, and resumed his usual grandmaster demeanor, saying quite confidently. Little San, I arranged this match this way on purpose. His gaze was like a torch, as if he had already seen through everything. To let you see the power of the spirits with your own eyes and realize their importance. Once we find a way to obtain a few stronger spirits later, we will be able to have a plan in mind and deal with things more methodically. Tang San looked at Yu Xiaoging, half believing and half doubting, his brows knitted together. Teacher, this match is lost. If we lose a few more times later, we won't even be able to advance past the preliminary rounds. His voice did not have much emotional fluctuation, but it carried a heavy sense of questioning. Yu Xiaoging was speechless for a moment. He opened his mouth, trying to find a reasonable excuse, but after thinking for a long time, he could not find a suitable one. After all, the facts were right before his eyes. According to the competition format for the preliminary rounds, the Heaven Do City division only had 5 spots for qualification, and there were too many strong teams in this competition. Blazing Academy, Shinfeng Academy, Tianshui Academy, Thunder Academy, and Elephant Armor Academy. None of them were easy to deal with, and furthermore, many teams had purchased Pokeballs, greatly increasing their strength. Rest assured, we will definitely be able to advance. Yu Xiaoging said, biting the bullet. Tang San looked at him in silence, the sliver of trust he had for his teacher collapsing bit by bit in his heart. Back in Nuoding City, he always felt that Yu Xiaoging knew everything. But ever since arriving in Heaven Do City, every decision the teacher made seemed to be leading the team into a pit. First, he wasted a large sum of funds to purchase the demonization pill, turning Luo Sanpao into a walking biological weapon. Yet he refused to admit his mistake at all, and even continued to make mistakes, spending money again to buy 2 inferior martial soul enhancement scrolls, which caused the power of Luo Sanpao's farts to greatly increase. These things could be overlooked. Now, at this critical moment, Yu Xiaogong's tactical arrangements were also unreliable, and he still refused to admit his mistakes. This made the image of his teacher in his heart shatter bit by bit. Tang San took a deep breath and did not pursue the matter further. He knew clearly in his heart that expecting his teacher to come up with any effective countermeasures was no longer realistic. Although Yu Xiaoging was unreliable, he was still his teacher after all, and now was not the time to have a falling out. After a moment of silence, he took something out of his spirit tool. That was a palm-sized head spirit bone. The entire piece emitted a pale gray luster, with strange, faint patterns flowing across its surface, radiating a deep fluctuation of mental force. He had obtained this spirit bone outside the city a few days ago. At that time, Xin Yan from Kanghui Academy had secretly followed him, wanting to kill him, but was counter-killed by him using the Yama's invitation. This spirit bone was picked up from Xin Yan's corpse. It was an illusion-type head spirit bone, with an age of over 10,000 years, and its quality was not low. Tang San stared at the spirit bone in his hand, a hint of hesitation flashing in his eyes. With his current level 38 spirit power, absorbing this 10,000-year spirit bone would very likely allow him to break through to level 40. But the problem was that the attributes of this spirit bone leaned towards illusions and did not fit him very well. Yu Xiaogang saw Tang San's hesitation and leaned over to examine it for a while. A while later, he stroked his chin and said with a serious face. This 10,000-year spirit bone belongs to the gemstone type and is of decent quality. It should come with an illusion-type skill. Although its preciousness cannot compare to a mental head bone, it is not far off. In his view, any head spirit bone over 10,000 years old was already very rare. Although the champion's reward for the Spirit Master competition was a spirit bone, it might not necessarily be a head spirit bone. Even taking a step back, even if there were a head spirit bone, its quality might not necessarily surpass this 10,000-year spirit bone. Tang San was silent for a moment. Right now, even passing the preliminary rounds was a problem, let alone winning the championship. He had to improve his strength as quickly as possible to have any hope of winning consecutive matches in the subsequent competition and ultimately advancing smoothly. Only by winning the championship could he obtain the championship reward, otherwise, everything else was just empty talk. If he successfully won the championship, he could still choose a spirit bone for a different body part. Teacher, I am prepared to absorb this spirit bone. Tang San said in a slightly heavy tone. Hearing this, Yu Xiaogang reached out and patted Tang San on the shoulder, saying, a wise choice. After you absorb this spirit bone, you should be able to obtain an illusion skill, which will fit perfectly with your blue-silver grass. Tang San sat cross-legged on the ground, then placed the spirit bone against his forehead, slowly closed his eyes, and began to fuse with this spirit bone. ... Meanwhile, several teams arrived outside Lu Xuan's manor. They were the Wangdu team, Elephant Armor Academy, and Tianshui Academy respectively. Yu Tianeng stood at the very front, dressed in a crisp blue martial suit, his spirit and energy much more abundant than a few months ago. He had recently gained quite a lot of insight into practicing the Yang 5 Thunder method, and his control over the lightning element was becoming increasingly proficient. He could even use the lightning element to accelerate his movement, with speed far exceeding the past. However, the spirit power consumption was relatively high, and he could not lose his virginity, but in order to become stronger, this price was not worth mentioning at all. Standing behind Yu Tianeng were 6 people, who were members of the Wangdu team. Beside the Wangdu team was the sect master of the Elephant Armored Academy, Hu Yanzhen, and standing behind him were Captain Haiyan Li and others. Hu Yanzhen's physique was as burly as a small mountain, and he exuded a powerful aura all over his body. Since absorbing the high-level soul power pill, he had broken through to the titled Douluo realm, and had absorbed a 70,000-year spirit ring, becoming a level 91 titled Douluo. On the other side were the 7 female students from Tianshui Academy. Shui Binger stood at the very front, wearing an ice blue long dress that outlined her slender figure, her features as exquisite as if carved from ice and snow, and she exuded a cold yet charming temperament. She and her 6 teammates all looked towards the manor, craning their necks in anticipation. In the past few days, many powerful spirits had already appeared in the preliminary rounds, even enough to turn the tide of battle. Precisely because of this, they had deeply realized the importance of the spirits. Chapter 88, The Inflated Hu Yanzhen, the Water-type Divine Beast, and Tianshui Academy. Half an hour later, Lu Zan finally emerged from the room. He waved his hand, utilizing the telekinesis of the chicken talisman to open the gate. Mr. Lu. Yu Tianeng was the first to rush forward, his figure like a blue bolt of lightning, quickly arriving before Lu Zan. Seeing this, everyone's faces revealed expressions of shock. This kid actually possesses such terrifying speed. Hu Yanzhen's pupils constricted, this speed already surpassed most spirit kings, and even ordinary spirit emperors might not necessarily have such explosive speed. Mr. Lu, I would like to buy 3 Pokeballs. Yu Tianeng bowed slightly, his tone much more respectful than before. Previously, he had been somewhat unconvinced by Lu Zan, as they were of similar age, and he might even be a little older. But now, that bit of arrogance in his heart had long since been worn away. A spirit saint expert in his early 20s, possessing so many precious items, that even his second grandfather had to show respect. Lu Zan took the black card handed over by Yu Tianeng and produced 3 Pokeballs out of thin air, tossing them over. Thank you. Yu Tianeng hurriedly caught the Pokeballs, turned, and gave one each to Du Guyan and Yi Lingling, keeping one for himself. This money was not paid by him alone, but pooled together by the 3 of them. Although Yu Tianeng had the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon family behind him, he didn't have much money on hand, and buying 1 Pokeball was already his limit. Du Guyan took the Pokeball, subconsciously glanced at Lu Zan, then looked at the Snow Empress and Ice Empress not far away, a trace of disappointment flashing in her eyes. Yi Lingling didn't react much, simply putting away the Pokeball on her own. Although she had a slight favorable impression of Lu Zan had no interest in her, unless she shamelessly stayed behind. As Yu Tianeng retreated to the side, Shui Binger stepped forward. Her steps were light, her bearing dignified, she walked up to Lu Zan and bowed slightly, her voice cold yet melodious. Mr. Lu, we would like to buy 3 Pokeballs. Shui Binger's beautiful eyes examined Lu Zan, curiosity flickering within them. Lu Zan was not much older than her, yet he was already a figure famous throughout the continent, someone even Spirit Hall had to fear a little. Regarding this, Lu Xuan's expression remained calm as he turned and handed over the 3 Pokeballs. Thank you. Shui Binger took the Pokeballs, a faint curve appearing at the corners of her mouth, and after thanking him, she retreated to the side. Finally, Hu Yanzhen strode forward, intentionally releasing a bit of his spirit power fluctuations, carrying an air of intimidation. Lu Zan, I want a few powerful spirits, at least capable of dealing with a spirit emperor. His tone was overbearing, leaving absolutely no room for negotiation, as if this were an order rather than a request. Ever since his spirit power broke through to level 90, Hu Yanzhen's confidence had inflated significantly. He felt that he had already stepped into the rank of titled Douluo and could be considered a prominent figure on the continent. Even if Lu Zan possessed spirits comparable to a 100,000-year spirit beast, he was confident that he could subdue him before he released his spirits. Lu Zan glanced at him and said indifferently, that depends on your luck. Hearing this, Hu Yanzhen's face revealed an expression of dissatisfaction, and he said coldly, I am not consulting with you, even if you don't want to sell, you must sell. Oh. Just because you've just broken through to the titled Douluo rank, you dare to speak to me like that. Lu Zan raised an eyebrow, a cold sneer curving his lips. The next moment, 8 spirit rings spiraled up from his feet in succession. Yellow, purple, purple, black, 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 red, red. A full 8 spirit rings, the last 2 emitting a blinding scarlet light. The pressure, intense to the point of being almost tangible, shrouded the entire area like a mountain. The air suddenly became incredibly heavy, as if even breathing became difficult. The arrogance on Hu Yanzhen's face instantly froze, his pupils contracted sharply, and his face revealed an expression of disbelief. 2 100,000-year spirit rings. Although he had stepped into the titled Douluo realm, he didn't even have a single 100,000-year spirit ring, yet Lu Zan, a mere spirit Douluo, possessed 2 100,000-year spirit rings. Especially the last 100,000-year spirit ring, the pressure it emitted was simply chilling. Although Lu Zan had not yet obtained his 9th spirit ring, his spirit power was at level 90, and combined with the 2 100,000-year spirit rings, his aura far exceeded that of an ordinary titled Douluo. Hu Yanzhen broke out in a cold sweat, and the arrogant aura from just a moment ago vanished without a trace. Seeing this, Yu Tianeng, Shui Binger, and the others were filled with shock in their eyes. They stared at Lu Zan, dumbfounded. He was clearly only in his early 20s, about their age, yet he was already a spirit Douluo expert. And he possessed 2 100,000-year spirit rings. Compared to Lu Zan, what face did they have to call themselves geniuses? Mr. Lu, I was the one who offended you just now, I will buy 5 Pokeballs. Hu Yanzhen felt extremely embarrassed, he had just made a harsh threat, and the very next second he was slapped in the face. How could he establish dignity in front of his son like this? He remembered that Lu Zan was still a spirit saint a few months ago. He hadn't expected him to break through to spirit Douluo so quickly, and not just an ordinary spirit Douluo, as his aura was already approaching that of a titled Douluo. This rate of improvement was simply shocking. However, upon second thought, Lu Zan possessed so many treasures, how could he not use them on himself? 5 times the price. Lu Zan said in an unquestionable tone. Hearing this price, the corners of Hu Yanzhen's mouth twitched. 5 Pokeballs were originally 500,000 gold coins, 5 times that was 2.5 million. That arrogant sentence he had just uttered directly cost him an extra 2 million. But right now, he had no other choice. His attitude just now had already offended Lu Zan. If he tried to haggle again, he might not even have the chance to buy them at all. Very well. Hu Yanzhen gritted his teeth and swallowed his pride, having no choice but to take out a black card and hand it over. Lu Zan accepted the money and casually tossed 5 Pokeballs over. After getting the Pokeballs, Hu Yanzhen didn't dare to stay for even a second longer, immediately taking Captain Haiyan Li and the others and turning to leave. A dignified titled Douluo, yet he could only flee in a sorry state. Mr. Lu, the 3 committee members asked me to convey that they would very much welcome you to visit Heaven Do Imperial Academy again. Yu Tianeng cupped his hands, his tone even more respectful. Lu Zan nodded slightly, not saying much else. Then we shall take our leave. Seeing that Lu Zan had no interest, Yu Tianeng did not continue to persuade him, instead taking his team members and leaving. Only the 7 members of Tianshui Academy remained in place and did not leave. Shui Binger led her sisters to gather by the lake, their eyes shining as they stared at Suicune. That majestic and elegant figure, those manes flowing with blue radiance, appeared exceptionally charming under the sunlight. So beautiful. Shui Binger crouched by the lake, cautiously reaching out a hand, wanting to touch it, but then pulled it back, fearing to disturb this water-type divine beast. Suicune seemed to tilt its head slightly to look at them, then gently flicked its tail, continuing to lie there and bask in the sun. Tianshui Academy had always only recruited female spirit masters of the ice and water elements, and a water-type divine beast like Suicune had a natural attraction for them. Chapter 89, Tang San's Jinx vs. Feng Xiaodian's Pidgeot. 2 days later, Shrek Academy faced off against Shenfeng Academy. Yesterday, Kanghui Academy had been instantly defeated by Butterfree's sleep powder. However, Shenfeng Academy's strength was far superior to Kanghui Academy's, and they were widely recognized as the strongest team in the Heaven Do City qualifiers. Shenfeng Academy had swept through the competition, having never lost a single match except for the one they intentionally threw against Blazing Academy. For this match, Ning Rongrong will replace Zhangju. In the Shrek Academy lounge, Yu Xiaogang stood with his hands behind his back, his gaze sweeping over everyone. Once you step onto the stage, every single one of you must give it your all. Yu Xiaogang's gaze fell upon Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing, his tone growing a bit heavier. After all, you are members of Shrek Academy. This is your collective glory. Ning Rongrong sneered, exposing him. Collective glory, more like the empty fame you desire, isn't it? Faced with her skepticism, Yu Xiaogang immediately straightened his posture and said righteously, I am doing this for the sake of the team. Do not measure the stature of a gentleman by the yardstick of a small mind. TCH. Ning Rongrong rolled her eyes, too lazy to waste any more breath on him. Yu Xiaogang's face darkened, but he couldn't easily lash out. After all, Ning Rongrong was crucial to the team, so he could only force down his anger. A moment later, a staff member came to notify them to enter the arena. Let's go. Dai Mubai took a deep breath and was the first to walk out of the lounge. The others followed closely behind, stepping onto the passage leading to the arena stage. The spectator stands were already packed to capacity, with cheers and shouts rising and falling, buzzing in everyone's ears. As soon as Feng Xiaodian led the Shenfeng team onto the stage, the cheers erupted once again. Seeing Tang San and the others step up, he was in no hurry to make a move, a playful smile playing on the corner of his lips. I'll give you a chance. You release your Pokemon first. Although Shrek Academy was quite strong, Feng Xiaodian was even more confident in his own strength. Tang San frowned slightly. Although the opponent was arrogant, it was undeniable that he indeed had the right to be proud. The average spirit power rank of the Shenfeng team was much higher than theirs, and Feng Xiaodian was at rank 49, just one step away from entering the Spirit King realm. If they were to clash directly with spirit power, they would have absolutely no chance of winning. Tang San did not have Zhu Zuqing release Butterfree. After all, Butterfree had already appeared many times and was easily targeted by the Shenfeng team. Moreover, the Shenfeng team specialized in the wind element, which perfectly countered Butterfree's sleep powder. I'll do it. Tang San decisively took out a Pokeball and pressed the button. A flash of white light burst out, and Jinx appeared on the stage. Her long blonde hair, dark skin, and unusually thick, protruding lips made her as hard to look at as ever. The moment Jinx appeared, a wave of uncontrollable laughter erupted from the Shenfeng team's side. Holy crap, what on earth is that? Isn't this Pokemon a bit too bizarre looking? Is this meant to be a psychological attack on us? Feng Xiaodian also couldn't help but laugh out loud, shaking his head, clearly not taking this Pokemon seriously. Tang San's face darkened, and he immediately yelled, Jinx, attack. Jinx's body blurred. Her speed was much faster than expected as she instantly rushed in front of a Shenfeng Academy team member. Her right fist condensed a thick layer of frost, carrying a bone-chilling cold as it slammed hard against the opponent's chest. Boom. That team member had absolutely no time to react and was sent flying. Upon landing, he was already covered in a thin layer of ice, his limbs stiff and unable to move. The entire arena instantly fell silent for a brief moment. The smile on Feng Xiaodian's face suddenly froze, his expression gradually turning serious. Interesting. Putting away his dismissive attitude, he immediately took out a Pokeball and decisively pressed the button. Come out, Pidgeot. White light burst forth as a massive avian Pokemon spread its wings and soared into the air. It was primarily brown and cream-colored, with 3 long red feathers atop its head and a fan-shaped tail of alternating red and yellow. With a wingspan of a full 3 meters, it looked incredibly majestic. Pidgeot, use wing attack. Pidgeot let out a clear, sharp cry, suddenly tucking its wings as it dived down like an arrow, slamming fiercely toward Jinx with a fierce howling wind. Jinx tried to dodge, but Pidgeot's speed was too fast, giving her no time to evade. Bang! With a dull thud, Jinx was knocked back several meters, her feet plowing 2 shallow ruts into the stage. No. Tang San's heart tightened as he watched, and he couldn't help but cry out. Perhaps sensing her master's concern, Jinx lifted her head from the ground, her half-closed eyes suddenly lighting up. An invisible wave of telekinetic energy erupted from her body, surging toward Pidgeot like a tide. Psychic. Pidgeot's body suddenly froze, as if its wings were gripped by an invisible giant hand. It let out a painful cry, then lost its balance and crashed heavily onto the stage. What kind of ability is this? Feng Xiaodian's pupils contracted sharply, and he hurriedly stepped forward to check on Pidgeot's condition. Right at that moment, Jinx did not halt her offensive. Raising her hands high, the temperature of the surrounding air plummeted rapidly, and fine ice crystals began to condense around her. It was Jinx's ultimate move, Blizzard. Jinx thrust her hands forward, and a freezing blizzard swept out like a white tide, carrying a bone-chilling cold as it blanketed the sky and rushed toward the members of Shenfeng Academy. Feng Xiaodian's face changed drastically. Feng Xiaodian's face changed drastically. Reacting with extreme speed, he immediately condensed a wall of wind in an attempt to block it. However, as the blizzard swept through, 2 members of Shenfeng Academy were still frozen solid, unable to move. Out of the original 7-member team, only 4 were left able to move in the blink of an eye. Feng Xiaodian's face darkened completely. He hadn't expected Shrek Academy to have such a trump card hidden up their sleeve, much less that this somewhat creepy-looking Pokemon actually possessed such powerful ice-type abilities. Feng Xiaodian, you should just admit defeat. Tang San said with a smug look. He hadn't expected Jinx to be this strong either. Fortunately, he hadn't given up on training her and had spent plenty of time bonding with her. You want me to admit defeat? In your dreams. Feng Xiaodian sneered, looking down at Pidgeot, who had crashed onto the ground. At this moment, Pidgeot stood up from the ground, then suddenly unfurled its wings as a wild storm erupted from its body. Use Hurricane. Under Feng Xiaodian's command, Pidgeot violently flapped its wings, and a fierce gale swept across the arena. With a howling wind, it directly blew away the blizzard Jinx had released. Not only that, but the gale also carried strange energy fluctuations, causing Jinx's consciousness to grow muddled. She fell into a state of confusion. Now's the time. A sharp gleam flashed in Feng Xiaodian's eyes, and he ordered once more, Pidgeot, quick attack. Pidgeot's body transformed into a white streak of light, diving down with lightning speed and striking Jinx with absolute precision. Chapter 90. Zhu Zuqing's Wabafei, the shameless Yu Xiaogang. Boom. The force of this strike was immense. Coupled with Jinx's inability to dodge, she was sent flying, tracing an arc through the air and landing precisely in the spectator stands. She happened to land right into the arms of a middle-aged man. Before he could react, a pitch-black face was thrust right in front of him, giving him a massive fright. Ah! The middle-aged man shrieked, instantly springing to his feet. His legs went weak, and he nearly wet himself on the spot. The surrounding spectators doubled over with laughter. Ha ha ha, what on earth is that? Being ugly isn't your fault, but coming out to scare people is definitely wrong. Thankfully it didn't land on me, or my poor heart wouldn't have been able to take it. The referee looked at Tang San with a somewhat displeased expression. He hadn't expected the Shrek team to have so many bizarre Pokemon. He said testily, hurry up and recall it. Tang San looked extremely embarrassed and quickly took out a Pokeball to recall Jinx. Then, he turned his gaze to Ning Rongrong and said solemnly, Ning Rongrong, it's all up to you now. The opponent's Pokemon was skilled in Gale Force attacks, so Zhu Zuqing's Butterfree would find it difficult to be of much use. Right now, they could only count on Ning Rongrong. Hearing this, Ning Rongrong thought for a moment and unhurriedly retrieved a Pokeball. Psyduck, come on out. With a flash of white light, a dim-witted yellow duck appeared on the tournament stage. It held its head with both hands, tilted its head, and looked around blankly, still appearing completely dazed. Psyduck, use the skill Disable. As Ning Rongrong gave the command, the blankness in Psyduck's eyes instantly vanished, replaced by a layer of light blue light. An invisible confusion instantly locked onto Pidgeot, who was preparing to launch an attack in midair. Pidgeot's body suddenly froze in midair, controlled once again by the invisible force. Its wings couldn't flap, and it couldn't even make a sound. Psyduck, use confusion. Pidgeot's body was enveloped by an invisible force, sending it flying straight off the tournament stage. It traced an arc and slammed heavily onto the ground below. Pidgeot. Feng Xiaodian's expression changed dramatically, and he quickly ran over to check. Pidgeot struggled to stand, but found its entire body aching. The fall just now had left it with significant injuries, rendering it unable to continue fighting. Feng Xiaodian's face looked extremely grim. Now, only he and 3 other team members remained on the field, while the 7 from Shrek Academy were almost completely unscathed. If they continued to hold back, they might actually lose this match. He took a deep breath, and wind elements began to gather between his palms. Since their Pokemon couldn't compete, he would crush them with spirit power. The wind elements between his hands rapidly compressed and spun, forming a high-speed, rotating cyan sphere. I originally planned to save this for the finals, but now I'll test it out on you. A trace of ruthlessness flashed in Feng Xiaodian's eyes, and he violently threw the energy ball in his hand. The energy ball flew from his hand, tracing an arc in the air before instantly expanding into a spiral wind blade with a radius of a full 3 meters, carrying a momentum that could crush anything. Mubai, block it quickly. Tang San shouted urgently. Hearing this, Dai Mubai gritted his teeth and stepped directly in front of everyone. First spirit ability, White Tiger Barrier. A white barrier of light enveloped him, trying to withstand the spiral wind blade. However, the moment they collided, the barrier let out an ear-piercing cracking sound and shattered instantly. Boom. Dai Mubai was sent flying. A deep, bone-deep wound was left on his chest, blood spurting out as he crashed heavily onto the edge of the tournament stage, instantly losing his ability to fight. Boss Dai. Oscar cried out in alarm and quickly ran over, stuffing a big recovery sausage into his mouth. At this moment, Zhu Zuqing, who had been silent all this time, finally moved. She took out a Pokeball and released an entirely blue, ellipsoid-shaped Pokemon, none other than Wobbuffet. However, this Wobbuffet was no match for Lu Xuan's Wobbuffet, as it could not automatically distinguish enemy attacks. Wobbuffet, Mirror Coat. Zhu Zuqing skillfully issued the command. Wobbuffet. Wobbuffet cried out, crossing its arms in front of its chest as the spiral wind blade came howling, crashing right into it. However, the expected blowback did not happen. Wobbuffet's body leaned back slightly, as if swallowing all of that violent power. Then, its body suddenly surged forward. Double reflection. The next moment, the spiral wind blade, now at double its original power, returned along its original path, its diameter exceeding 6 meters. This strike had already reached the level of a Spirit Emperor, and Feng Xiaodian had absolutely no way to block it. At this critical juncture, the referee reacted extremely quickly, flashing forward to block the attack in front of Feng Xiaodian and his teammates, forcibly stopping the move. However, he also sustained significant injuries. Since the referee had intervened, this match was naturally won by Shrek Academy. Seeing Wobbuffet show off such incredible power, Zhu Zuqing walked forward, crouched down, and hugged Wobbuffet, a rare smile appearing on her face. Wobbuffet, thank you for your hard work. Wobbuffet. Wobbuffet placed its right hand on its head, looking like it was saluting, appearing extremely cute and silly. Tang San looked at the Wobbuffet in Zhu Zuqing's arms, his eyes filled with envy and jealousy. Why did Zhu Zuqing get to have such a powerful Pokemon? Dai Mubai was helped up by Ma Hongjun. Clutching the wound on his chest, he looked at Zhu Zuqing with a complicated expression. As she held Wobbuffet, her expression was so gentle that she seemed like a completely different person. As expected, she had long been in cahoots with Lu Zhan. Otherwise, why would Lu Zhan give her such a precious Pokemon? Dai Mubai clenched his fists, his heart filled with resentment. After the match ended, everyone returned to the lounge. A rare, satisfied smile appeared on Yu Xiaogong's face as he strode over to Zhu Zuqing. Zhu Zuqing, you performed well this time. Especially that Pokemon. To actually be able to reflect attacks makes it an excellent trump card. Zhu Zuqing didn't even spare him a glance, sitting down on a chair of her own accord. Yu Xiaogong's mouth twitched, and he shifted the topic, saying, however, considering that Little San is the core of the team, I suggest you temporarily hand that Pokemon over to Little San to use. Only in Little San's hands can this Pokemon's potential be maximized. This will benefit the entire team. Hearing this, Tang San's eyes instantly lit up. If he could obtain that Pokemon, the team's overall strength would surely soar, and even winning the championship wouldn't be difficult. However, Zhu Zuqing looked at the two of them as if they were fools, and left the lounge without saying a word. Some people's thick skin is truly an eye-opener. Ning Rongrong looked at Yu Xiaogong with utter disdain, mocking, ugly and untalented, yet you sure have beautiful dreams. With those words, she also left the lounge. Yu Xiaogong's face turned livid. He was doing this for the sake of the team, yet they actually questioned his fearless wisdom. Chapter 91, heading to the Stardew Great Forest, interrogating the Sky Azure Bull Python. That morning, under the morning care of Ning Rongrong, Lu Zhan woke up. Ning Rongrong lay by the bedside, her long, jet-black hair cascading loosely, a hint of sleepiness still lingering on her delicate face. Awake. Ning Rongrong looked up at Lu Zhan, her voice soft and sweet. Zuqing has gone to prepare breakfast, you can sleep for a little longer. No need. Lu Zhan stretched, ruffled Ning Rongrong's hair, and then quickly got dressed. He had rested for some time, and his realm was basically stabilized. It was time to go to the Stardo Great Forest. Most importantly, he had drawn a divine beast even more powerful than Suicune and Entei. Even if he truly encountered the Silver Dragon King, he would have no fear at all. By the time he arrived in the living room, Zhu Zuqing had already prepared breakfast. At first, Zhu Zuqing didn't know how to cook, but to stay, she had specially learned how. After breakfast, Lu Zan looked at Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing, saying softly, I am planning to go to the Stardo Great Forest to obtain my 9th spirit ring. Hearing this, the two were stunned. They knew Lu Zan had already cultivated to level 90, as long as he absorbed one more spirit ring, he could become a titled Douluo. You're going alone, wouldn't that be too dangerous? Ning Rongrong looked up at Lu Zan, her tone full of worry. Rest assured, I have absolute certainty, there won't be any danger. Lu Zan smiled faintly. Alright then. Ning Rongrong nodded with slight resignation. She knew Lu Zan had many hidden cards and didn't need her help at all. Afterward, Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing accompanied Lu Zan outside. Dragonite, accompany me to a place. Lu Zan waved at Dragonite. Hearing the command, Dragonite, who was not far away, immediately flew over. Its wings stirred up a gust of wind, and after landing, it quickly bent its body, crouching in front of Lu Zan. It affectionately rubbed against Lu Xuan's arm, emitting a joyful low hum. Lu Zan vaulted onto Dragonite's broad back and looked down at the two standing at the door, a smile curving the corner of his mouth. Wait for me to return. As soon as he finished speaking, the power of the rabbit talisman was quietly activated, and an invisible force of enhancement covered Dragonite's entire body. Dragonite's wings flapped violently, turning into a golden meteor that shot into the sky, disappearing into the clouds in the blink of an eye, leaving only a long white trail. Ning Rongrong looked up at the empty sky, her lips slightly pressed together, whispering, a 20-year-old titled Douluo. Zhu Zuqing stood beside her, saying softly, we have fallen too far behind. Indeed. Ning Rongrong took a deep breath, a flash of firm light in her eyes, and said with extra seriousness, we must work hard to cultivate and try our best to catch up to his footsteps. The two exchanged glances, both seeing the same determination in each other's eyes. They had only just achieved their breakthrough to Spirit Ancestor not long ago, yet Lu Zan was already a quasi-titled Douluo. If they didn't work twice as hard, they would likely only be able to watch his back from afar for the rest of their lives. From today on, they had to cultivate even harder than before. 10+ minutes later, Lu Zan had already arrived above the Stardo Great Forest riding Dragonite. Although Lu Zan knew that DTN and other vicious beasts were hiding in the core area, he didn't know the specific location and could only fly toward the core area first. Soon, a huge lake came into view. The lake surface was clear as a mirror, reflecting the azure sky and white clouds, like a gemstone embedded in the green earth. The air in this area was fresher, carrying a dampness of water vapor that was refreshing to the heart and lungs. On the open ground by the lake sat a huge ape. Its body was covered in jet black fur, its muscles knotted like mountain ranges, just sitting there, it looked like a small hill. A 100,000-year spirit beast, the Titan giant ape. Lu Zan glanced at it without any thought of hunting it. As a strength-type spirit beast, the Titan giant ape was indeed very suitable to become his spirit ring, but the age was a bit too low. Nowadays, he didn't look down upon ordinary 100,000-year spirit rings. Just then, the calm lake surface suddenly rippled greatly. A ferocious bull head slowly rose from the lake water, with a diameter of at least over 4 meters, its two eyes shining like two lanterns. Following that, a body as thick and long as a python emerged, entirely black-green, its scales shimmering with a cold, eerie light under the sunlight. A 100,000-year spirit beast, the Sky Azure Bull Python. It raised its head, its turbid vertical pupils lock onto the Dragonite in the air, a flash of doubt in its eyes. Since when did the Stardo Great Forest have this type of dragon clan? This fat body shape didn't look like a Dragon Clan member at all, it completely lacked the sense of power and oppression that a Dragon Clan member should have. However, this yellow fat dragon's speed was too fast, before it could react, the other party had already flown right into its face. This was a dragon flying right into one's face. Suddenly, the Sky Azure Bull Python noticed Lu Zan on Dragonite's back, and the doubt in its eyes deepened a bit. The Dragon Clan had always been arrogant, how could it be willing to be ridden on its back by a human? What was the origin of this human? Dragonite slowly descended, landing on an open patch of grass, folding its wings. Lu Zan sat on Dragonite's back, looking at the two 100,000-year spirit beasts in front of him with a calm face, without a trace of nervousness. Roar. The Titan giant ape let out a muffled low roar, its feet stomping hard on the ground, rushing over like a moving mountain, the ground trembled slightly under its footsteps. It wanted to use its aura to intimidate this uninvited guest. Ming, stop. The Sky Azure Bull Python's voice came from the lake, low but unquestionable. The Titan giant ape paused, stopping a few meters in front of Lu Zan, its copper bell-like eyes staring fixedly at him, but it didn't take another step forward. The Sky Azure Bull Python's massive body slowly swam to the bank, looking down at Lu Zan from a height, saying in a muffled voice, human, what are you doing coming to the Stardo Great Forest? It could perceive that this human was far from as simple as he appeared on the surface. Although he looked young, the spirit power fluctuation he was emitting was likely close to the titled Douluo level, perhaps he was here to obtain his 9th spirit ring. Most importantly, this person was able to subdue a Dragon Clan member, he was definitely not simple. Moreover, the Sky Azure Bull Python did not feel any hostility from Lu Zan, he probably wasn't here to hunt them. Lu Zan looked up at the Sky Azure Bull Python, saying in a flat tone, I want to know where the spirit beasts over 200,000 years old are. Hearing this, the Sky Azure Bull Python's expression changed suddenly, its eyes full of shock. Spirit beasts over 200,000 years old. Could this guy be planning to hunt a vicious beast? Human, do you know what you are saying? The Sky Azure Bull Python's voice sank, carrying a hint of warning. I advise you to abandon this thought early, you are simply no match for spirit beasts over 200,000 years old. Is that so? Lu Zan smiled faintly, immediately taking out a Pokeball, and gently pressed the button. Come out, Suicune. Chapter 92, Rayquaza appears, attracting the Silver Dragon King's attention. Accompanied by a flash of white light, an elegant blue figure appeared before Luzon. Its body shimmered with a sacred luster, and its mane danced in the wind like ribbons, emitting a majesty that transcended all living things. The sky azure bull python's pupils constricted sharply. The titan giant ape instinctively retreated 2 steps, its limbs trembling slightly. That yellow fat dragon was already very strong, but this blue divine beast was even more incredibly powerful, making them feel an urge to submit. What kind of existence is this? The sky azure bull python looked at Suicune in horror, then turned to Luzon, its eyes filled with disbelief. How could this human tame such a powerful divine beast? Human, who exactly are you? There was a hint of terror in the sky azure bull python's voice. For a human to be able to tame such an existence, it meant he had a terrifying background. That is not important. Luzon raised his eyes to look at the sky azure bull python, his expression indifferent as he said, "You only need to tell me, where are they?" The sky azure bull python remained silent for a moment. Once revealed, it would likely cause trouble for the spirit beast family, but if it didn't speak, this person would probably not let them off easily. With a glimmer of hope in its heart, the sky azure bull python asked, "What do you want with them?" "Naturally, to hunt for my 9th spirit ring." Luzon did not hide it, sweeping his gaze across the sky azure bull python and the titan giant ape, saying with slight dissatisfaction, "If I cannot find a spirit beast over 200,000 years old, I will have no choice but to target you too." Hearing this, the titan giant ape was instantly furious. A human being so arrogant, it wished it could crush him to pieces. But under the intimidation of Suicune, the titan giant ape could only think about it, it dared not make a move. Luzon glanced at the titan giant ape, it was completely dim-witted, having lived for 100,000 years, it hadn't grown a lick of intelligence. The sky azure bull python noticed Lu Xuan's gaze and, thinking he intended to hunt Erming, immediately began to panic. Big sister Xiao Wu had been gone for many years, if Erming were hunted, it would be all alone. At the Lake of Life. The sky azure bull python finally spoke, pointing out the specific direction, "Keep going in this direction, and you will find it." "Let's go, Dragonite." Luzon patted Dragonite's neck, signaling it to fly toward the Lake of Life. Dragonite immediately flapped its wings and flew in the direction indicated by the sky azure bull python, with Suicune following closely behind. Not long after, they arrived at the Lake of Life. This was a vast body of water, the lake water showing a faint green color, as if it contained endless life energy. Riding on Dragonite, Luzon hovered high in the sky, looking down at this body of water from above. In order to lure out the sleeping vicious beasts, Luzon signaled Suicune to control the Lake of Life, controlling water sources was its specialty. Suicune walked slowly onto the surface of the lake, lowering its head, its mane moving without any wind. The next moment, it let out a clear, resounding howl. The lake surface suddenly exploded. Countless water pillars shot into the sky, followed by towering waves. The entire lake seemed to be stirred by an invisible giant hand, with turbulent waves rising and falling, rippling layer upon layer toward the depths of the lake bottom. The commotion was too great, the sleepers at the bottom of the lake were awakened. The violent vibrations reached the bottom of the lake, waking the vicious beasts that were frantically absorbing the energy of the Skydream Iceworm. DTN, in human form, suddenly opened his eyes, a flash of light erupting in his golden pupils. He looked up, wondering in his heart. Could a powerful human have broken into the Lake of Life? Thinking of this, DTN looked at the other vicious beasts who had also woken up and said, "Stay calm, I will go out and take a look." After speaking, DTN's figure flickered and disappeared from the area. When he appeared again, he had already arrived above the Lake of Life. However, the scene that met his eyes left him feeling incredulous. It was not as he had expected, it was not a powerful human who had trespassed, but a blue divine beast he had never seen before, which was currently controlling the entire Lake of Life. DTN's gaze landed on Suicune, a flash of shock passing through his eyes. The aura of this divine beast was actually a notch stronger than his own. Could it be that during the time he was asleep, a true divine beast was born in the Stardew Great Forest? This made him extremely excited. With this powerful aid, the strength of the spirit beast family would be greatly enhanced. Just as he was preparing to build a relationship with this divine beast, he suddenly noticed there was also a human by the lakeside, watching him with great interest. DTN's heart sank. Could this divine beast be related to this person? Luzon waved at DTN, as if greeting an acquaintance. DTN frowned even tighter, hesitated for a moment, and then descended from the sky, landing in front of Luzon. Suicune immediately blocked the way in front of Luzon, staring at DTN with a vigilant gaze. Seeing this scene, DTN's mood instantly plummeted to the bottom. He had thought it was an additional powerful aid, but it turned out to be an additional powerful enemy. A moment later, DTN adjusted his mindset, his golden eyes fixed on Luzon as he said in a deep voice, "Human, what are you doing here?" "It's very simple, I need a spirit ring over 400,000 years old," Luzon said frankly. As soon as these words were spoken, the aura on DTN's body suddenly became fierce, and the surrounding air seemed to congeal a little. This answer made him very unhappy, as if they, the spirit beasts, were lambs waiting to be slaughtered. As a proud member of the Dragon Clan, how could DTN possibly agree? He rejected it without hesitation, saying, "Absolutely impossible. If you are unwilling to cooperate, then I can only turn this place upside down," Luzon said nonchalantly. Hearing this, DTN sneered, saying with disdain, "Just by yourselves." Although he had not reached the divine rank, relying on the dragon god's claw taught by the dragon god, it was not impossible to severely injure this blue divine beast. Seeing that he didn't believe it, Luzon shook his head and took out another Pokeball. "Come out, Rayquaza." The instant the white light bloomed, a massive figure shot into the sky, straight into the clouds. It was an emerald green giant dragon, its body covered in jade-like crystalline scales, with a pair of golden fin wings on each side and a pair of long, slender golden horn wings on its forehead. It circled in the clouds, letting out a dragon roar that shook heaven and earth. The clouds were stirred by its aura, turning into circular waves of clouds spreading in all directions. Rayquaza's pressure descended, like a divinity descending to the mortal world. DTN looked up at the emerald green figure circling in the clouds, his pupils trembling violently, and the expression on his face completely froze. The aura of this divine beast was simply terrifying to the extreme. He could vaguely feel that the strength of this dragon-type divine beast surpassed most divinities, and was even stronger than his master. Roar. Rayquaza looked down at the earth, its vertical pupils sweeping over DTN, letting out a low roar. Every hair on DTN's body stood on end. Just at this moment, the Silver Dragon King, who was sleeping at the bottom of the lake, suddenly opened her eyes. Chapter 93, DTN compromises, entering the vicious beast lair. DTN gazed at the emerald figure circling in the clouds above, his pride as a member of the dragon clan shattered into pieces. He was a pure-blooded black dragon, the golden-eyed black dragon king, possessing over 800,000 years of cultivation, but facing this divine beast, he had absolutely no possibility of putting up a fight. A sense of powerlessness welled up within him. What he found most unacceptable was that such a powerful divine beast actually obeyed a human. Once this person decided to take action against the spirit beast family, he would be unable to stop it. DTN clenched his fists, looked up at Luzon, and said with a solemn expression, "Just who exactly are you?" DTN seriously suspected that the person before him was related to the god realm, or perhaps even a descendant of some divinity, otherwise, how could he possibly possess such a formidable divine beast? However, he had a question in his mind. Ever since the decline of the dragon clan, did such powerful divine beasts really exist in the god realm? Luzon saw DTN's concerns, smiled faintly, and took the initiative to explain, "Rest assured, I have no connection to the god realm." However, DTN still looked at Luzon vigilantly, clearly not believing his one-sided story. Seeing DTN's skeptical expression, Luzon was not in a hurry and retorted, "Do you think I have any need to lie to you? Never mind you, even that sleeping existence, I have no fear of." DTN's pupils constricted, and his expression became increasingly solemn. This guy actually knew of the existence of the Lord. Although the Lord was severely injured and sleeping, after all, they had once been half of the dragon god. Even with greatly diminished strength, their essence was still above that of ordinary divinities. However, that divine beast in the sky was too powerful and was indeed stronger than the yet-to-recover Lord. DTN fell into silence, the other party indeed had no need to lie to him. If the god realm really wanted to wipe them out, they would have already chosen to take action now and directly erase them, how could they still be having a proper conversation with him? Thinking of this, DTN let out a slight sigh of relief, but his nerves remained tense. He raised his eyes to look at Luzon and probed, "As far as I know, a spirit master's 9th spirit ring can absorb at most 100,000 years, are you sure you can absorb a spirit ring of over 400,000 years? Even at this point, he still harbored a glimmer of hope. If he could satisfy the other party's request using a 100,000-year spirit beast, that would be for the best. The Stardew Great Forest was vast and rich in resources, 100,000-year spirit beasts were not that hard to find. Although it would still be a significant loss, it was at least better than losing a vicious beast. However, reality was cruel. Generally speaking, ordinary spirit masters can absorb at most a normal 100,000-year spirit ring for their 9th, but I am different from them," Luzon said without hesitation. As his voice fell, he directly released 8 spirit rings. The first few spirit rings only made DTN frown slightly, but until the 7th and 8th spirit rings appeared, the last glimmer of hope in his heart was completely shattered. 2 100,000-year spirit rings. Especially the last spirit ring, the aura it emitted far exceeded an ordinary 100,000-year one, being at least over 300,000 years. No wonder he was confident in absorbing a spirit ring of over 400,000 years. DTN was silent for a long time and had to accept reality. Among the current vicious beasts, only he, Baiji, the king of 10,000 demons, and Xiangjun possessed over 400,000 years of cultivation. DTN naturally could not sacrifice himself, he shouldered the fate of the spirit beast family. Once he died, the Stardew Great Forest would lose its pillar, and the fate of the spirit beast family would be in jeopardy. Baiji was also not suitable, she was the clan chief of the Emerald Swan family, and countless spirit beasts needed her treatment when injured. Only the king of 10,000 demons and Xiangjun remained. After weighing the options, DTN raised his eyes to look at Luzon and said solemnly, "I can agree to your request, but I also have one condition. You must guarantee that you will not kill spirit beasts indiscriminately in the future. If you can agree to this condition, I can help you facilitate this matter." Hearing this, Luzon pondered for a moment and said faintly, "Seeing as your condition is not excessive, I can agree." He paused, then changed his tone, "Of course, this is on the premise that you do not provoke me. If some spirit beasts lack foresight and take the initiative to attack me, I will not show mercy." DTN nodded slightly, it was enough that the other party could agree to this condition. If this person could become a divinity in the future, then for the spirit beast family, it might be a turning point. Immediately, DTN turned around and said in a deep voice, "Follow me." As his voice fell, he transformed into a black stream of light and submerged into the lake of life. Seeing this, Luzon immediately used a Pokeball to recall Rayquaza, then mounted on Suicune's back. Suicune let out a low cry, a layer of pale blue halo rippling around its body, condensing a water-repellent barrier around Luzon, firmly protecting him. Immediately after, Suicune took Luzon and dived into the lake water. The lake water was deep and emerald green, saturated with rich life energy, making one feel comfortable all over. Luzon curiously looked around, the deeper they went, the richer the life energy became, and there was even a faint green fluorescence. Upon reaching the deep bottom of the lake, a huge underground cavern entrance appeared ahead. At the entrance, there was an invisible barrier that kept the lake water out. Suicune carried Luzon through the barrier and landed steadily on the dry ground. The interior of the cavern was extremely spacious, with a dome dozens of jong high, and various glowing ore embedded in the surrounding rock walls, illuminating the entire space as bright as day. The air was filled with extremely rich life energy, several times more concentrated than in the lake water. Cultivating here, the efficiency was several times higher than outside. As expected of the vicious beast's lair. Luzon couldn't help but sigh with emotion, then recalled Suicune into the Pokeball and followed DTN inside. Under DTN's guidance, Luzon soon saw the other vicious beasts. Among these vicious beasts, only Bai Ji maintained a human appearance. She possessed a peerless appearance, with long emerald green hair cascading down to her waist like a waterfall, eyes like the purest emeralds, and a pair of emerald green wings spread behind her. As for the other vicious beasts, they had not transformed into human form but were coiled in various places in their beast forms. A huge dark golden bear, a purple dragon, and a very strange and bizarre giant tree demon. They were Xiangjun, Ziji, and the king of 10,000 demons, respectively. Although they were all huge in size, it was not crowded in this cavern. Luzon scanned the area but did not see Kai Wang. He was likely outside protecting the auspicious beast. When DTN walked in with a human, the gazes of all the vicious beasts converged instantly, filled with hostility and vigilance. Xiangjun was the first to react. His huge body stood up from the ground, walking towards this side like a small mountain, every step causing the ground to tremble slightly. After walking closer, Xiangjun looked down at Luzon, a trace of contempt flashing in his eyes. Immediately, he looked at DTN and said in a muffled voice, "DTN, you actually brought a human here. I'll tear him to pieces for you." As soon as his voice fell, he raised his massive bear paw and slammed it down towards Luzon, swearing to smash him into a meat patty. Chapter 94, Xiangjun, who preferred self-destruction, ultimately succumbs. Xiangjun, stop. DTN let out a sharp shout, his body erupting with a fierce aura. This aura pressed down like a physical force, forcing Xiangjun to abruptly halt his movements. His massive bear paw hung in midair, not daring to descend. Xiangjun's eyes were filled with disbelief. He turned his head to look at DTN, asking with a puzzled expression, "DTN, you actually attacked me for the sake of a human?" DTN did not answer his question but said in a deep voice, "He is a guest I have invited. You must treat him with the same respect as you do me." As soon as these words were spoken, the cave fell into dead silence. Bai Ji, the king of 10,000 demons, and Ziji all looked at DTN, their eyes filled with shock and confusion. DTN was the dominator of the spirit beast family. He was cold, arrogant, and domineering, and had always been hostile toward humans. Yet now, he had personally brought a human in and even demanded they treat him with courtesy. This completely overturned their understanding. Xiangjun was trembling with rage, unable to believe that DTN had scolded him for the sake of a human. At this moment, Luzon stepped forward a few paces, his gaze swept over the vicious beasts, and he said with slight displeasure, "You should all be able to transform into human form, right? It's tiring to look up at you like this." Hearing this request, Xiangjun became even more displeased. A human actually dared to order him around. Just as he was about to erupt in anger, DTN spoke. "Do as he says." Hearing this, Bai Ji looked incredulous. She had not expected DTN to protect this human so fiercely. What exactly is this person's background? Xiangjun was very dissatisfied with DTN's attitude, but he dared not truly lose his temper, as he was, after all, no match for DTN. A moment later, Xiangjun, the king of 10,000 demons, and Ziji all transformed into human forms. The king of 10,000 demons was a youth with a cold temperament. His skin was grayish-white, making him look more like a vampire. Ziji was a curvaceous woman with purple hair, her eyes alluring, and her entire being exuding an aura of charm. As for Xiangjun, after transforming into human form, he remained a sturdy and burly figure with flesh hanging from his face, looking fierce and malevolent. Lu Xuan's gaze swept over them and finally landed on Xiangjun. He said in a flat tone, "I need a spirit ring over 400,000 years old, and I think you are very suitable." As soon as these words were spoken, Xiangjun froze for a moment, then roared, "Do you really think I don't dare to kill you?" At this moment, he could no longer care about DTN's warning and swung his fist directly toward Luzon. However, DTN's speed was faster. With a flash of his figure, he stood in front of Luzon and raised his hand to block Xiangjun's fist. Xiangjun's figure came to a sudden halt. He looked at DTN in disbelief and roared, "DTN, didn't you hear him? He wants to absorb my spirit ring." DTN remained cold and stern, his eyes devoid of any emotional fluctuation. He certainly knew that Luzon wanted to absorb Xiangjun's spirit ring, but he had not forgotten the terrifying aura released by Rayquaza when it circled in the clouds. That was the divine beast that ruled the sky. Once Luzon was angered, the entire spirit beast family would be annihilated. To sacrifice Xiangjun to preserve the spirit beast family, he had to make the choice. Seeing that DTN was determined to protect Luzon, Xiangjun finally realized what was happening. DTN must have already reached an agreement with this person, otherwise, he would not have brought him into this forbidden land. Thinking of this, Xiangjun's eyes turned bloodshot, and he panted like an ox, roaring, "DTN, you are actually colluding with a human. I look down on you." Upon hearing this, DTN remained expressionless. He had no choice at all. Even if they all combined their strength, they could not stop that divine beast. "Even if I have to self-destruct, I will never become a human spirit ring," Xiangjun said with a look of determination. Seeing that he had such backbone, a flash of admiration passed through Lu Xuan's eyes, and he decisively released Rayquaza. A jade-green figure appeared above the cave, emitting an unparalleled aura. The moment Rayquaza appeared, all the vicious beasts were stunned. This divine beast's presence was even stronger than DTN's. No, to be precise, the two were simply not on the same level. Only now did they understand why DTN was so respectful to Luzon. Because Luzon held the truth in his hands. Faced with such a terrifying existence, they had no qualification to resist. Xiangjun's tightly clenched fist slowly loosened, and he lowered his head dejectedly, his voice hoarse, "Even if it means self-destruction, I am unwilling to become a human spirit ring." There was still a sense of desperate determination in his tone. At worst, it was just death. If he became a spirit master's spirit ring, he would not only lose everything, but all his power would also become the spirit master's. How could he possibly be willing to fulfill a human? "Even if you become my spirit ring, you will not die." As he spoke, Luzon released the Ice Empress from his 8th spirit ring. With the blossoming of a jade green light, the Ice Empress in the form of a soul spirit emerged and landed on Lu Xuan's shoulder. When she saw the vicious beasts around her, she was instantly dumbfounded. Luzon, where have you brought me? She blinked her eyes, her gaze filled with shock and disbelief. With so many vicious beasts, this guy wasn't planning to wipe them all out in one go, was he? Although she didn't have much to do with these vicious beasts, they were, after all, fellow spirit beasts, and she didn't want the spirit beast family to completely decline. Luzon reached out and flicked the Ice Empress on the forehead to help her clear her head. Following that, Luzon looked toward the vicious beasts and introduced her. She is the Ice Empress, one of the 3 elites of the far north. She is now in the state of a soul spirit, although she has no physical body, she will not truly die. The Ice Empress rubbed her forehead and glared fiercely at Luzon. However, considering that Luzon usually treated her well, she still nodded in cooperation. The vicious beasts, including DTN, looked at each other in dismay. They had never thought that after a spirit beast became a spirit ring, it could still retain its consciousness. This might be able to ease the conflict between spirit masters and spirit beasts. A glimmer of anticipation flashed in Bai Ji's eyes. Unlike the other vicious beasts, she very much hoped that spirit masters and spirit beasts could live in peace. Even Shang Jun felt a hint of being moved. The main reason he preferred self-destruction was that he did not want his power to benefit a human after his death. But if he could retain his consciousness, that would be another matter entirely. However, having spoken so decisively just a moment ago, if he agreed now, he felt it would be too embarrassing. Furthermore, after I become a god, soul spirits can also achieve eternal life. Luzon specifically added. The Ice Empress nodded. She was increasingly glad to have become Lu Xuan's soul spirit, as this way, she could enter the god realm while lying down. Upon hearing that they could achieve eternal life, let alone Shang Jun, even the king of 10,000 demons and Ziji, who were beside him, had a flash of burning heat in their eyes. This had more of a future than being a spirit beast. After all, they had to face a heavenly tribulation every 100,000 years, and each time it was a brush with death. And by becoming Lu Xuan's soul spirit, they also had the chance to obtain eternal life. Just as the two were feeling restless, Shang Jun immediately knelt in front of Luzon and said resolutely, I am willing to become your soul spirit. Chapter 95, King of 10,000 Demons and Shang Jun fight to sacrifice. DTN and the others were shocked to see Shang Jun kneeling before Luzon. Who was it that said just a moment ago they would rather self-destruct than become a human spirit ring? Now, they were kneeling faster than anyone else. Was this still the Shang Jun they knew? The king of 10,000 demons stepped forward quickly and spoke with cold sarcasm. Shang Jun, just a moment ago you swore you would rather die than submit, yet now you kneel before a human. Where is your pride? I despise you. However, faced with the mockery of the king of 10,000 demons, Shang Jun felt not a hint of anger. This guy definitely wanted to compete with him for the chance to enter the god realm. How could he possibly give up such a good opportunity? If I want to kneel, I'll kneel. None of your damn business. Upon hearing this, the king of 10,000 demons was instantly choked up. He hadn't expected Shang Jun to have absolutely no shame. The king of 10,000 demons gritted his teeth, about to say something more, but saw that Shang Jun had already turned his head away, looking up at Luzon with a face full of devotion. It was just like a pet raised by Luzon. At this moment, the king of 10,000 demons finally understood. Shang Jun was determined to latch onto this backer. His gaze fell on Luzon, then he glanced at Ice Empress on Lu Xuan's shoulder, and began to think. This person had a very high chance of becoming a god. As long as he could become this person's soul spirit, he could enter the god realm without any effort. Thinking of this, the king of 10,000 demons decisively knelt beside Shang Jun and said in a sincere tone. I am willing to become your soul spirit. My cultivation is higher than his, and I will bring you even greater improvement. In an instant, the entire cave fell silent. DTN's eyelids twitched violently. In all his years, this was the first time he had seen such a scene. Two vicious beasts competing and fighting to sacrifice themselves to a human. These two guys had completely lost face for the spirit beast family, but fortunately, Luzon was the only human present. Seeing that the king of 10,000 demons had completely stopped pretending, Shang Jun immediately got anxious and shouted. Bullshit. Although my cultivation is slightly lower than yours, when it comes to a one-on-one fight, you are definitely no match for me. Shang Jun was not lying about this. In the entire Stardew Great Forest, the only one who could suppress him head-on was DTN. Even if the king of 10,000 demons had higher cultivation, it was very difficult to go head-to-head with Shang Jun. Even so, the king of 10,000 demons looked unimpressed and retorted, if we really fought, I have 100 ways to play you to death. Do you think everyone is as brainless as you? Although Shang Jun had stronger attack power, the king of 10,000 demons had more tricks up his sleeve. As long as it wasn't close quarters combat, the king of 10,000 demons had a better chance of winning. Seeing the two arguing, DTN's face turned dark. Originally, he had felt a bit guilty, but now it had turned into a situation where there weren't enough spots to go around. In fact, let alone Shang Jun and the king of 10,000 demons, even Bai Ji and Ziji were tempted. Furthermore, becoming a soul spirit didn't mean immediate death, it was just changing into a different form. You're courting death. Shang Jun stood up abruptly from the ground, eager to test his strength against the king of 10,000 demons, but was stopped by a single look from Luzon. Alright, stop arguing. As Luzon spoke, Shang Jun and the king of 10,000 demons instantly shut their mouths. Although they were unconvinced in their hearts, neither dared to act presumptuously in front of Luzon. King of 10,000 demons, you are a plant-type spirit beast and are not suitable to be my soul spirit. Luzon looked at the king of 10,000 demons and said in a flat tone. The expression on the king of 10,000 demons' face instantly froze. These words were undoubtedly his death sentence. Although he was just a spirit beast, he knew the requirements spirit masters had for spirit rings. Generally speaking, only plant-type spirit masters would choose plant-type spirit beasts. Given the same quality of spirit ring, the more compatible, the better. Before this, he had held onto a sliver of hope. What if Lu Xuan's spirit was a plant? A disappointed expression appeared on the king of 10,000 demons' face. He had finally made up his mind, only to lose so thoroughly. Seeing this, the stone in Shang Jun's heart finally fell to the ground. Actually, he had still been a little worried. After all, the king of 10,000 demons had better cultivation, and perhaps Lu Zan really would have chosen him. Fortunately, Lu Zan had not changed his decision. He was truly wise and martial. Immediately, Shang Jun looked up at Lu Zan and said impatiently, "Master, please hurry and take me in as your soul spirit." Seeing him so proactive, Lu Zan was still a little unaccustomed to it. Ice Empress sat on Lu Xuan's shoulder, looking at Shang Jun with a face of disdain. He had actually started calling him master. It was too shameful for a vicious beast. Then let's begin. Sacrifice yourself to me, and I will preserve your soul. Lu Zan said with a calm expression. Upon hearing this, Shang Jun did not hesitate at all, directly channeling all the energy in his body to sacrifice to Lu Zan. In an instant, the entire cave suddenly erupted with dark golden light. A vast amount of energy surged out from Shang Jun's body like a volcanic eruption, turning into a dark golden torrent that poured continuously into Lu Xuan's body. Powerful energy fluctuations spread outward from Shang Jun as the center, causing the entire underground cavern to tremble slightly. DTN and the others retreated a few steps, watching this scene intently. During the time Lu Zan was absorbing this energy, Ice Empress and Rayquaza stood guard nearby to prevent DTN and the others from making a sudden move. Although one could withstand external attacks during a sacrifice, it might not necessarily be able to withstand DTN's Dragon God Claw. He had to keep a miracle eye open. Seeing this, DTN felt a complex mix of emotions. If Lu Zan really became a god, wouldn't Shang Jun become stronger than him? The king of 10,000 demons' eyes were full of jealousy, such a good opportunity, yet it wasn't his turn. Bai Ji and ZG didn't think so much, they just watched the scene quietly. After a whole day passed, the dark golden light gradually receded, turning into a scarlet spirit ring that rotated slowly at Lu Xuan's feet. Level 93. Lu Zan slowly opened his eyes, feeling the surging spirit power within him, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. This speed of improvement was just too satisfying. Generally speaking, for a titled Douluo or higher, increasing spirit power by one level often requires years or even decades, yet he had directly risen to level 93. This wasn't over yet, Shang Jun had also left behind an external spirit bone. A dark gold Terraclaw right palm bone. Lu Zan did not hesitate and placed this external spirit bone directly on his right hand, beginning the fusion with this spirit bone. A scorching and heavy energy instantly surged into his body. Several hours later, Lu Zan finally completely absorbed this external spirit bone. Level 95. Lu Zan murmured, slowly stood up, and stretched his muscles slightly. The aura radiating from his body was several times stronger than before. He was not in a hurry to test his spirit ability and spirit bone skills. It would be bad if he destroyed this cave. Now, he was a genuine titled Douluo, only one level away from stepping into the ranks of Super Douluo. This speed of improvement was enough to make countless spirit masters envious, jealous, and hateful. DTN stepped forward quickly, a hint of urgency in his golden eyes, and asked, "How is Shang Jun?" Although there was the precedent of Ice Empress right before his eyes, there was no guarantee of success every time. Lu Zan did not answer but raised his hand and waved it. Soon, a dark golden light drifted out from his ninth spirit ring, and a small dark golden bear appeared before everyone's eyes. Chapter 96, Capturing the Silver Dragon King, Horse Talisman eliminates Asura God's divine force. Ha ha ha, I succeeded. Shang Jun looked around in surprise and couldn't help but burst into loud laughter. Although his size had shrunk significantly, his strength had not decreased, he simply needed to rely on Lu Xuan's spirit power. As long as Lu Xuan's spirit power was sufficient, he could unleash his full strength. These were secondary, the most important thing was that after becoming Lu Xuan's soul spirit, he could easily enter the god realm with Lu Zan. The king of 10,000 demons looked at Shang Jun with a face full of jealousy. Clearly, his cultivation was higher, yet he had not been chosen. DTN saw that Shang Jun had no problems and nodded slightly, though a flash of light crossed his golden eyes. This method of creating a soul spirit might be able to change the future of the spirit beast family. Just at this moment, Bai Ji walked forward gracefully. Her emerald green eyes held a glimmer of earnestness, and her voice was as gentle as a spring breeze brushing over a lake. Your Excellency, since this soul spirit method is feasible, could you please teach it to other spirit masters? In this way, it will surely greatly alleviate the conflict between spirit masters and spirit beasts, which is a good thing for both sides. Bai Ji most hoped to see spirit masters and spirit beasts coexist peacefully. Now, this soul spirit method had given her hope, and she was willing to pay any price. Impossible. Lu Zan rejected her without hesitation. Upon hearing this, Bai Ji was stunned, her beautiful eyes filled with confusion. She bit her lip, stepped forward 2 more steps, and said with a sincere tone, Your Excellency, this is a mutually beneficial method, why not do it? Hee, you only see the surface. Lu Zan shook his head. Looking at the stunningly beautiful Bai Ji before him, he realized this woman was still too naive and explained, First, I cannot pass on this method for the time being, I can only perform it personally. He had not truly created a secret technique for soul spirits, he was merely using the horse talisman to preserve the spirit beast's soul and transform it into another form. After all, he didn't know any magic formations. After a brief pause, Lu Zan continued, Secondly, even if I made it public, it would indeed be beneficial to spirit beasts in the short term, but in the long run, it would actually accelerate the demise of spirit beasts. You might as well imagine, if soul spirits truly became common, there would definitely be people who would trade them as commodities. At that time, the living space of spirit beasts would only be further compressed, not expanded. Hearing this explanation, Bai Ji fell silent. In this light, it was she who had judged a gentleman's heart with a petty person's measure. It is I who thought too simply. A bitter smile appeared on Bai Ji's face, and her gaze toward Lu Zan held a bit more gratitude. DTN's gaze fell on Lu Zan, a flash of surprise crossing the depths of his eyes. In his way of thinking, humans simply exploited spirit beasts, he had not expected this person to think of the spirit beast family. This person might truly be trustworthy. In fact, Luzon was mainly thinking about the future of spirit masters. Once spirit beasts became scarce, spirit masters would also decline accordingly. Luzon did not entangle himself with Bai Ji, but turned and walked to DTN, saying in a low voice, "Before I leave, I want to see your master." Impossible. DTN refused without hesitation. With his master's safety at stake, he absolutely could not let a human step inside. Seeing this, Luzon was not surprised and said softly, "Rest assured, I only want to see her, and I have a way to treat her injuries." DTN frowned tightly, a flash of vigilance crossing his golden eyes, along with a hint of hard-to-hide interest. This person was indeed not simple, perhaps he really had a way to treat his master. Furthermore, if the person insisted on seeing his master, he simply could not stop him. "Come with me," DTN said, looking slightly helpless. As his voice fell, he turned and walked toward the depths of the cave, his footsteps heavier than before. Luzon stepped forward to follow. Rayquaza and Suicune were recalled into their Pokeballs, and the soul spirits of the Ice Empress and Xiangjun also returned to their respective spirit rings. A while later, a crystal palace came into view. DTN stopped outside the palace gate, not taking another step forward. He turned to the side, his gaze falling on Luzon, and said in a deep voice, "The master is inside, go in yourself." Luzon nodded slightly and walked in slowly. The interior of the palace looked even more spacious than the outside, and a rich aura of life rushed toward him. Looking up, a giant silver dragon was curled up in the depths of the main hall. Its figure was slender and elegant, lacking the ruggedness and ferocity of ordinary dragons, instead exuding a sense of holy beauty. Sensing an intruder, the Silver Dragon King slowly opened her eyes. Those purple vertical pupils were like the deepest stars, holding a hint of scrutiny and curiosity as she looked at Luzon. A cold, clear voice rang out in Lu Xuan's mind. "Human, was the commotion just now caused by you?" "You could say that." Luzon continued walking forward, while the Silver Dragon King watched him quietly, as if observing an interesting existence. "If you trust me, I can help you treat your injuries." "Why do you want to help me?" "I want to help, so I'm helping, there aren't that many reasons." Luzon shrugged, saying it casually. The Silver Dragon King was silent for a moment. She could feel that this human was not lying, which meant he really had the confidence to treat the injuries on her body. "How do you intend to help me?" Luzon took out his only remaining Master Ball and said, "I will throw this thing at you, just don't dodge it." Upon hearing this, the Silver Dragon King hesitated for a moment, but eventually agreed. After obtaining her consent, Luzon immediately threw the Master Ball, which landed precisely on the Silver Dragon King. A white light instantly enveloped the Silver Dragon King's massive body. Immediately after, her massive body rapidly shrank and was sucked into the Master Ball. Ding! After successfully capturing her, Luzon released the Silver Dragon King again. This time, there was a clear change in the way she looked at Luzon, even carrying a hint of closeness. Although it had been very brief, the injuries on her body had indeed healed a little. "What exactly is this?" The Silver Dragon King looked curiously at the Master Ball in Lu Xuan's hand and couldn't help asking. "Consider it a divine artifact." Luzon found a random excuse. With such powerful functions, calling it a divine artifact was not an exaggeration at all. Upon hearing this, the Silver Dragon King was not surprised, on the contrary, she deeply agreed. Such a powerful thing could only be a divine artifact. "I am here to clear the Asura God's divine force from your body." Luzon stepped forward a few steps and placed his hand on the Silver Dragon King, a layer of soft white light appearing in his palm. The next moment, a pure healing force surged into the Silver Dragon King's body like a warm current. Under the effect of the horse talisman, the Asura God's divine force instantly disintegrated. The Silver Dragon King's eyes were filled with disbelief. What kind of method was this? It was simply even more powerful than divine force. Except for the damage to her origin, her other injuries had completely healed. At this moment, the Silver Dragon King transformed into a silver-haired girl, looking to be 18 or 19 years old. Her long silver hair cascaded down to her ankles like a waterfall, the strands smooth and glistening with a crystal-like luster. She possessed a beauty that could not be described in words, no description was sufficient to convey her stunning appearance. Chapter 97, Abducting the Silver Dragon King, DTN is helpless. The Silver Dragon King looked down at her hands, then raised her eyes to look at Luzon, a trace of complex emotion flashing in her purple eyes. "Human, what is your name?" She spoke softly, her voice still cold and clear, yet much gentler than before. "Luzon." The Silver Dragon King nodded slightly, as if silently reciting the name. The Asura God divine force that had been entangled within her for countless years had been completely cleared, and that bone-gnawing pain had finally vanished. However, her origin was still severely damaged, she did not know how much time it would take to recover to her peak state. This person could help her recover faster, so she must win him over to her side. Besides, this person also possessed very strong power, which would be an asset for her to resist the God realm in the future. "I want to go with you," the Silver Dragon King said calmly. Luzon was stunned for a moment. He had thought he would need to abduct her by force, but he hadn't expected her to willingly leave with him. Could it be that the Master Ball was working? Luzon glanced at the Silver Dragon King, the silver-haired girl's expression remained unchanged, as if she had already made up her mind. "Sure." Luzon shrugged and readily agreed. Seeing him agree, the Silver Dragon King felt a hint of goodwill, it seemed that winning this person over would not be difficult. Immediately, the two walked outside side by side. After coming out of the Crystal Palace, DTN had been waiting outside. When he saw the silver-haired woman beside Luzon, he was visibly stunned. After coming to his senses, he suddenly knelt on one knee, his head bowed, his tone so respectful it was almost devout. "My lord, have your injuries fully recovered?" The Silver Dragon King glanced at DTN and gave a faint, "Amen." DTN was overjoyed. He had only been holding on to a slim hope, but he never expected that Luzon would actually cure the lord's injuries. This meant that the Spirit Beast family had hope for a revival. However, when DTN's gaze swept between the Silver Dragon King and Luzon, he noticed that the lord was standing very close to Luzon, so close that their shoulders were almost touching. DTN frowned. Although Lu Zan had cured the Lord, in his heart, how could the Lord's noble status allow such intimacy with a human? Even if this human was indeed very special, it was absolutely impossible for him to be worthy of the Lord. However, now was not the time to talk about this. DTN suppressed his displeasure and turned to look at the Silver Dragon King, saying in a deep voice, "My lord, since you have recovered, should you not lead us to restore the glory of the Spirit Beast family? Your subordinate is willing to go through fire and water for you, without hesitation." "No." The Silver Dragon King looked down at him, her eyes showing little fluctuation. "Although my injuries have healed, my origin is severely damaged, and even I will need a long time to repair it." She paused, glancing at Lu Zan without leaving a trace. "Only he can help me recover my full strength sooner. During this period, I will stay by his side." There was no fault to be found in this reason. DTN opened his mouth to speak, but could not find any words to refute. The Lord regaining her strength was the future of the Spirit Beast family. How could he stop her for his own selfish reasons? But the Lord leaving alone with a human made him truly uneasy. Therefore, DTN could only look at Lu Zan and ask with a hint of pleading, "Your Excellency, I wonder if you could stay in the Stardo Great Forest for the time being. As long as you are willing to stay, we can satisfy all your requests. During the time you stay, I can have Bai Ji and ZG serve you." Not interested. Lu Zan refused without hesitation. Compared to Bai Ji and ZG, he was more interested in the Silver Dragon King. After all, Bai Ji and ZG were strictly speaking still spirit beasts, just transformed into human form, not like Yin who had undergone true transformation. The Silver Dragon King was one of the Dragon God's clones and did not fall into the category of spirit beasts. She should be considered a divinity. "I only came to obtain my 9th spirit ring, why would I need to stay?" Lu Zan asked rhetorically, then looked at the Silver Dragon King beside him and said indifferently, "Your lord wants to follow me, that is her choice." In fact, he also felt a little sympathy for DTN. In the original work, DTN worried his heart out for the Spirit Beast family, only to be backstabbed by the Lord. From this perspective, Lu Zan taking the Silver Dragon King away could be considered indirectly helping DTN. Hearing this, a trace of anger flashed in DTN's golden eyes, but it was quickly suppressed. "Your Excellency, please be sure to take good care of the Lord." "Rest assured, I will definitely take good care of her." Lu Zan waved his hand and turned to walk outside. The Silver Dragon King followed slowly by his side. After coming out from the depths of the Lake of Life, Lu Zan suddenly remembered something and asked, "By the way, what should I call you in the future?" "Silver Dragon King." As expected. Hearing this name, a look of, as expected, flashed in Lu Xuan's eyes. Next, Lu Zan flew towards Heaven Do City, and the Silver Dragon King immediately followed. Although the Silver Dragon King had not recovered her full strength, she was at least divine rank and an invincible existence on this continent. However, the Silver Dragon King could not use her strength at will, otherwise, it would easily attract the attention of the God Realm. After Lu Xuan's breakthrough to title Douluo, he could fly without the chicken talisman, and with the addition of the rabbit talisman, his speed was not slower than the Silver Dragon King's. This caught the Silver Dragon King's attention. This guy was clearly still immortal, yet he already possessed speed beyond divine rank. If Lu Zan released Dragonite, combined with the rabbit talisman's boost, he could reach dozens of times the speed of sound, which would definitely make the Silver Dragon King's jaw drop. Let alone ordinary divinities, even God Kings would far from compare. From this perspective, the power of the 12 talismans was more like true divine force. As long as one gathered the 12 talismans, even without becoming a god, one could beat up God Kings. After some time, the two finally arrived at the manor outside Heaven Do City. On the lawn inside the manor, Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing were feeding the Pokemon. Hearing the sound of wind coming from afar, Ning Rongrong was the first to look up. When she saw Lu Xuan's figure, a joyful smile immediately bloomed on her face. She immediately put down the things in her hands and walked quickly to meet him. "You're finally back." She ran a few steps, then suddenly noticed an extra person beside Lu Zan. It was a silver-haired girl, looking to be only 17 or 18 years old, but her appearance was so beautiful that it made people unable to look away. Her long silver hair cascaded down like moonlight, shimmering with a soft luster under the starlight. Her purple eyes were as deep as the stars, her nose was elegant, and her lips were slightly pursed, carrying an innate nobility and aloofness. It was a flawless beauty that made Ning Rongrong feel a hint of inferiority. "Who is she?" Ning Rongrong reined in her previous jubilant expression, and her voice lowered by half a degree. "Her name is the Silver Dragon King." Lu Zan introduced her briefly. The Silver Dragon King did not look at Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing, her gaze was attracted by the Pokemon in the manor. These creatures were completely different from the spirit beasts in her cognition, exuding a unique aura. Chapter 98. Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing compete for favor, promotion tournament becomes Pokemon battle. Are these creatures spirit beasts? Silver Dragon King tilted her head slightly, a rare hint of curiosity appearing in her purple eyes. "Not spirit beasts, they are Pokemon, or you can call them Pokemon." Lu Zan looked at Silver Dragon King, stepped closer, and explained softly, "They come from another world." "Another world?" Silver Dragon King repeated, her silver eyelashes fluttering gently. As half a clone of the Dragon God, she naturally knew of the existence of other planes, but she didn't expect a human to know so much. Silver Dragon King stared at Lu Zan for a long time, her beautiful eyes filled with curiosity. Just how many secrets was this guy hiding? Ning Rongrong stood to the side, rarely refraining from being confrontational as she had been before. She sized up Silver Dragon King and secretly compared them. In terms of both temperament and appearance, she seemed to be a level below. Her stunning beauty was beyond words, even she felt a bit moved, let alone Lu Zan. More importantly, Lu Zan had taken the initiative to bring her back, which meant he intended to let her stay. Causing trouble now would likely be asking for trouble. Ning Rongrong was not as brainless as before, she knew clearly who could be provoked and who could not be offended. She hurried forward to hold Lu Xuan's arm, looking well behaved. "You haven't told me about your 9th spirit ring yet. Did you encounter any danger?" "Naturally, I absorbed it smoothly." Luzon ruffled her hair and said faintly, I am already at level 95 now. What? Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing widened their eyes simultaneously. Just going out to absorb a spirit ring and breaking through to level 95. This simply overturned their cognition. At this rate, it wouldn't be long before Luzon became the strongest. In fact, Luzon already had the confidence to compete with a limit Douluo, and as for titled Douluo below level 99, he didn't put them in his eyes. Then what is your title? Zhu Zuqing couldn't help but ask. Haven't thought about it yet, we'll talk about it later. Luzon smiled, then turned to look at Silver Dragon King. You go back into the Pokeball to recuperate first, it can help you recover your origin. Silver Dragon King nodded slightly without saying much. Although she didn't know the origin of that divine artifact, it could indeed help her recover her origin, which was the reason she insisted on following this person. After Silver Dragon King entered the Master Ball, Ning Rongrong immediately pulled Luzon into a room, and Zhu Zuqing followed. After Luzon finished enjoying their special massage, he entered into Cultivate. For the next period, Luzon would let Silver Dragon King out during the day to introduce her to various Pokemon, and at night, he would take her back into the Pokeball for treatment. As time passed, Silver Dragon King became increasingly dependent on Luzon. A few days later, the preliminaries had come to an end, and Shrek Academy had barely qualified. This was thanks to the Pokemon of Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing. Next was the promotion tournament. Unlike the team battles of the preliminaries, the promotion tournament used a single-person spirit fighting system. 7 people from each team took turns to compete, the winner continued, and the loser left the field, until one side had all members eliminated. Under this format, individual strength would be infinitely magnified. Most importantly, the organizers still did not ban the use of Pokeballs. This meant that the original one-on-one duels would likely evolve into clashes between Pokemon. Because of this, the popularity of this tournament far exceeded the past. Tens of thousands of people flocked to the Great Spirit Arena for every match, and many even came from other cities just to see the battles between those never-before-seen Pokemon. In the Shrek Academy Lounge. Our first opponent is Barak Academy. Their strength is in the middle of the qualified teams, and they don't have any particularly powerful contestants. After Yu Xiaogang introduced the opponent's information, his gaze turned to Zhu Zuqing, and he continued, Zhu Zuqing will fight in the first battle. Second, Dai Mubai. Third, Tang San. Fourth, Ning Rongrong. Wait a minute. Ning Rongrong forcibly interrupted Yu Xiaogang's words and said coldly, I am just a support-type spirit master, and you are putting me in fourth. You have a Pokeball, so your strength is no worse than an attack system spirit master. Yu Xiaogang did not think his arrangement was problematic and said righteously, as a member of the Shrek team, you must contribute to the team, this is your responsibility. What if I encounter danger? Getting injured in the competition is unavoidable. There was no ripple on Yu Xiaogang's face, he wanted victory in the competition and did not care about Ning Rongrong's safety. Very well, if you perform too poorly, I will admit defeat as soon as I go on stage. Ning Rongrong did not tolerate Yu Xiaogang's attitude at all. Hearing this, Yu Xiaogang's face turned livid, but he could do nothing about Ning Rongrong. 1 hour later, the promotion tournament officially began. The spectator stands in the Heaven Do City competition area were packed, and the cheers were deafening. Shrek Academy was not the first match, there were several matches before it, and every academy used Pokeballs, some academies even equipped every person with a Pokeball. However, most Pokemon did not have much strength. After a while, it was finally Shrek Academy's turn to fight against Barak Academy. As Zhu Zuqing walked onto the stage, warm cheers erupted throughout the arena. This cold and beautiful black-clad girl, despite speaking little, had already accumulated a lot of popularity based on her performance in the previous preliminaries. The match begins. The referee announced loudly. The first contestant sent by Barak Academy was a sturdy man who looked like an attack system spirit master. Come out, Butterfree. Zhu Zuqing did not waste words, she raised her hand to take out the Pokeball and pressed the button gently. With a flash of white light, Butterfree flew out from the Pokeball, its purple wings refracting dreamlike luster under the lights. Fine, golden scales like mist dispersed, silently covering half of the arena on the opposite side. The sturdy man had just set up an offensive posture when he was covered by sleep powder. His eyelids began to fight, his body swayed twice, and then he collapsed to the ground with a thump. Immediately after, Zhu Zuqing's figure was like a ghost, arriving in front of him in the blink of an eye, and she slapped him off the stage. Her spirit power had reached level 46, and with multiple spirit enhancements, her strength was comparable to a spirit king. Barak Academy contestant, eliminated. As the referee announced the result, thunderous applause erupted throughout the arena. Holy crap, it was a one-shot kill. Isn't Butterfree's sleep powder too unsolvable? An agility attack system spirit master combined with Butterfree, this is the strongest combination. Following that, Barak Academy's contestants went on stage one after another, but the result was the same. As soon as they stepped into the arena, they were covered by Butterfree's sleep powder, at most, they could hold their breath for 2 or 3 minutes before they all fell to the ground. When the last contestant of Barak Academy was carried off the stage, the whole arena cheered instantly. A1 on 7, she is simply my goddess. Although Zhu Zuqing is strong, the key is that Butterfree is too powerful. Chapter 99, Silver Dragon King's Honey Trap, Butterfree countered by Infernape. The next morning, Silver Dragon King sat on a blue stone by the lake, her long, silvery white hair casting a soft halo in the sunlight. Her slender, fair fingers gently stroked Suicune's mane. Suicune half closed its eyes, lying obediently on the ground, a low purr rumbling in its throat without the slightest resistance. Where did you get these Pokemon? Silver Dragon King raised her eyes to look at Luzon not far away, her purple eyes filled with undisguised curiosity. Luzon was lying on the grass, hands behind his head, gazing at the azure sky. Hearing this, he turned his head to look at Silver Dragon King, a lazy smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. That's a secret. Silver Dragon King raised an eyebrow, her silver eyelashes fluttering gently in the morning light. She did not press the matter, instead changing the question, what about you? Are you from another plane? The question was blunt. After a moment of silence, Luzon did not deny it, his tone light and airy, you could say that. Hearing this, Silver Dragon King already had her answer. She did not continue to ask, but instead stood up from the bluestone, walked lightly to Lu Xuan's side, and crouched down beside him. Her long silver hair hung down, a few strands almost brushing against his cheek. Luzon smelled a faint, elusive fragrance, like ice springs melting on a snowy mountain, or an orchid blooming in the deep night. Since you can cross planes and possess so many powerful Pokemon, you must know about the existence of the God Realm, right? Silver Dragon King lowered her voice, carrying a touch of intimacy that only the two of them could hear. Luzon turned his head, locking eyes with her. Those purple eyes were only half a foot away, so clear they seemed to reflect his own image. So what if I do? He said in a flat tone. Silver Dragon King leaned forward slightly, closing the distance between them even further, so close that Luzon could see the morning dew on her eyelashes. I want you to help me. Her voice was very soft, yet carried an unquestionable firmness, to oppose the God Realm. Lu Xuan's hands, pillowing his head, did not move. His gaze lingered on her face for a moment before slowly shifting away. He really hadn't expected that the dignified Silver Dragon King would use such a clumsy honey trap. However, it was still quite effective on him. He didn't think much of vase-like women like Tang Yuehua, but for a beauty like Silver Dragon King, who possessed both looks and strength, he had no reason to refuse. Luzon did not rush to respond, instead asking slowly, why do you want to oppose the God Realm? This question made Silver Dragon King pause slightly. She lowered her eyes, her silver eyelashes casting a small shadow in the morning light. This was a question she had never thought about. She was half of the Dragon God's clone, opposing the gods was her innate mission, not to mention that the Golden Dragon King was still imprisoned in the God Realm. After a long silence, Silver Dragon King raised her eyes again, her purple eyes reflecting Lu Xuan's face. I have my reasons. Are you willing to help me? We'll see. Luzon replied ambiguously. Silver Dragon King pursed her lips slightly but did not press further. This answer meant there was a chance. As long as she continued to stay by his side, there would eventually be a chance to make him agree. She stood up again and turned to walk back to the lake, her long silver hair fluttering gently in the morning breeze. Luzon watched her back, a thoughtful look flashing in his eyes. If he could draw more powerful divine rank Pokemon and 12 talismanic incantations later, he wouldn't mind helping Silver Dragon King. After all, he didn't have any affection for the God Realm either. On the other side, inside the Shrek Lounge. Our opponent this time is Blazing Academy. Their strength cannot be underestimated, we must give it our all. Yu Xiaogang stood in front of everyone, hands behind his back, maintaining the majesty of a grandmaster at all times. I have already arranged the order of appearance for today. As he spoke, his gaze turned to Zhu Zuqing, and he continued, Zhu Zuqing, you will start first. Zhu Zuqing sat next to Ning Rongrong, her expression cold, she didn't even lift her eyelids. Yu Xiaogang was already used to her attitude and could only continue to arrange the rest. Tang San, you will be second. Then Dai Mubai, Ma Hongjun, Tai Long, Jing Ling, and finally Ning Rongrong. When the words fell, the lounge was silent for a few seconds. Dai Mubai frowned and couldn't help but say, Grandmaster, are you sure about letting Ning Rongrong be the anchor? She is just a support-type spirit master. Ning Rongrong has a very strong Pokemon, stronger than most of you. Yu Xiaogang said bluntly. Hearing this, everyone fell silent. They, of course, knew that Ning Rongrong possessed a powerful Pokemon. But the problem was that the anchor position in a match was generally more dangerous, as both sides would do whatever it took to win. Unless the previous matches were won, it was easy to get into danger. Of course, Ning Rongrong certainly wouldn't let Yu Xiaogang have his way. If the previous performance was too poor, she would just admit defeat directly. Although Luzon gave her a powerful Pokemon, she didn't intend to drag the team into the finals. Alright, time is up. Let's go out. Yu Xiaogang waved his hand, signaling everyone to depart. On the field, the first student sent by Blazing Academy was Huo Wuxuang. Huo Wuxuang was an attack system spirit master with spirit power reaching level 48. Coupled with Infernape, he had also completed a 1 vs 7 sweep yesterday. As the referee announced the start, Huo Wuxuang was the first to release his Pokemon. Come out, Infernape. White light bloomed, and a reddish-brown monkey with flames on its head appeared on the field. It clashed its fists together and let out a low roar. Zhu Zuqing was expressionless as she raised her hand and pressed the button on the Pokeball. Butterfree. The purple butterfly flew out gracefully, its wings flapping gently, golden scales shimmering under the lights. Huo Wuxuang's mouth curled into a confident arc. After so many matches, Blazing Academy had long since figured out Zhu Zuqing's tactics. Butterfree's sleep powder was indeed powerful, but as long as they restricted it first, they could neutralize this Pokemon's greatest advantage. Infernape, use Taunt. A red light flashed in Infernape's eyes as it bared its fangs fiercely at Butterfree, letting out a roar full of provocation. An invisible energy fluctuation spread from Infernape, accurately applying lock onto Butterfree. After being hit, Butterfree could only use attack-type skills for the time being, unable to use skills like Sleep Powder or Stun Spore. To think it has such a skill. Zhu Zuqing's expression changed slightly, and she immediately made a decisive decision, quickly changing strategies. Butterfree, use Bug Buzz. Butterfree flapped its wings violently, emitting a high-frequency, sharp screech. The invisible sound wave swept toward Huo Wuxuang and Infernape like sharp blades. Ah! The sound wave attack was inescapable. Huo Wuxuang and Infernape showed painful expressions at the same time. Huo Wuxuang pressed his hands tightly against his ears, veins bulging on his forehead, and gritted his teeth as he shouted, Infernape, fire spin. Chapter 100. Tang Xiao and Tang Hao appear, Tang San exposes his twin spirits. Infernape endured the stinging pain brought by the sound waves and thrust its hands upward violently. A scorching flame tornado formed out of thin air, wrapped in intense heat, and swept toward Butterfree like a fire dragon. The range of the flame vortex was extremely wide. Butterfree could not dodge it completely, its left wing was grazed by the flames, and several scales were scorched black and curled. It let out a sharp cry, its body swayed, and it plummeted toward the ground. Just then, Huo Wushwang issued another command, Infernape, use Flame Wheel. The next moment, flames erupted all over Infernape's body, and it slammed into Butterfree. Butterfree. Seeing this, Zhu Zuqing's heart tightened. She hurriedly recalled the injured Butterfree into its Pokeball to prevent it from being seriously injured by Infernape's tackle. The situation on the field reversed instantly. Without Butterfree's suppression, Zhu Zuqing faced the double assault of Huo Wushwang and Infernape, and she conceded in less than 2 minutes. In fact, Zhu Zuqing had more powerful Pokemon, but she did not intend to use them. Why didn't you use your other Pokemon? You clearly still had a chance. Yu Xiaogong's face was extremely ugly, he hadn't expected Zhu Zuqing to concede so rashly. He knew that Zhu Zuqing still had a Wobbuffet, and perhaps even stronger Pokemon, and she had every opportunity to defeat Huo Wushwang. But she chose to concede, without any team spirit. Yu Xiaogong really wanted to kick Zhu Zuqing off the team, but thinking of her importance, he could only suppress his displeasure. Little San, it's your turn. Tang San took a deep breath and walked onto the competition stage with big strides. He glanced at Huo Wushwang opposite him, then at the Infernape, and started calculating in his mind. Blue-silver grass was countered by flames, he was well aware of this. But his current blue-silver grass had been strengthened with poison attributes. As long as he could poison the opponent, a comeback wasn't impossible. Come out, Jinx. Tang San first released Jinx, which could be considered his support. In previous matches, he already knew that Jinx possessed ice-type attacks, which might be able to counter Infernape's flames. Meanwhile, 2 figures in black robes were at the very end of the auditorium. Their gazes landed on Tang San, and one of them said in a low voice, Brother Hao, is that the child of Yu and Yin? The other black-robed figure nodded. That's right, these two were none other than the former Clear Sky twin stars, Tang Xiao and Tang Hao. A few months ago, Tang Hao was seriously injured and was brought back to the sect by the second elder. Considering that Tang Hao had already lost 1 arm and 1 leg, the sect did not continue to punish him. Although the 7th elder and others were dissatisfied, it was forcibly suppressed by Tang Xiao. After a few months of recuperation, Tang Hao barely healed his injuries and installed a prosthetic limb. With Tang Hao's embellishments, Tang Xiao knew that all of this was Lu Xuan's fault, and that he had forcibly occupied his sister-in-law. He hadn't even enjoyed it himself, yet an outsider had. After some consideration, Tang Xiao personally brought Tang Hao to Heaven Do City, mainly intending to take Tang San back to the Clear Sky sect, and by the way, see if there was any way to get Yin out of the tiger's den. Jinx, use Blizzard. On the field, Tang San tried to command Jinx to attack. The biting blizzard swept out like a white wave, carrying a piercing chill, and blew toward Infernape, covering the sky and earth. Just as it was about to hit Infernape, Huo Wushwang shouted, Infernape, use Dig. Infernape's body slammed into the ground, drilling directly into the competition stage, leaving a black hole. As for Huo Wushwang, his dragon spirit had already been strengthened into a top-tier spirit, so he wasn't afraid of this bit of blizzard. Seeing this, Tang San's face darkened. He hadn't expected Huo Wushwang and Infernape to have such tacit understanding. The next second, Infernape broke out of the ground near Jinx's feet, its right fist wrapped in scorching flames, and it slammed into Jinx's chest. Bang! Jinx was knocked flying by this punch, rolled twice on the ground, and just as it wanted to stand up, Infernape had already caught up and used a flame wheel to knock it completely out of the arena. Tang San's face was livid, and he clenched his fists. Although he didn't expect to win by relying on Jinx, it couldn't even last 2 moves in front of Infernape. This was unacceptable to him. This feeling of powerlessness reminded him of the scene where he was crushed by Lu Zan, that deep sense of frustration surged into his heart again. Infernape, use flame wheel on him. Huo Wushwang didn't give him a chance to breathe, and the fire-covered Infernape had already charged toward him. 4th spirit ability, Blue-Silver Prison. Tang San was forced to fight back, and a cage made of black vines covered him, just in time to block Infernape's tackle. However, as the flames burned onto the vines, it couldn't last long. Tang San fell into a passive defensive situation, retreating steadily. Seeing Tang San fall into a disadvantage, Tang Hao's face was very ugly. He didn't expect Tang San to be so weak under Yu Xiaogong's training. It seemed that he shouldn't have trusted Yu Xiaogong, blue-silver grass wasn't suitable for the poison attribute direction. But it was too late to regret it now. Before returning to the sect, he had to take Tang San to complete the secondary awakening. If he could succeed, perhaps there would still be a chance for salvation. On the field, Tang San became more and more frustrated as he fought. Blue-silver grass was countered by the dragon spirit and Infernape, and he couldn't exert the advantages of the control system at all. Even if he used the illusion skill of his head spirit bone, he could only affect one of them. Right now, he only had one last trump card left. Tang San gritted his teeth, and a flash of determination flashed in his eyes. He took a deep breath, thrust his left hand forward violently, and with a dull hum, a pitch-black hammer appeared in his palm out of thin air. Clear Sky Hammer. The moment that giant black hammer appeared on the field, the whole audience fell into a momentary silence, followed by an explosion of deafening exclamations. Clear Sky Hammer. The world's #1 tool spirit, Clear Sky Hammer. Is this Tang Yin actually a disciple of the Clear Sky sect? No, he has twin spirits. This Tang Yin is the same as the Spirit Hall Supreme Pontiff, possessing twin spirits. The referee was also stunned, but the competition rules did not prohibit the use of a second spirit, so he could only suppress the shock in his heart. Solace stood up directly from his seat, shocked in his heart. This Tang Yin is Tang San, to think he would dare to appear in public, he simply holds no regard for the majesty of our Spirit Hall. Previously, Tang Hao and Tang San were wanted by Spirit Hall, and the order hadn't been revoked, so he had every reason to capture Tang San. But he didn't do so. After the match ended, he would go to Shrek Academy to demand the person. Tang San gripped the Clear Sky Hammer, feeling the heavy weight in his palm, and suddenly gained confidence. He looked up at Huo Wushwang opposite him, his eyes becoming sharp. Huo Wushwang, let me show you my true strength. Chapter 101, Ning Rongrong's second Pokemon, Tang San is arrested. Take this hammer. Tang San leapt high into the air, his clear sky hammer swinging in a perfect arc, whistling through the air with a dull roar as he smashed it toward Infernape. Huo Wushwang's expression changed drastically, and he hurriedly shouted, "Infernape, dodge quickly." Although Infernape was very fast, it still stood in front of Huo Wushwang to protect its master, crossing its arms in an attempt to block the hammer head-on. However, the weight of the clear sky hammer far exceeded Infernape's expectations. As the hammer fell, Infernape's arms were instantly numbed by the shock, and its body uncontrollably retreated several steps. Having succeeded with one strike, Tang San did not stop. The second hammer, the third hammer, the fourth hammer. The disorder-splitting wind hammer method grew heavier and faster with each strike, and each blow carried the accumulated power of all the previous strikes, piling up with each hit. After enduring more than a dozen strikes, Infernape finally could not hold on any longer, its arms dropped, and it was ultimately knocked flying by a single hammer blow, crashing heavily at the edge of the arena. "Infernape!" Huo Wushwang shouted, hurriedly taking out a Pokeball to recall Infernape. Immediately, scorching flames emerged from his right hand, beginning to spin crazily. Spark Power Punch. Huo Wushwang punched the clear sky hammer, actually knocking Tang San flying. This was a self-created spirit ability he had learned through a skill book, and the power it unleashed was not inferior to a 10,000-year spirit ability. However, Tang San's combo was not interrupted. Seeing him use the air to gain leverage, he swung the clear sky hammer at Huo Wushwang again, one hammer blow after another, leaving absolutely no chance to breathe. 9-9 returns to 1. Boom. As the 81st hammer fell, Huo Wushwang was sent flying backward, his back slamming heavily against the protective pillar at the edge of the competition stage, spitting out a mouthful of blood as he slid to the ground. Huo Wushwang is out of bounds. Tang Yin wins. As the referee announced the result, the entire arena instantly erupted. The main reason the clear sky hammer is the #1 tool spirit in the world is that it has matching self-created spirit abilities. The disorder-splitting wind hammer method is already considered quite strong, but the Clear Sky sect has even more powerful techniques like the Clear Sky 9 Absolutes and the Great Sumeru Hammer, as well as the profound secret technique of the Great Sumeru Hammer, Ring Explosion. Setting these ultimate techniques aside, the strength of the Clear Sky Hammer can only be considered an ordinary top-tier spirit. On the competition stage, Tang San held the Clear Sky Hammer, his gaze sweeping toward the Blazing Academy seating area, his eyes carrying an unprecedented sharpness. Bastard. Huo Wu cursed under her breath, wishing she could immediately go up and teach this guy a lesson, but due to the order of appearance, she could not take action. Next, Blazing Academy sent out their contestants one after another. However, facing Tang San's Clear Sky Hammer, these contestants were completely ineffective, only able to consume a portion of Tang San's stamina. Including Huo Wushwang, 6 contestants were defeated by Tang San in a row. In the spectator stands, after witnessing the power of the Clear Sky Hammer, everyone cheered for Tang San one after another. Too strong, the Clear Sky Hammer truly deserves to be the #1 tool spirit in the world. One person soloed 6 people from Blazing Academy. If he defeats Huo Wu, that would be a 7-kill sweep. This guy actually hid such a big trump card. In the VIP box, Platinum Bishop Solace sneered and thought to himself, Tang San, you cannot escape from the palm of my hand. Under the attrition of 6 contestants, the spirit power inside Tang San was nearly exhausted, and his right hand holding the hammer was trembling slightly. At this moment, Huo Wu stepped onto the competition stage. Come out, Vulpix. Huo Wu looked at the panting Tang San and immediately released Vulpix. Vulpix, use flamethrower. Hearing her master's command, Vulpix immediately opened its mouth and spewed a continuous stream of flames toward Tang San. Seeing this, Tang San hurriedly raised the Clear Sky Hammer to block, but the impact of this strike was no less than that of a spirit ancestor, directly forcing him back several meters. Vulpix, use Abyss of Flames. Huo Wu pressed her advantage, giving Tang San absolutely no chance to catch his breath. As Vulpix activated the skill, flames suddenly erupted beneath Tang San's feet, and the scorching fire completely enveloped him, leaving him no chance to dodge. The raging flames covered almost half the arena, even more powerful than a spirit ability cast by a fire-type spirit king. Under the burning flames, Tang San let out a painful wail. From the direction of the Shrek Academy seating, Yu Shaogang immediately stood up and shouted, Stop, we are switching people. Although winning the match was important, he did not want to see his disciple get hurt. Tang San was his hope for proving his spirit theory. Moreover, there were still 5 people left, he didn't believe they couldn't win against Blazing Academy. As Tang San was carried down, Daimubai immediately walked onto the competition stage. Although he possessed level 42 spirit power and the White Tiger spirit was also a top-tier spirit, he did not have any particularly powerful Pokemon, only a useless wishy-washy. With the coordination of Huo Wu and Vulpix, Daimubai didn't even last 3 minutes. Next, Ma Hongjun, Tai Long, and Jing Ling went on stage one after another, likewise defeated by Huo Wu. Only Tai Long lasted a little longer, while the other 2 didn't even last a minute. The last one to go on stage was Ning Rongrong. When she walked onto the competition stage, there was not the slightest tension on her face. Considering there's only one person left, I won't concede. Ning Rongrong glanced at Huo Wu opposite her, slowly took out a Pokeball, and gently pressed the button. A white light flashed. A blue duck appeared on the competition stage, its eyes sharp and confident, the protrusion on its head shining, its size nearly double that of a Psyduck, and its temperament was worlds apart. It was none other than Golduck. Of course, this Golduck was not evolved from the original Psyduck, but was given to her by Luzon. Unlike Psyduck, Golduck could fight completely autonomously. Quack quack tilde tilde. Golduck stared at Huo Wu's super long legs, emitting a lecherous laugh from its mouth. Sensing the offense from a duck, Huo Wu was instantly furious and immediately ordered Vulpix to attack. However, when the flames were about to hit Golduck, they stopped in midair. Stop messing around, hurry up and eliminate her. Ning Rongrong urged. Hearing its master's command, Golduck did not dare to slack off again, its eyes suddenly glowing with blue light, erupting with a massive wave of confusion. Before Huo Wu could even react, she was thrown out of the competition stage along with Vulpix. Shrek Academy wins. The referee looked at Golduck in surprise. This Pokemon was too powerful, perhaps even capable of dealing with a Spirit Emperor. After the match, the group from Shrek Academy returned to the lounge. Zhu Zuqing, why did you concede? You clearly have other Pokemon, why didn't you use them? Yu Xiaogang questioned Zhu Zuqing. However, Zhu Zuqing ignored him completely. For a guy like this, the more you pay attention to him, the more insufferable he becomes. Yu Xiaogang was furious and was just about to reprimand Zhu Zuqing when the lounge door was suddenly pushed open. Immediately after, Platinum Bishop Solace walked in with several attendants. Spirit Hall is apprehending a criminal, all unrelated personnel, leave immediately, otherwise I will apprehend you as well. Chapter 102, Charizard Mega Evolution, Crushing the Clear Sky Twins. Platinum Bishop Solace, what do you mean by this? Yu Xiaogang stepped forward, showing no fear of the other party's status as a Platinum Bishop, his tone carrying a hint of interrogation. Platinum Bishop Solace looked Yu Xiaogang over, his expression hesitant. Grandmaster. He knew about the relationship between Yu Xiaogang and Bibi Dong, so he dared not show disrespect to Yu Xiaogang. Grandmaster, I am acting under the orders of the Supreme Pontiff to apprehend the criminal Tang San. Platinum Bishop Solace looked at Tang San and said in a deep voice. Upon hearing this, Yu Xiaogang immediately shielded Tang San, stating righteously, he is not Tang San, he is my disciple, Tang Yin. Grandmaster, do you think I would believe that? Platinum Bishop Solace sneered, directly puncturing Yu Xiaogang's pale panic. He possesses the clear sky hammer, and his age matches. If he isn't Tang San, then who is he? I just didn't expect him to actually possess twin spirits. Fortunately, I discovered it in time, otherwise, it would surely have caused great trouble. Hearing this, Yu Xiaogang was unable to refute him. In his utter helplessness, Yu Xiaogang could only invoke the name of his former lover, everything was done to protect his disciple. Platinum Bishop Solace, given the bond between Bibi Dong and me, as long as I personally speak to her, she will certainly revoke the warrant for Tang San. Yu Xiaogang's gaze was like a torch, as if he were not the one relying on someone else's influence. Yu Xiaogang, you are far too confident. Platinum Bishop Solace stepped forward and continued, my mission is to bring Tang San before the Supreme Pontiff. As for whether or not to release him, that is a matter for the Supreme Pontiff. Upon hearing this, Yu Xiaogang's face turned livid. Gritting his teeth, he suddenly raised his voice, nearly roaring, Platinum Bishop Solace, if you dare take Tang San away, I will never let you off. A trace of solemnity appeared on Platinum Bishop Solace's face. He knew that the relationship between Yu Xiaogang and Bibi Dong was not simple. But upon second thought, he was a Platinum Bishop, holding a high and powerful position, and he was following the orders of the Supreme Pontiff, so nothing should happen. Take Tang San away. Platinum Bishop Solace waved his hand, signaling his attendants to forcibly take Tang San away. Just then, two figures in black robes strode in and closed the door behind them. Who are you? One of the attendants demanded. The moment the words fell, an aura as heavy as a mountain suddenly descended. These attendants did not have high cultivation levels, under this terrifying aura, they were knocked unconscious instantly. Platinum Bishop Solace's pupils shrank, and his face took on a solemn expression. This aura was undoubtedly that of a titled Douluo, and not an ordinary titled Douluo at that. Who exactly are you? Platinum Bishop Solace looked at the two in a panic. However, they did not say much. The leader's figure flickered, instantly appearing behind Platinum Bishop Solace, and he chopped at the back of his neck with one hand. Platinum Bishop Solace's vision went black, and he collapsed to the ground. In the last moment before losing consciousness, his peripheral vision caught a familiar face. The clear sky sect master, Tang Xiao. Tang Hao walked forward from behind, his gait looking somewhat strange. Big brother, why not just kill him? Leaving him alive is also a scourge. No. Tang Xiao shook his head, his expression calm. If we kill Platinum Bishop Solace, Spirit Hall will inevitably be enraged, and the years of peace enjoyed by the clear sky sect will be destroyed in an instant. Tang Hao suddenly realized, thinking it best not to provoke Spirit Hall for the time being. Hearing the familiar voice, Tang San immediately rushed forward, his voice trembling. Dad, where have you been all this time? I've been looking for you. There's no time to explain. You must leave this place with us first. Tang Hao patted Tang San on the shoulder and said earnestly. Upon hearing this, Tang San nodded vigorously, his father weighed more in his heart than anyone else. Just as they were about to leave, Tang Hao suddenly noticed Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing. These two were very close to Luzon, perhaps he could use them to trade for Yin. Ever since losing his arm and leg, his spirit had diminished day by day, even more decadent than during his time in Saint Spirit Village, and he had no desire for revenge at all. After all, Luzon possessed so many powerful Pokemon that he simply could not deal with him. As long as he could get Yin back, he would be content. Even if Yin had already been defiled by Luzon, he was still willing to forgive her, as long as she could return to his side. Big brother, these two are very important to Luzon. We can use them to trade for Yin. Tang Hao immediately relayed his thoughts to Tang Xiao. Upon hearing this plan, a trace of hesitation appeared on Tang Xiao's face, but he eventually nodded in agreement. If they didn't rescue Yin as soon as possible, she might become someone else's shape. The two of you, come with us. Tang Xiao looked at Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing, saying brooking no refusal, as long as you cooperate honestly, I won't do anything to you. Hearing this, Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing exchanged a glance and did not attempt to flee or resist. With their strength, counterattacking rashly would only land them in danger. An hour later, Tang Xiao and the others arrived near the manor outside Heaven Do City. Tang Xiao and Tang Hao walked in front, vigilantly observing their surroundings. Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing walked at the very back, their small hands already quietly reaching for the Pokeballs at their waists. After falling behind by a distance, Ning Rongrong immediately threw out a Pokeball. A flash of white light passed, and a giant orange-red dragon suddenly appeared in midair. It was Charizard. Immediately after, she took an eye that was glowing with colorful light from her bosom and held it high. That eye resonated with Charizard, erupting with a dazzling seven-colored light. The next moment, the seven-colored light completely enveloped Charizard's massive body, it was completing its mega evolution. Within the light, Charizard's form underwent a drastic change, its size surged more than twofold, its wings became broad and slender, and the edges presented a sharp, blade-like outline. Two curved, sharp horns extended from the top of its head, its skin changed from orange-red to a deeper scarlet, and golden flame currents coiled around its body. Mega Charizard Y. A suffocating aura spread in all directions like a tide. Previously, Charizard could only be equivalent to an ordinary titled Douluo, but after Mega Evolution, it directly reached the Divine Beast level. Tang San's eyes were filled with disbelief. Luzon was actually willing to give Ning Rongrong such a precious treasure. Roar. After an angry roar, Charizard suddenly opened its massive mouth, and an incomparably thick pillar of golden flame poured out, carrying a devastatingly high temperature, spraying toward Tang Xiao and Tang Hao. Tang Xiao's expression changed drastically, and he hurriedly used his clear sky avatar to defend. But the flame pillar was too terrifying. In just an instant, it burned through his spirit power barrier, sending him flying. Tang Hao was even more powerless to resist. His prosthetic limb melted instantly in the flames, and his entire body was scorched pitch black. With just one strike, it took care of both of them. At this time, Luzon in the manor noticed the commotion and immediately flashed to appear before Ning Rongrong. You used the Mega Evolution well. Luzon looked up at Mega Charizard Y. The item was exactly what he had bought to give to Ning Rongrong. It was mainly to protect their safety. He had originally considered selling it, but upon second thought, Mega Evolution was too powerful, so he ultimately chose not to sell it. Seeing Luzon appear, the composure Ning Rongrong had been forcing herself to maintain completely disintegrated at that moment. She threw herself directly into Lu Xuan's arms, her arms tightly wrapping around his neck. Before Luzon could react, she stood on her tiptoes, and a sweet kiss landed on his lips. The soft, glutinous touch separated as soon as it made contact. Ning Rongrong's cheeks were flushed, but her eyes were full of sly amusement. Chapter 103, Tang Xiao beaten, Tang San betrays Xiao Wu. After Ning Rongrong offered a kiss, Luzon was slightly taken aback. Although it wasn't the first time she had been so proactive, such a sudden ambush was a first. Luzon snapped back to reality and raised his hand to flick her smooth forehead gently. Ouch. Ning Rongrong covered her forehead, her large eyes immediately welling up with tears as she looked at him aggressively. Why did you hit me? Who told you to ambush me? Ning Rongrong rubbed her forehead, but her heart was filled with secret joy. She looked down at the item in her hand. This item was specially given to her by Luzon, who said it was for life-saving situations, but she hadn't expected the effect to be so terrifying. After Charizard Mega evolved, even a titled Douluo couldn't block a single blow. This proved that Luzon still cared about her deeply, otherwise, why would he give her such a precious item? It wasn't just her, Zuching also had an item. However, it wasn't a Charizard item, but a Blaziken item. Although Mega Blaziken couldn't compare to Mega Charizard Y, its strength was not to be underestimated. Luzon looked up at the scarlet dragon shadow in the sky. Mega Charizard Y spread its wide wings, with golden flames of chi swirling around its body, and an aura belonging to the level of a divine beast enveloped the entire area. A thought suddenly occurred to him. What would happen if he superimposed Dynamax on top of Mega Evolution? Although this combination had never appeared in the animation, that didn't mean it was impossible. Dynamax required a specific energy field, and there were no energy points from the Galar region in this world, but if he used the Dynamax band himself, it might not be impossible to achieve. Rayquaza didn't need an item, it could complete Mega Evolution on its own. If he could use Dynamax and stack dozens of layers of Dragon Dance, I'm afraid that not only would the 5 God Kings have to think twice, but even the Dragon God would have to weigh the consequences if resurrected. A moment later, Luzon withdrew his thoughts and scanned the area in front of him. Tang Xiao and Tang Hao were both severely injured, lying on the ground in a sorry state. Further away, Tang San was sneaking towards the outside of the manor, moving very lightly, afraid of making even the slightest sound. He was trying to slip away while Luzon was distracted. But just as he took 2 steps, he felt a gaze land on his back. Tang San's footsteps froze, and he stopped in his tracks as if he had been hit by a binding spell. He slowly turned his head, meeting Lu Xuan's calm eyes. Did I tell you to leave? Tang San's throat tightened, and he squeezed out a dry smile. Luzon, I was just passing by to take a look. Get over here and stand still. Hearing Lu Xuan's command, Tang San had no choice but to walk back. Tang Xiao forced himself to stand up despite his injuries, a trace of blood still hanging from the corner of his mouth, but his gaze remained fierce. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, stared at Luzon, and said in a low, angry voice. Luzon, you crippled my brother Hao and are occupying my sister-in-law. Do you really think no one can sanction you? Hearing this, Luzon acted as if he had heard a colossal joke, his lips curling into a mocking arc. Tang Xiao, do you have no brain? More than a decade ago, the Blue-Silver Emperor already died, and her origin seed was tossed into a dark, sunless cave by Tang Hao. I took her away and used a helping hand to revive her, so she is my possession. How I handle her is my right. Tang Xiao was stunned. He hadn't really asked Tang Hao about the details, and now that he thought about it, there were indeed many questions. For example, Tang Hao had never mentioned how Yin was revived. If what Luzon said was true, he didn't seem to have done anything wrong. On the contrary, Tang Hao had significant issues. Yin is my wife. Tang Hao suddenly lifted his head, his face twisted with hatred, and he screamed hoarsely, how I deal with her has nothing to do with you. You are just a robber. Luzon didn't even bother to waste words with him and directly released the aura of a titled Douluo. Immediately after, 9 spirit rings spiraled up from under his feet one after another. Yellow, purple, purple, black, 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 red, red, red. 3 scarlet 100,000-year spirit rings. This terrifying spirit ring configuration left Tang Xiao, Tang Hao, and Tang San dumbfounded. How is this possible? Tang San's eyes widened, his face full of disbelief. Luzon was clearly not much older than him, yet he had already cultivated to the titled Douluo realm and even possessed 3 100,000-year spirit rings. All his efforts felt like a joke in front of Luzon. Tang Xiao's expression changed as well. He didn't even have a single 100,000-year spirit ring, whereas Lu Zan, at such a young age, possessed 3. At this moment, Tang Hao was pressed to the ground by this aura, unable to move. After his hand and leg were crippled earlier, his cultivation had regressed to the 70s and he was completely unable to resist this aura. Lu Zan. Tang Xiao gritted his teeth and blocked Tang Hao, saying righteously, setting aside Brother Hao's mistakes, are you without fault? Lu Zan was completely speechless and kicked Tang Xiao flying. The move was very fast, and since Tang Xiao was already severely injured, he had no time to react. Bang! Tang Xiao was kicked away, tracing an arc in the air before crashing heavily onto the ground dozens of meters away, rolling several times before coming to a stop. Tang Xiao lay on the ground, his chest heaving as blood surged, more blood spilling from the corner of his mouth. I can't be bothered to reason with you, you aren't worthy of listening. Lu Zan sneered dismissively, not taking Tang Xiao seriously at all, and turned to walk towards Tang San. Tang San watched Lu Zan approaching step by step, his heart pounding wildly, cold sweat sliding down his cheeks. He subconsciously took 2 steps back, his voice already trembling. Lu Zan, I have no intention of opposing you. I just followed to take a look, I haven't done anything. Don't be nervous, I can give you a chance. Lu Zan walked up to him, patted his shoulder, and said in an irrefutable tone, bring Xiao Wu to me, and I can spare you. Tang San's pupils constricted sharply, he hadn't expected Lu Zan to propose this condition. If he brought Xiao Wu to Lu Zan, what would Lu Zan do to her? Would he force her to sacrifice herself? Would he do something filthy to her? Countless terrifying thoughts churned in Tang San's mind. He clenched his fists, his heart filled with humiliation. But if he didn't agree, I'm afraid even he wouldn't be able to leave alive today. Tang San lowered his head and remained silent for a long time, finally saying in a deep voice, as if he had exhausted all his strength. I can bring Xiao Wu here, but you must provide a redemption condition, I will definitely find a way to redeem her. Then let's set it at 100 million gold coins. Lu Zan said casually. This amount gave Tang San a shock. He had expected Lu Zan to make an exorbitant demand, but he hadn't expected it to be an astronomical figure. Such an exaggerated amount would be difficult for even the royal family to produce in a short time. Tang San's expression was extremely ugly. Even if he earned money desperately, by the time he earned 100 million gold coins, years would probably have passed. Chapter 104, The Power of the Monkey Talisman, Feminizing Tang Hao. In the end, Tang San still agreed to this condition, he simply had no other choice. He turned and walked out of the manor, each step feeling exceptionally heavy. After Tang San left, Ning Rongrong walked up to Lu Zan and asked, tilting her head, you don't have any ideas about Xiao Wu, do you? Upon hearing this, Lu Zan turned to look at her and flicked her forehead with his hand. Ouch, you hit me again. Ning Rongrong covered her forehead, puffed out her cheeks, and looked dissatisfied. It's just something I prepared for you in advance. Lu Zan said in a calm tone, as if stating something perfectly natural, Xiao Wu is a 100,000-year spirit beast, in the future, she can provide spirit rings for you. Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing were both stunned at the same time. They looked at each other, both seeing shock in the other's eyes. Xiao Wu is actually a 100,000-year spirit beast. They had lived with Xiao Wu for several months, eating, shopping, and training together every day, yet they had not noticed anything unusual at all. Ning Rongrong pursed her lips, her expression somewhat complicated. Xiao Wu was our classmate after all, absorbing her spirit ring, it feels a bit weird. It is indeed a bit strange. Zhu Zuqing nodded slightly in agreement. Regarding their naive thoughts, Lu Zan felt slightly helpless and could only work on their mindset later. Sometime later, Tang San returned to the backyard of the Strength clan. He stood outside Xiao Wu's room, raising his hand to knock, but hesitated and did not let it fall. Just then, Xiao Wu suddenly opened the door. Seeing the dejected Tang San outside, she asked with a puzzled look, Little San, you're back. How was the match today? Tang San forced a smile, desperately trying to calm his emotions, and said softly, we won. Really, that's great. Xiao Wu immediately took a step forward, her eyes full of joy. A moment later, a trace of loneliness appeared on her face, and she said despondently, it's a pity I couldn't participate in the match with you. Hearing this, Tang San felt as if his heart had been fiercely pinched by something. He opened his mouth, the words on the tip of his tongue, but he couldn't bring himself to say them. In the end, he just whispered, Xiao Wu, shall we go out of the city for a walk? Okay. Xiao Wu didn't think much of it and immediately agreed, I've been wanting to go out for a stroll for a long time, staying here all day is driving me crazy. She hopped around while packing her things, completely unaware of the struggle in Tang San's eyes. After leaving the city, the surrounding pedestrians gradually thinned out. Xiao Wu finally sensed that something was wrong. Tang San looked preoccupied, and he was deliberately leading her in one direction, it didn't seem like they were going out for a walk at all. Little San, where are we going? Xiao Wu stopped and tilted her head to look at Tang San. Tang San paused, his back to her, his shoulders trembling slightly. Little San. Xiao Wu's voice carried a hint of confusion. She stepped forward and tugged at Tang San's sleeve, what's wrong? Did something happen? Tang San slowly turned around, his face full of struggle and pain. He took a deep breath and said in a heavy tone, Xiao Wu, I'm sorry. The smile on Xiao Wu's face gradually froze, and a sense of foreboding rose in her heart. Little San, what are you talking about? Tang San kept his head down, not daring to look at her, and trembling, recounted the events intermittently. After listening, Xiao Wu stood stunned for a long while. The expression on her face shifted from confusion to disbelief, and finally to heartbreak. She hadn't expected to be betrayed by the person closest to her. Little San, are you really going to hand me over to Lu Zan? No. Tang San suddenly raised his head, grabbed Xiao Wu's hand, and hurriedly explained, Xiao Wu, I swear I will find a way to redeem you. Hearing this, Xiao Wu's heart turned cold. She had never imagined that the person she trusted most would one day push her away with his own hands. She lowered her head and remained silent for a long time. Tang San gripped her hand tightly, fearing she might run away, constantly saying things like, I swear I will save you, and, believe me. After a while, Xiao Wu finally raised her head. Her eyes were red, but she didn't cry. Okay, I'll go with you. Her voice was very soft, as light as a falling leaf. Tang San was stunned for a moment, a flash of joy in his eyes, and he quickly said, "Don't worry, Xiao Wu, I will definitely earn enough money to redeem you as soon as possible. I will never let you down." Xiao Wu did not respond, just silently following him forward. An hour later, the two arrived outside the manor. Seeing them appear, Lu Zan looked at Tang San with a strange expression, saying in surprise, "I thought you would run away, I didn't expect you to actually bring her here." If Tang San had escaped through another city gate, Lu Zan wouldn't have noticed at all, let alone gone to such great lengths to find him. After all, it was just a 100,000-year spirit beast, it wasn't worth him making such a fuss. Tang San's face turned livid, and he gritted his teeth. "Lu Zan, stop humiliating me here. I brought the person, release my father and uncle now. When did I agree to release them?" Lu Zan raised an eyebrow, looking at Tang San with a calm gaze, and continued, "From start to finish, I only said I would spare you, I never said I would let those two go." Hearing this, Tang San's expression changed drastically, he had been played by Lu Zan. Xiao Wu stood to the side, silently watching everything, without a ripple in her eyes. It seemed she had completely lost all expectations of Tang San. "However, considering you didn't run away, I'll give you a chance." As he spoke, Lu Zan looked at Tang Hao, who was lying on the ground, and directly released the power of the monkey talisman. As the monkey talisman took effect, Tang Hao's body began to change. His originally burly figure became slender and graceful, his facial contours softened, and his features were now 70% similar to Ah Yin's, while still retaining 30% of his original likeness. A head of long blue hair hung down to his shoulders, and paired with those tattered clothes, there was a strange sense of allure. "Lu Zan, what did you do to me?" Tang Hao looked down at his slender palms, but his voice remained a man's rough tone, which seemed extremely incongruous. Most importantly, he had lost the part that symbolized him as a man. "Lu Zan, I'll kill you." Lu Zan completely ignored his impotent rage and turned to look at Tang Xiao, saying meaningfully, "Tang Xiao, didn't you like Ah Yin? But in the end, you let Tang Hao have her. I'm giving you a chance now. As long as you agree, I will let you leave." Hearing this, Tang Xiao froze in place, he hadn't expected Lu Zan to possess such miraculous means. And he certainly didn't expect him to treat them like this. Tang Xiao's feelings were very complicated, besides anger and frustration, there was actually a trace of being moved in his heart. To avoid them dirtying the manor, Lu Zan used the confusion of the chicken talisman to take them to a more distant open space. Gradually, the two figures began to grapple with each other. Chapter 105, Tang Hao forgives Tang Xiao, Ah Yin already belongs to someone else. I do not know how much time had passed, but Tang Xiao finally regained consciousness. He looked at Tang Hao, who lay beside him with a look of utter hopelessness, and those memories surged back like a tidal wave, striking him like a bolt of lightning. He had actually done such a thing. This was all Lu Xuan's fault, it was Lu Zan who had forced him to do this. Tang Hao's face was covered in tears, his heart dead and cold, he had actually been oppressed by a man for several hours, and it was his own older brother at that. If he had known it would come to this, he would rather have died. Tang Hao stared hollowly at the sky, his lips trembling slightly, as if he wanted to say something, but he could not utter a single word. At this moment, Tang Xiao clutched his waist and stumbled to his feet. This time, he had truly overexerted himself. "Brother Hao." Tang Xiao looked at Tang Hao as if nothing had happened and said in a low voice, "This was not my wish, it truly was Lu Zan who forced me to do this." Hearing this, Tang Hao remained silent. He did not believe this statement at all, if Tang Xiao had not been willing, how could he have tormented him for so long? Tang Hao lay on the ground, staring at the gray sky above, his eyes unfocused, as if his soul had already been pulled from this body. In the past, he would have been furious. But now, he did not even have the strength to be angry. First, Lu Zan had crippled one of his arms and legs, causing his cultivation to regress to the spirit saint realm, and now, this had happened. He wanted to die. Yet, he did not even have the courage to die. However, he did not blame Tang Xiao for doing this, after all, back then, his older brother had remained alone to fulfill his and Ah Yin's happiness. This could be considered his compensation to his older brother. After a while, Tang Hao managed to muster a little spirit and said in a hoarse voice, "Older brother, I do not blame you." Hearing this, Tang Xiao was stunned, and an indescribably complex emotion surged in his heart. There was guilt, there was heartache, and there was even a trace of a flutter that he was unwilling to admit. He had been single for so many years and had never tasted that kind of pleasure. Initially, he had been very reluctant, but after truly experiencing it, it actually made him feel a bit nostalgic. Tang Hao noticed the strange glint in Tang Xiao's eyes, and his heart suddenly skipped a beat. Older brother, surely he doesn't want to go another round, does he? Tang Xiao seemed to realize his lapse in composure and quickly coughed, suppressing that abnormal thought. He took the initiative to step forward, bent down, and helped Tang Hao up from the ground. "Brother Hao, Lu Zan is simply not someone we can deal with. With his current strength, let alone the two of us, even if the entire Clear Sky sect were to go out in full force, we would definitely not be his match." Tang Hao remained silent, he knew better than anyone how terrifying Lu Zan was. In addition to possessing titled Douluo level strength, Lu Zan also had so many divine beasts and even mastered unfathomable means that completely exceeded the scope of a spirit master. If he had known Lu Zan possessed such means, he would never have dared to trouble him. "Brother Hao, you should come back to the sect with me." "What about Ah Yin?" Tang Hao blurted out, his voice filled with an uncontrollable sadness. Tang Xiao was silent for a long time, finally letting out a long sigh, his expression becoming complex. "Ah Yin is no longer the Ah Yin you knew back then. You should just forget about her." This sentence was like a dull blade, repeatedly cutting into Tang Hao's heart. After all, Ah Yin was a spirit beast in human form, and Lu Xuan's helping hand in resurrecting her was a debt of gratitude enough to outweigh everything else. Tang Hao lowered his head, clenching his fists, his fingernails digging deep into his palms. Yet, he now appeared so powerless even when clenching his fists. After a long while, he looked up at Tang Xiao, his voice hoarse as he asked, "Older brother, what about this body of mine, what should I do?" That female face bore humiliation and despair, yet it revealed a strange, tragic beauty. Tang Xiao looked at his face, and his heart inexplicably skipped a beat. He quickly looked away, patted Tang Hao on the shoulder, and said with a faint relaxed tone, "Rest assured, the means Lu Zan used are likely not permanent, you should be able to recover after some time." Tang Hao did not quite believe it, but there was no better solution at the moment. He could not live his whole life looking like this sissy. "Let's go, let's return to the sect first." Tang Xiao supported Tang Hao, and the two of them limped away from the clearing. Tang Hao looked back at the manor in the distance, his eyes filled with complex emotions. There was hatred, there was resentment, and there was also a trace of relief he was unwilling to admit. From now on, Yin would have nothing more to do with him. Inside the manor, Ning Rongrong sat beside Xiao Wu, softly soothing her emotions. Xiao Wu curled up on the grass, her arms hugging her knees, those originally lively, large eyes were now somewhat hollow and unfocused. She had already heard the whole story from Ning Rongrong. For his own safety, Tang San had sold her out to Lu Zan, such a person was simply not worth her affection. This made her feelings even more complicated. "Rongrong, will he really not kill me?" Xiao Wu looked up, her voice carrying a hint of uncertainty. "Rest assured, if he wanted to kill you, he would have done it long ago, why go through so much trouble?" Ning Rongrong patted Xiao Wu's shoulder and said in a relaxed tone, "Moreover, he already has 9 spirit rings, he doesn't need your spirit ring at all. Xiao Wu, just rest easy and stay here for now." Zhu Qing brought over a cup of hot tea, handed it to Xiao Wu, and rarely spoke up to offer a word of comfort. Xiao Wu looked down at the teacup in her hands, the steam blurring her vision. Ning Rongrong and Zhu Qing were both on her side, which allowed her to barely suppress the panic in her heart. At least, Lu Zan did not have any thoughts of killing her for the time being. She secretly looked up at Lu Zan, who was cultivating not far away, then quickly lowered her head again. She really could not fathom this person's thoughts. On the other side, Tang San returned alone to the backyard of the Strength clan. He felt as if he had lost his soul, he truly could not accept that his father had become a mother and had even done such things with his uncle. "Little San." A voice came from inside the courtyard. Tang San suddenly looked up and saw Yu Xiaoging in the courtyard, with a look of urgency on his face. The moment he saw Yu Xiaoging, Tang San felt as if he had grabbed a lifeline and rushed forward. "Teacher." He grabbed Yu Xiaogong's arm, his voice trembling. Yu Xiaoging frowned, noticing Tang San's abnormality, and said in a deep voice, "What happened? Where is your father?" Tang San opened his mouth, wanting to tell what had happened today, but the words stuck in his throat and he swallowed them back. How was he supposed to say it? Say that my father had become a mother and had engaged in that kind of relationship with his own older brother. He really could not bring himself to say such things. Seeing Tang San remain silent, Yu Xiaoging did not continue to press him but changed the subject, saying in a grave tone. "Little San, Platinum Bishop Solace has already reported your information to the Supreme Pontiff Palace. Spirit Hall plans to take action against the Clear Sky sect." Hearing this, Tang San's expression changed drastically. Although he did not have much sense of belonging to the Clear Sky sect and even harbored resentment towards the Seventh Elder. But the sect was, after all, his father's foundation. If the Clear Sky sect were to be annihilated by Spirit Hall, he would be left without support in the future. Chapter 106, Yu Xiaoging enters the Supreme Pontiff Palace, Bibi Dong's quirk. "Teacher, what should I do?" Tang San raised his head, his eyes filled with anxiety. Yu Xiaoging looked at him in this state, and his heart felt a bit bitter. He had long warned Tang San to keep a low profile, but this kid insisted on exposing the Clear Sky hammer in front of everyone. Now, trouble had found them. After a moment of silence, Yu Xiaoging took a deep breath and said in a low voice, "The best plan for now is for you to find a place to lay low." "I can't." Tang San refused immediately, kneeling suddenly before Yu Xiaoging, and said solemnly, "Teacher, I heard from Dad that you have a very good relationship with the Supreme Pontiff of Spirit Hall. Can you help me?" Hearing this, a conflicted expression appeared on Yu Xiaogong's face. He always had a knot in his heart. Deep down, he did not want to go to Spirit City. But faced with his disciple's request, Yu Xiaoging really couldn't refuse, especially since only Bibi Dong knew the method to cultivate twin spirits. Therefore, he had to make a trip to Spirit Hall. Only by solving the problem of the twin spirits could he cultivate Tang San into the most powerful spirit master. "You are my disciple, I cannot just sit by and watch." Yu Xiaoging patted Tang San's shoulder and said earnestly. Hearing this, Tang San's eyes turned red. He had previously thought his teacher was useless and felt like a heartless wretch. Seeing Tang San in this state, Yu Xiaoging began to imagine the future. As long as Tang San achieved divinity in the future, he, Yu Xiaoging, would be the master of a deity, and those who once mocked him would all have to kneel at his feet. Half a month later. Outside Spirit City, a figure was walking slowly toward the city gate. It was Yu Xiaoging. His complexion was somewhat haggard, his brows were tightly locked, and Luo Sanpao was following closely behind him. That furry pig-like face was full of grievance. Along the way, they didn't know how many passers-by they had already knocked out with their stench. Yu Xiaoging had wanted to leave Luo Sanpao outside the city, but Luo Sanpao refused to budge, almost crying and rolling on the ground. Helpless, he had no choice but to bring it along, trying to walk on secluded paths as much as possible. Even so, that heaven-piercing stench still enveloped a radius of several hundred meters. At this moment, Yu Xiaoging stood before the gate of Spirit City, looking at the towering gate, his heart filled with mixed feelings. More than 20 years ago, he had fled this city in a sorry state, and now he had returned voluntarily. "I must take back everything I have lost." He gritted his teeth and strode toward the city gate. However, just as he reached the entrance, 2 guards frowned simultaneously and pinched their noses. "Halt." One of the guards extended his spear to block Yu Xiaoging, saying with disgust, "It's too stinky. Did you crawl out of a latrine?" Yu Xiaogong's face darkened, and his chest rose and fell slightly. He, the dignified Grand Master of Spirit Theory, was actually being insulted by a gatekeeping guard. It was simply outrageous. Presumptuous. Just as he was about to scold them, Luo Sanpao behind him suddenly let out a poof and released a thunderous fart. The intensity of the smell was comparable to a biochemical weapon. The blast of air directly shattered the cloak Luo Sanpao was wearing, turning it into fragments that scattered everywhere. Immediately following, that thick, yellow-green stench rapidly spread. The pedestrians originally queuing at the city gate had their expressions changed drastically, some bent over and vomited, some rolled their eyes and fainted on the spot, and more people covered their noses and mouths, fleeing in all directions. The two guards were the first to bear the brunt, hit directly in the face by the stench, their legs went weak, and they nearly stopped breathing on the spot. The head guard leaned against the wall, bile almost coming out. The other guards were even more dizzy from the stench, almost sent to the afterlife. The power was truly terrifying. Yu Xiaogang had been prepared, he quickly took out a mask and put it on. A moment later, the head guard caught his breath, pointed at Yu Xiaogang, and shouted hoarsely. This person is disrupting public order in the city. Take him down. As soon as the words fell, several patrol guards surrounded them. Yu Xiaogang's expression changed, he hurriedly took out a token from his bosom, held it high, and shouted. I am an elder of Spirit Hall, who dares to touch me? The token was made entirely of gold, with the images of 6 top-tier spirits carved on the front. It was the Supreme Pontiff token given to him by Tang Hao. The guards looked at each other, their movements hesitating. This person was clearly only at the Spirit Grand Master level, how could he be an elder of Spirit Hall? But the problem was, this token was indeed real. What if this person really had a connection to some big shot? How could they, these small gatekeepers, bear the accountability? The head guard hesitated for a moment, finally lowered his spear, and cupped his hands, saying, Please wait a moment, Your Excellency. I will go and report this immediately. Yu Xiaogang snorted coldly, stood with his hands behind his back, and stood proudly in place. Luo Sanpao hid behind Yu Xiaogang, covering its face, not daring to be seen. A moment later, a golden figure flew in from the horizon. Chrysanthemum Douluo Yu Guan landed in front of the city gate, his clothes fluttering, his posture elegant. However, when he smelled that rich stench, the composure on his face instantly collapsed. Who is causing trouble here? Chrysanthemum Douluo pinched his nose, trying hard to maintain the dignity of a titled Douluo, but the corner of his eye was twitching. Yu Xiaogang stepped forward calmly, cupped his hands, and said neither humbly nor arrogantly, Elder Chrysanthemum, long time no see. Chrysanthemum Douluo looked closely, and the expression on his face became extremely colorful. Yu Xiaogang. Why did he come? Chrysanthemum Douluo's gaze shifted to behind Yu Xiaogang. When he saw the furry Luo Sanpao, his mouth couldn't help but twitch twice. What the hell was that thing? The previous Luo Sanpao was already ugly enough, but now it had become even uglier, and there was even a weird feeling to it. However, considering that the other party was the old lover of the Supreme Pontiff, Chrysanthemum Douluo didn't say his true thoughts aloud. He pinched his nose, barely squeezing out a relatively polite smile, and said in a shrill voice. So it is Grandmaster. I wonder what business you have in Spirit City. I want to see Bibi Dong. Yu Xiaogang was blunt, not even bothering to use the honorific, Supreme Pontiff. Chrysanthemum Douluo frowned slightly, subconsciously wanting to refuse. In all honesty, he didn't want this guy to have any entanglement with the Supreme Pontiff, lest it cause a laughingstock. But on second thought, given Bibi Dong's obsession with Yu Xiaogang, if he took it upon himself to block the person outside, he would definitely be the one scolded afterward. Grandmaster, please follow me. Chrysanthemum Douluo hesitated for a moment, finally stepped aside to make way, but added, You can enter the city, but your spirit must be left outside the city. Yu Xiaogang hesitated for a moment, then had no choice but to leave Luo Sanpao outside the city. Led by Chrysanthemum Douluo, Yu Xiaogang soon entered the Supreme Pontiff Palace. Bibi Dong was sitting on the throne, her gorgeous Supreme Pontiff robe outlining her graceful figure. Chrysanthemum Douluo walked in quickly from outside the hall, knelt on one knee, and said loudly, Supreme Pontiff, Yu Xiaogang requests an audience. Bibi Dong stopped what she was doing, her beautiful eyes suddenly brightening. Let him in. As Yu Xiaogang stepped into the hall, Bibi Dong immediately smelled a stench. Soon, she discovered that this scent originated from Yu Xiaogang, and she even felt that this scent was somewhat attractive. Chapter 107, Yu Xiaogang demands the cultivation method for twin spirits. Inside the Supreme Pontiff Palace. Yu Xiaogang stood in the center of the Grand Hall, hands behind his back, straightening his spine, trying his best to maintain the dignity of a Grandmaster of Theory. Although the foul odor on his body had dissipated quite a bit, a faint, lingering trace of it still drifted through the air of the Grand Hall. Bibi Dong sat on the high throne, her gaze falling calmly upon Yu Xiaogang, though complex emotions surged within her purple eyes. The man who had haunted her dreams for 20 years was now standing right before her. His face had aged significantly, the wrinkles at the corners of his eyes were deeper than in her memories, and his posture was not as upright as it had been in his youth, yet she still felt he possessed a unique charm. No matter what Yu Xiaogang had become, he was still the perfect lover in her heart. However, given the vast disparity in their current statuses, she could not afford to appear too emotional. Bibi Dong forcibly suppressed the agitation in her heart, maintaining her usual cold, detached expression on her face, and said in a flat tone, Yu Xiaogang, you have come all this way to find me, what is your purpose? Yu Xiaogang looked up and stared directly into her eyes, without the slightest timidity, and said righteously. Bibi Dong, I have come today to ask that you revoke the arrest warrants for Tang San and Tang Hao, and that you do not settle scores with the Clear Sky sect. After a pause, he clasped his hands behind his back and said with calm confidence, This is my bottom line, I hope you do not force me. As soon as these words were spoken, the air in the Grand Hall seemed to freeze. Bibi Dong frowned slightly, the warmth of their long-awaited reunion in her heart was greatly diluted by this statement. She had thought he came to see her. And yet, to travel all the way from Spirit City to Heaven Do City, and then back from Heaven Do City to Spirit City, just to plead for his disciple. A sense of bitterness welled up in Bibi Dong's heart, but her face remained impassive as she said indifferently. Yu Xiaogang, in what capacity are you negotiating terms with me now? Yu Xiaogang was momentarily speechless, a flash of dissatisfaction crossing his eyes. He had not expected Bibi Dong's attitude to be so cold. A moment later, Yu Xiaogang puffed out his chest and said righteously, Bibi Dong, let me tell you, Tang San is my disciple. If any harm should come to him, I will destroy Spirit Hall at any cost. Hearing this, Bibi Dong stood up abruptly from her throne, cold light shooting from her purple eyes, her voice suddenly rising. Insolent, I am the Supreme Pontiff. As an outsider, how dare you criticize my decisions? Facing Bibi Dong's fury, Yu Xiaogang's expression changed slightly. He had not expected her temperament to have changed so drastically after becoming the Supreme Pontiff. Back in Nuoding City, although she was of noble status, she had always been gentle and kind to him, yet now she was shouting at him without any regard for his feelings. This stirred up an indescribable sense of loss and irritation in his heart. After a moment of silence, Yu Xiaogang gritted his teeth, looked up at Bibi Dong, and said in a deep voice. Bibi Dong, if you still care about our past relationship, do as I say, otherwise I will never forgive you. His tone carried a nearly roguish certainty, as if he were sure she would soften. Bibi Dong gazed at his aged yet stubborn face, a complex mixture of emotions flooding her heart. By what right did he think she still cared about that past relationship? And yet, she truly did. Bibi Dong took a deep breath, suppressing her surging emotions, and her voice dropped slightly. Yu Xiaogang, you should be aware of the blood feud between the Clear Sky sect and Spirit Hall. Back then, Tang Hao severely injured the previous Supreme Pontiff. How can this debt be simply written off just because you say so? Furthermore, Tang San possesses twin spirits. Once he grows up, he will inevitably become a major threat to Spirit Hall. If I were to show mercy to Tang San, I would be planting the seeds of disaster for Spirit Hall. Although Tang Hao had helped her by severely injuring Qian Zunji, giving her the opportunity to kill him, she felt no gratitude whatsoever. In her heart, apart from Yu Xiaogang, everyone else was wrong, and she had to destroy this world. Yu Xiaogang's expression fluctuated. He certainly knew of the grievances between Spirit Hall and the Clear Sky sect. But he did not care about these things. He did not care at all about the grievances between Tang San and Spirit Hall, only wanting to cultivate Tang San into the most powerful spirit master to prove himself. Bibi Dong, I can guarantee that I will never let Tang San seek revenge on Spirit Hall. Yu Xiaogang promised solemnly. Hearing this, Bibi Dong scoffed and questioned, Yu Xiaogang, do you think Tang San will give up his vengeance for his mother's death? Yu Xiaogang was immediately rendered speechless. It was indeed unrealistic to expect Tang San to give up on revenge. Consequently, he had to change the subject. Bibi Dong, there is one more thing I came to see you about. I want to know about the cultivation method for twin spirits. Bibi Dong frowned slightly, a flash of realization crossing her purple eyes. As expected, it was still for Tang San. She had originally harbored a glimmer of fantasy in her heart, thinking that Yu Xiaogang had come just to see her, but now it seemed she was just being overly sentimental. Yu Xiaogang, you are doing this for Tang San, aren't you? Bibi Dong's voice grew colder, and her gaze became sharp. You should know what twin spirits mean. How could I possibly create such a formidable enemy for myself? Bibi Dong, do you still have any regard for our past at all? Having been rejected repeatedly, the resentment that had built up in Yu Xiaogang's heart could no longer be suppressed, and he suddenly raised his voice. Bibi Dong's eyelashes trembled slightly. She looked at this somewhat hysterical man before her, and a soft spot in the depths of her heart was gently touched. That was the most beautiful memory of her youth, and also the purest time of her life. Even though 20 years had passed, these memories remained as clear as yesterday in her heart. Bibi Dong remained silent for a long time. The air in the grand hall seemed to congeal into a solid substance. Finally, she spoke slowly, her voice tinged with a hint of fatigue. Yu Xiaogang, I can agree to your request and revoke the warrants for Tang San and Tang Hao. A gleam of joy suddenly lit up in Yu Xiaogang's eyes, and just as he was about to thank her, he was cut off by Bibi Dong's next sentence. But there is one condition. The joy on Yu Xiaogang's face stalled, and he looked at her warily. What condition? Bibi Dong descended from the throne and walked step by step to stand before Yu Xiaogang, close enough to see the fine wrinkles on his face. Her voice was very soft, yet carried an irrefutable firmness. You must stay in Spirit City, by my side. Yu Xiaogang's expression changed drastically, and he subconsciously took half a step back, opening his mouth to refuse. Bibi Dong did not give him a chance to speak, continuing. This is my final concession. If you do not agree, I can have someone take the lives of Tang Hao and Tang San right now. Her tone was devoid of any ripples, but the killing intent hidden in her beautiful eyes sent a chill down Yu Xiaogang's spine. Yu Xiaogang remained silent for a long time, his expression fluctuating. Finally, he gritted his teeth, as if having made an extremely difficult decision, and said in a hoarse voice. I will stay. Chapter 108, The Advancement Tournament Ends, Capturing Ning Rongrong. Seeing Yu Xiaogang agree, a flicker of imperceptible joy flashed in Bibi Dong's eyes, but she remained cold on the surface. Since that is the case, I will send someone to revoke the wanted order immediately. Bibi Dong said with a calm expression. Although Tang San was a significant hidden danger to Spirit Hall, he was ultimately just a small spirit ancestor and could not pose a threat to Spirit Hall for the time being. Moreover, compared to keeping Yu Xiaogang by her side, this matter was not very important. Seeing her agree, Yu Xiaogang instantly breathed a sigh of relief. Suddenly thinking of a problem, he hurriedly said. By the way, I left Luo Sanpao outside the city. It is quite special, so it is not very convenient for it to enter the city. Hearing this, Bibi Dong raised her eyebrows slightly, not taking the matter to heart. Her impression of Yu Xiaogang's spirit was still stuck on the Luo Sanpao from 20 years ago that could only fart, so she didn't think much of it. Yu Guan, go arrange a spacious residence. From today on, Grandmaster will stay in Spirit City. Bibi Dong turned her head to look at Chrysanthemum Douluo, her tone indifferent. An indescribable expression appeared on Chrysanthemum Douluo Yu Guan's enchanting face. He had personally witnessed the earth-shattering power of Luo Sanpao's stinky farts. If that thing were to move into Spirit City, he didn't know how many people would suffer. But Bibi Dong's order was unquestionable, so Chrysanthemum Douluo could only brace himself and bow in agreement. This subordinate obeys. Yu Xiaogang followed Chrysanthemum Douluo out of the main hall with complicated feelings. Once he left, Bibi Dong stood alone in the center of the vast hall, raising her hand to gently press against her chest. That heart, which had been silent for many years, was now beating a little fast. She gazed in the direction Yu Xiaogang had left, an unconscious smile curling at the corners of her lips. This time, she would absolutely not let Yu Xiaogang go. Heaven Do City. The advancement tournament had come to an end, and Shrek Academy ultimately failed to advance to the finals. Lacking their main force, Tang San, and with Ning Rongrong and Zhu Qing deliberately holding back their strength, the Shrek team simply could not advance smoothly. The 4 elemental academies all advanced, along with some academies from other cities, totaling 15 teams. The core members of these teams were now almost all gathered outside Lu Xuan's manor. Now that they had successfully entered the finals, they wanted to improve their strength even more, so they would have a greater hope of winning the championship. After all, the strength of the Spirit Hall team was too great. Feng Xiaodian stood at the very front of the line. Seeing Lu Zan come out, his face was immediately filled with an enthusiastic smile. Boss, I'm here to buy a soul power pill. His spirit power had been stuck at level 49 for some time, and he was just waiting to break through to level 50 so he would have the confidence to deal with the Spirit Hall team. Here you go. Lu Zan took the black card handed over by Feng Xiaodian and, after confirming the amount was correct, handed over a soul power pill that emitted a faint golden light. Feng Xiaodian took the medicinal pill and couldn't wait to consume it on the spot. After a while, his whole body trembled, his spirit power fluctuations suddenly climbed, and he successfully achieved a breakthrough to level 50. It worked. Feng Xiaodian was overjoyed, thanked Lu Zan repeatedly, and then happily retreated to the side. Immediately afterward, Huo Wushwang and Huo Wu walked to the front. Huo Wu was wearing a fire-red long dress today. The style was a bit bolder than usual, with a very low neckline that revealed her delicate collarbones and a patch of snow-white skin. The look she gave Lu Zan carried undisguised worship and admiration, and her voice was also deliberately softened. Mr. Lu, I heard that you have already achieved a breakthrough to titled Douluo, and are even at level 95. Is this true? Lu Zan glanced at her, his expression indifferent as he said, it's true. A blazing light immediately erupted in Huo Wu's eyes, as if she were looking at a walking mountain of gold. Huo Wushwang coughed dryly, pulling his sister out of her infatuated state, and said sternly. Boss, I'm buying 2 soul power pills. He was already at level 49, and consuming 2 would allow him to achieve a breakthrough to Spirit King. This was of great significance to him and the Blazing Fire team. Lu Zan collected the money and handed the 2 soul power pills to Huo Wushwang. Next, the members of the other teams stepped forward one by one to purchase items. Soul power pills, martial soul enhancement scrolls, and Pokeballs were all in short supply. After these days of competition, they had deeply realized the importance of Pokeballs and were all willing to pay to purchase them. An hour later, the people from the 15 teams had finished buying their items and left the manor with satisfaction. Ning Rongrong took Lu Xuan's arm, tilted her head to look at him, and said with a smile. By the way, are you going to watch the finals? It will definitely be very lively, you could make a fortune from it. Lu Zan rubbed his chin, pondering for a moment. The finals were to be held at a large spirit fighting arena at the border between Heaven Do City and Spirit City, a place that would gather the eyes of the entire continent. If he sold things there, it would indeed be faster than selling them in the manor. Alright, I'll go take a look when the time comes. Lu Zan nodded in agreement, then stretched, and walked toward the lounge chair in the manor. Ning Rongrong's eyes rolled, and she immediately followed. Her small hands were already skillfully placed on his shoulders, kneading with just the right amount of strength. Zhu Qing also walked over silently, crouched beside him, and gently pounded his legs for him. After a while, Xiao Wu walked out of the house carrying a plate of cut fruit. She hesitated for a moment, then, with a blushing face, walked in front of Lu Zan and held the fruit to his lips. She had slowly adapted to life here during this period. Although Lu Xuan's identity was special, his attitude toward her was not bad. It was even much better than that person, Tang San, who had betrayed her. At least here, she didn't have to live in fear. Xiao Wu fed Lu Zan a piece of apple, then silently retreated to the side to continue serving him along with Ning Rongrong and Zhu Qing. Silver Dragon King sat on a blue stone by the lake, watching this scene from afar. Her long silver hair fluttered slightly in the wind, and a trace of helplessness flashed in her purple eyes. This guy clearly had the strength to contend with the god realm, yet he was so playful and indulgent. At night. After everyone finished dinner, Ning Rongrong suddenly took Lu Xuan's hand, her cheeks flushed, her voice carrying a slightly soft, nasal tone. Boss, can you accompany me tonight? Lu Zan looked down at her. Spirit masters developed early. By now, Ning Rongrong had long since shed her initial innocence and had grown into a slender and graceful beauty. Those beautiful eyes carried a trace of misty moisture, as if she had mustered all her courage to say this. Before he could answer, she had already stood on tiptoe, and her warm, soft lips pressed against his. This kiss was longer and more passionate than any previous one. When their lips parted, Ning Rongrong's cheeks were bright red, her breathing slightly rapid, yet she still stubbornly tugged at his lapels, her eyes full of expectation. Seeing this budding, yet proactively charming appearance, Lu Zan immediately swept Ning Rongrong up into his arms. Under the shy gazes of Zhu Qing and Xiao Wu, Lu Zan carried Ning Rongrong into the room with long strides and gently placed her on the bed. Clothing rustled, and a slight sound came from the bed. A while later, Ning Rongrong knelt on the bed. Chapter 109, The Little Princess is Fair and Tender, Spirit City Stinks to High Heaven. The next morning, Lu Zan stretched and sat up from the bed, feeling completely refreshed. He looked down at the young girl curled up under the covers beside him, sleeping soundly. Her long, pale gray hair was scattered across the pillow, and a faint blush still lingered on the exposed half of her cheek. Her eyelashes fluttered gently, and the corners of her lips were slightly upturned, as if she were having a beautiful dream. It had to be said, the little princess of the 7 treasure glazed tile school was indeed fair and tender, but it was a pity she was too delicate. Last night, she had started begging for mercy after only half an hour. Luzon got out of bed, quickly put on his clothes, and left the room on tiptoe. In the living room, Zhu Zuqing had already prepared breakfast. Hearing footsteps, she looked up, and a very faint blush flashed across her cold, beautiful face. How is Rongrong? Her voice was as cold as ever, yet a few degrees lower than usual, carrying a hint of imperceptible shyness. She is just exhausted, you can take the meal to her in a little while. Luzon walked to the table and sat down, taking the bowls and chopsticks she handed him without hiding anything. With the commotion yesterday, it was impossible for Zhu Zuqing not to have heard. Zhu Zuqing nodded slightly, immediately found a tray, picked up the breakfast, and walked toward Ning Rongrong's room. The moment she pushed open the door, she was stunned by the scene before her. The bedding on the bed was crumpled into a ball, piled up at the head of the bed in a wrinkled mess. A few pieces of clothing were scattered on the floor, and a pillow hung crookedly off the edge of the bed. A lingering, ambiguous scent remained in the air, causing Zhu Zuqing's ears to heat up uncontrollably. She quickly lowered her eyes and walked briskly to the bedside table with the tray. Ning Rongrong lay on the bed, exhausted, but feeling wonderful inside. She had finally captured Luzon. Taking advantage of the break while eating, Ning Rongrong did not forget to pull Zhu Zuqing aside to talk about last night. The little witch's personality had never disappeared. Listening to her, Zhu Zuqing's ears were almost bleeding, and she felt a faint sense of anticipation in her heart. Although she envied Ning Rongrong, she could not be as brave as her, always feeling that she was not worthy of Luzon. Everything she had now was given by Luzon. Without Luzon, she would be nothing. After Luzon was full and satisfied, he came to the courtyard, took out the master ball, and pressed it gently. The next moment, the elegant figure of the Silver Dragon King appeared on the grass. Her stunningly beautiful face, illuminated by the morning sun, exuded an even more holy aura. Those purple eyes looked over quietly, her gaze sweeping over Lu Xuan's face for a moment before she tilted her head slightly. This guy seemed to be in a very good mood. Luzon did not respond, simply leaning back in the lounge chair and stretching comfortably. With nothing to do, Luzon started the lottery. He happened to have plenty of draws left, so he wanted to see if he could pull something good. The wheel buzzed as it spun, the indicator stumbling past rows of icons. Common Spirit Power Pill, Martial Soul Enhancement Scroll, High-Level Soul Power Pill. Of course, there were mostly Pokemon. Lu Xuan's mouth twitched. This luck was the same as before. After dozens of consecutive draws, he hadn't gotten many good items, but his collection of Pokemon was growing more and more. Last one. Luzon had made up his mind and spun the wheel again. The indicator wobbled and stopped on a Pokeball icon. Damn it, another Pokeball. Lu Xuan's mood plummeted, but he suddenly noticed that the information about the lottery item was not right. Groudon, incarnation of the earth, the supreme existence that controls the land, possessing abilities such as manipulating magma, causing earthquakes, and making sunlight extremely intense. Lu Xuan's pupils shrank, and his previously unhappy mood was swept away. His luck had indeed turned. He had actually drawn another divine beast, and it was a tier 1 god. Including Rayquaza, this was already his second tier 1 god. Without a second word, he took out the Pokeball and tossed it casually onto the open space in the center of the courtyard. The moment the white light exploded, the earth shook violently, and a scorching aura swept out like a physical force, even causing the air to warp slightly from the heat. A massive red beast landed with a boom, its body covered in heavy, dark red armor, with magma-like glowing light flowing through the cracks in its back. A pair of golden giant eyes slowly swept across the surroundings, and a circle of charred cracks immediately appeared on the ground. The Silver Dragon King stood up abruptly, her silver hair fluttering wildly in the scorching air currents. She stared fixedly at the giant beast before her, a flash of unconcealable shock crossing her purple eyes. This aura was no less than a tier 1 god, and it even contained an even more powerful energy within its body. She turned her head, her gaze toward Luzon carrying a bit more solemnity. What is this divine beast? It is called Groudon, the divine beast that governs the land. Hearing Lu Xuan's introduction, the Silver Dragon King became even more determined in her previous thought. She must subdue this person. If she wanted to fight against the god realm, she could not do without this person's helping hand. Half a month later, the day of the grand finals approached. Luzon, Ning Rongrong, and Zhu Zuqing sat on the back of the Dragonite, flying toward Spirit City. Under the blessing of the Rabbit Talisman, the Dragonite's speed was like a golden meteor. In just over 10 minutes, the 3 people and 1 dragon had arrived above Spirit City, instantly attracting the attention of the spirit masters in the city. In their eyes, this was a 100,000-year spirit beast. Under the gaze of everyone, the Dragonite landed on an open space in the city, completely unafraid of guards coming to cause trouble. Just then, the 3 of them suddenly smelled an indescribable stench. Although it was not very strong, it was still enough to make one feel nauseous. Ning Rongrong pinched her nose, her voice muffled. What is that smell? Zhu Zuqing frowned slightly and guessed. This stench is very similar to the air at Shrek Academy. Could it be that Yu Xiaogang has come too? This stench is indeed the fart released by Luo Sanpao. Lu Xuan's brows furrowed slightly, a mocking smile curling the corner of his lips, and he changed the subject. However, this stench was not formed in the short term. I'm afraid Yu Xiaogang has been here for a long time. Given Bibi Dong's obsession with Yu Xiaogang, it was quite normal for her to keep him. It was just unfortunate that she made others suffer along with her. In his view, Bibi Dong and Yu Xiaogang were simply 2 ungrateful wretches attracted to each other. Otherwise, how could Bibi Dong possibly fall in love with a loser? Could it be that she really admired Yu Xiaogang's world-shaking wisdom? Luzon immediately took 3 masks out of his storage spirit tool and handed them to Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing respectively. After the 3 of them put them on, they finally felt the air was a bit fresher. Because the air was filled with the stench, the 3 of them no longer had any desire to stroll around and only wanted to find a place that had not been polluted by the stench to stay. After searching for a long time, Luzon finally found a suitable inn in the area on the very edge of the city. Looking from the outside, the inn was kept quite clean, with a few potted plants growing lushly in front of the door, and the lingering stench in the air was also much fainter. Unfortunately, this inn had already been fully occupied by other academies. Clearly, they could not stand the stench in the city either.